has in his advantage here is, of course, Lorenzo will never have gone up against this composition before because it's so uniquely Jamie Boy, and that's something that Jamie can use to their advantage. Fantastic that we can see the stat alignment on these Pokemon as well. So to give you the rundown once more, we've got Floette, Eternal Flower, Ceruledge, Milotic, Serperior, Weirdeer, and Kommo-o. Now, let's talk about this Weirdeer first, Ben, because this is Rogue.
Gravnosis going on there with the Trick Room. A little bit of modality to Jamie's team. Typically, Jamie likes to play a little bit faster, so having that option at his disposal. Gravity going up will increase the accuracy of all of the moves on Jamie's team. Jamie is relatively famous for not wanting to miss moves. And Hypnosis, although not fully accurate under gravity, is as close as you can get. Psyshield Bash, for those that don't know, is a psychic-type physical move that will also lower the target's defense.
Yes.
And so a really good way to sort of scale your damage across a match. The composition, though, overall, free boosting Pokemon, free Pokemon that stop their opponent, Jamie's opponents, from playing Pokemon with two lots of Hypnosis and the glare and the screens coming out from the Serperior.
Now, this Mega Scovillain set is exactly the pesky, nasty kind that we were referring to on the couch. With that spicy spray ability that Scovillain gets access to once it Mega Evolves, any incoming damage will burn the attacker. And then setting up with the Giga Drain as well, you're able to heal up so much more. We've seen some sets with Leech Seed too, which will sap that health all the more quickly. Rage Powder set becomes the center of attention. This Scovillain is here to be a nuisance. Frostlass is here to provide that blizzardous energy, bringing all of that frost to the field. And of course, once it Mega Evolves, gets that snow warning and the snow going as well. I've got Basculegion with a Citrus Berry here. King Gambit boosting up its dark moves with Black Glasses. Sneasler with Gunk Shot. And we have Lycanroc as well. Not a Pokemon we see so commonly. And at that, definitely not a Pokemon we see so often without Tyranitar.
Yeah, so real adaptation to the format coming out from Lorenzo here. Gunk Shot on the Sneasler is able to knock out Mega Floettes in one. Usually, depending on how everything's trained, but more likely than not. And then you've got that Accelerock boosted by the Tough Claws on the Lycanroc, as well as Tough Claws boosted close combat there. Tyranitar, Charizard and Floette are well covered by that duo, and I think that's like half the battle done, maybe more than half the battle done in a format like this, where you've got the other Pokemon around you to support, and then open the door for Mega Frostlass to just Mega Evolve and click the Blizzard button, which is really what it likes to do.
Should we do this, Ben? Should we kick off the first Champions EU match ever? Here, heralding in a new era of competitive Pokemon. It's time for King Gambit and Frostlass to hit the field over for Lorenzo. And we've got Weirdeer and Milotic for Jamie. And an immediate Defiant boost as well from the Intimidate on the Weirdeer.
That's another thing that Weirdeer does give you, the ability to have a little bit of power control. What I'm interested in now is the training between Weirdeer and Milotic. Although there is Trick Room on the set, seeing this lead composition from Jamie makes me think that Weirdeer is trained to be faster than the Milotic. A combination, gravity, then hypnosis on the Milotic, so that it doesn't have to take a turn going for a coil, getting that accuracy up. And so, yes, there is a Defiant boost on the King Gambit to its attack. That's kind of scary, but actually, if what I suspect is true, Milotic is going to be stopping that King Gambit in its tracks.
Really nice that the Weirdeer has access to the Colbur Berry here. That's going to be weakening super effective Dart-type damage, which you want in the face of this King Gambit. Now it's boosted all the more so. Mega Frostlass is becoming the Ice Queen that we all know and love thanks to Pokemon Legends EA. It's going to get that snow coming down on the field, and everyone is going to be looking a whole lot frostier. Shadow Ball now into the Milotic. Let's hope it doesn't get a special defense drop, boosting the competitive, but no, it's going to be just the Gravity, no boost to speak of on that Milotic. Gravity, and now Milotic can go for an immediate Hypnosis, neutralize the threat of that King Gambit that was reigning supreme, but now it's supine.
We have new mechanics in Pokemon Champions as well, so this King Gambit will sleep for one less turn than in Scarlet and Violet overall, so it does have to take, it has taken its mandatory turn of sleep. Could wake up this turn, could wake up next turn. After next turn, it will definitely wake up rather than having the chance to sleep for another turn there. So Jamie trying to play on the offensive with the sleep, stop Lorenzo in their tracks, and then bring something in from the back, and it's down to Lorenzo to fight through that.
Yeah, it's important to know as well that Kingambit has already burned its first turn of sleep here, so it could even wake up on the very next turn, so you still need to deal with it sooner rather than later. And this Weirdir, for example, cannot touch it. Another Shadow Ball right now into the Milotic, just rolling that dice, hoping you don't get another competitive boost, but you don't. What Jamie does get off is yet another Hypnosis, this time coming out from the Weirdir. Both of these sleepy time Pokemon love to see the napping on the other side, and Milotic can now get boosted with these coils, boosting its accuracy, which will help with future Hypnoses, as well as its defense, crucially.
And getting some HP back from the leftovers as well. And I think this is what Jamie's team is really trying to do. But I think Lorenzo is playing this really well in the fact that sleep doesn't last as long as it used to. And so one of the ways, especially when someone's using Hypnosis or Sleep Powder or any of these other effects against you, sometimes it's best, especially when the Kingambit cannot be attacked by the Weirdir, to stand your ground and try to just wait out the sleep.
I really like this play from Jamie here, getting the Floette in order to try and get boosted up as quickly as possible, going for these Calm Minds. So you boosted up, this Milotic is all of a sudden looking like his Hypnosis will never miss. Kingambit wants to take a leaf out of Jamie's book and get some boost going of its own. Swords Dance, that magnificent blade gleaming atop its head, and it's channeling all of that energy. Milotic, on the meanwhile, is going to be channeling all of those leftovers.
Now, this Kingambit usually would be really threatening to the Floette that's just been brought in by Jamie, but Lorenzo has opted for the Swords Dance instead of Iron Head or Low Kick as a coverage move. And so this Floette is actually looking really safe in front of the Kingambit, where normally, yeah, it's kind of a little bit dicey, right? And so, although Lorenzo has been able to wait out the sleep, has been able to get themselves in a slightly better position, it's actually Jamie that's really on the front foot in this match and can now start putting on the pressure, not fearing that his Milotic is going to be taking too much damage from the Kingambit that is boosted up.
Well, speaking of front foot, that's exactly what Lorenzo wants to get on, switching in their Sneasler, which is going to be threatening this Floette all the more. Floette has gone for its Mega Floette in the first round that we stream of Pokemon Champions here in Turin. Who'd have thunk it? Kingambit is going to be keeping itself safe from any damage, going for its Protect now. Meanwhile, Floette can get a Calm Mind up, but on future turns, that Sneasler is going to be threatening so much. So Jamie's going to want to be dealing with this Sneasler sooner, so much sooner rather than later. Going to be a Hypnosis targeted once more down into this Kingambit. And it's worth noting, with the Swords Dance and holding the black glasses, this Kingambit will still be threatening really decent damage into the Floette.
Yeah, so Lorenzo's done a really good job here of getting the fake out in, putting the pressure on, trying to slow Jamie down. But Jamie's been able to get up 2 coils already, and that Milotic is looking very, very difficult to take out. Lorenzo targeting it down early and aggressively with the Shadow Ball has really made an impact in Milotic's health. Really nice that it didn't get the competitive boost as well. But the question is like, with that leftovers recovery ticking away turn after turn and no more damage, and all of this positive pressure that Jamie's putting on with the Milotic Hypnosis, how is this Milotic not going to be back up at full HP in a few turns and going to be taking away all of that good progress that Lorenzo got early?
Yeah, you might be waking up sooner now in Pokemon Champions, but if you keep being put back to sleep, it doesn't really matter, does it? As Milotic will be flinching as the result of that fake-out Moonblast. Turned into Sneasler, it's a neutral hit being a part-fighting Pokemon, and with that boost, there's that one-hit KO. Sneasler is down. That's one Pokemon down for Lorenzo. Of course, Milotic flinching from the fake-out. The count-out clean, though, that's enough just to neutralize the Serpent and send it slithering back to the depths.
Wow, not even a critical hit as well. I wasn't sure whether or not that would actually pick it up. This Kingambit does have the Black Glasses item to give a bit of a boost to those Dark-type attacks, and so Swords Dance and 2 coils cancelling each other out, and it looks like the Milotic maybe trained to be a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit more trained in other areas than its physical defense. But a really good progress there for Lorenzo. Had to give up the Sneasler in the process, which is a little bit scary when that Floette has got a Calm Mind boost up already. But this Defiant, with the Intimidate coming in from Weirdir, is really starting to stack up.
So this Kingambit is now, I believe, at +4.
It's +4.
+4. Swords Dance with a previous.
Yeah, because of the Defiant going away previously. So I was a boost behind. So yeah, not surprising actually that Kingambit picked up the KO.
Unsurprising to be a boost behind on this old timer, isn't it, Ben? Nah, he's very much in the present. Don't you worry, traders. Now, of course, this Frostlass is still snoozing. That doesn't prevent it from getting its Snow Warning ability activated all the same. Weirdir is such a cool adaptation into something like a Sneasler because it takes double super effective from psychic moves.
There it is.
But this time the Sneasel's down and the Aurora Veil is up, mitigating the special and physical damage coming out from Jamie's side of the field. The Dazzling Gleam, let's not forget it's boosted, but you can see the dividends that the Aurora Veil is paying here. A Hypnosis will be connecting onto the Kingambit, and let's not forget the gravity has expired now. That's not to say all the Pokemon are now floating. It's just to say that this weird is feeling accurate. This Kingambit is put back to sleep. It might be at +4, but if you're snoozing, you're losing.
The so-called blind hypnosis there, Jamie going for the outs that he has in that position, because the Floette is really now under pressure. It's like the Cowtail Cleave with 4 stages of increased attack on the Kingambit has turned into an Iron Head.
Yeah.
Overall, taking away the resistance that it has to that move. And now the Floette's really on the back foot here. Blizzard coming out, not doing too much damage. These Pokemon very, very bulky on Jamie's side. Ooh. Dazzling Gleam, though, with the Aurora Veil, not quite enough to pick up the KO. Gravity goes back, so Jamie getting that advantageous position, but Kingambit can wake up this turn.
It can, but will it? That's the question. The Dazzling Gleam just chipping away and away and away here. Let's not forget this weird cannot touch the Kingambit. Its only damaging move is Psy-Seal Bash. That's a Psychic type. Kingambit is a Dark type. But slowly but surely, Jamie is removing that +4 threat from the field.
The question is how much damage does Sucker Punch do? And does Lorenzo want to go for that alongside a Blizzard or a Shadow Ball? You're absolutely right. This Kingambit is a big, big win condition for Lorenzo. If that Floette goes down on this turn, then whatever Pokemon that's in the back that we're finding out, Ceruledge, isn't necessarily going to have a good time.
I really like this play, though, from Jamie. You can't go for a Sucker Punch if you're going to be switching out. I know it does damage into a damaging move, but it's no Sucker Punch to speak of. The Dazzling Gleam! Frostlass, of course, protected, but Kingambit is on such low HP, and this Floette is boosted. It's going down. That's a key Pokemon for Lorenzo removed there, and down to just their final 2. No more switching can happen. Once this snow is gone, it's gone.
And the question is what that last Pokemon is for Lorenzo. If it's a Basculegion, actually, it's in a pretty good spot to be able to just launch itself into Jamie's Pokemon with Wave Crashes. Getting rid of that Milotic is actually kind of key in that scenario where you want to remove the Pokemon that's resisted you. You can't lock in, you can't go for Last Respects turn after turn after turn because that Wordeer is part normal type. But because its Basculegion is carrying a Citrus Berry, it does get the option to be able to change its type. And now it comes down to the speed training. Is that Floette faster than the Basculegion? Is the Ceruledge and its Shadow Sneak going to be able to put a lot of damage onto the Basculegion, maybe allow with the Aurora Veil up, or even with the Aurora Veil up, the Moonblast to be able to knock out the Ceruledge as well. So there's a lot of questions in this turn. It's really, really all up in the air.
It's so exciting. It couldn't be a better kicking off of Pokemon Champions here in EU. Now, this is a Basculegion carrying the Citrus Berry. No Focus Sash to speak of, but just how quickly will Jamie be able to remove it all the same? The Moonblast now through the Aurora Veil, that's going to get that Basculegion munching as well. Recovered, but now that berry has been spent. And where is the Last Respect going? It's into the boosted Floette, and this is what Basculegion does. I see your boost, but my Last Respect is powered up basically as much as it can, save that Frostlass being knocked out as well, and just neutralizing that threat in the Floette, forcing Weirdeer back out onto the field.
Weirdeer's going to get that Intimidate down onto the Basculegion as well. And there's a nice little mechanic here in terms of damage. The Shadow Sneak goes into the Frostlass. Not that the Basculegion needs it, by the way. The Basculegion's Last Respects after the Frostlass would go down to a Shadow Sneak is going to be boosted up even more in power and become as powerful as it possibly can. I suppose there's a big thing about targeting, the big thing about double protects here coming out from this Mega Frostlass.
There you go. You can see the trainers couldn't quite believe it themselves. A double protect, meaning that Shadow Sneak cannot get the KO there. Last Respect, super effective into Ceruledge. That's, of course, going to be the one-hit KO. Let's not forget that this Weirdeer is not immune to the other moves that this Basculegion can go for. The critical hit here, I don't think that mattered. It's been so powered up, but the Hypnosis does connect. The gravity is still strong with this one, but can this Weirdeer be the deer that takes us all the way through to a victory for Jamie? I did not expect that in our first Pokemon Champions game in EU, we would have a solo Weirdeer having to be the strongest soldier.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a strong Pokemon overall. It's got a lot going for it. And actually, you know, aside from the ability for it to go for Trick Room, the ability for this Gravnosis sort of strategy, it's actually just quite powerful in the attacks that it can go for. Now the Basculegion taking its mandatory turn of sleep. The Side Shield Bash going into the Frostlass.
Nice.
But is it... Oh, it's defense boost on the Weird Ear.
Defense boost,
one
yeah.
drop on
Side Shield Bash is such a rare move, so don't blame me there, Ben. This Weird Ear is only on 20. The defense boost probably isn't going to save it here, even though this Basculegion also has an attack drop. The Basculegion is snoozing, but can this Weird Ear get the win before it wakes up? It's going to be such fine margins here.
I think it's an Aquajet range, honestly. Even
Oh!
Basculegion wakes up, goes for the Wave Crush, doesn't even need to worry about the damage. Weird Ear goes down, and it is Lorenzo taking our first game in Pokemon Champions here in Turin.
My goodness, wouldn't you just want to be on one of Weird Ear's stag doos? That's going to be Lorenzo claiming the victory here in round 2 of the Turin Special Championships. Now, that could not have been a more thrilling way to kick off our Pokemon Champions season. I mean, with Jamie Boy, what more could you expect? I'd love to see this Superior coming, but I think in the face of a Mega Frostlass team, it's unlikely.
Pretty unlikely. And yeah, I think Weird Ear is actually... You're in a pretty odd spot with it, right? If you're Jamie, because you want to bring it to set up the gravity so that the hypnosis stuff is working.
Yeah.
But against that King Gambit, you saw how much of a difficult time that Lorenzo was having against the constant barrage of hypnoses, which is not something that I expected to see in our first championships match. But here we are. And then you look at Pokemon like Komodo on Jamie's side. You kind of want to bring it as well. But if you remember from Team Preview, its stat alignment was naive, which means that it has a downside in its special defense. And that's, again, not something that you want to see going up against a Mega Frostlass, because those blizzards are going to be hitting that much harder.
It's worth stating the obvious here, trainers. There's no Terastallization, okay? If you're watching this thinking, well, why can't they just Terastallize? It's because they can't Terastallize. That was very much locked to Scarlet and Violet. Right now, it's all about Mega Evolution. For now, we have left Terastallization in the past. It was very close there for Jamie, and it could have become a win. Jamie is rolling a lot of dice with the team that they're playing, hoping for multiple turns of sleep, hoping that Hypnosis connects, and of course, going for Gravity and Coil is going to help that cause.
I was going to say, it's like, it's rolling the dice, but the dice are kind of loaded.
That's true, absolutely, but there's no loaded dice in Pokemon Champions. So, there you go. Another item that we don't have access to. What are you thinking, Ben? What do you think Jamie should do?
I think Jamie's strategy was actually pretty good, getting the Floette in a nice period to get the Carmine up and start dishing out the damage. I think one more attack with the Floette would have put Jamie into a position that it was really hard to take back from. But here we are, getting into game 2 here.
Okay!
And the Superior coming out. Sneasler and King Gambit for Lorenzo.
And it's the shiny Superior as well. I'd expect nothing less given that Jamie's favorite Pokemon is Superior. So cool to hear this retro Pokemon battle music from previous generations too. Shout out to Hoenn. Right, so both Floette and Superior are really threatened here by the Sneasler, going for his Gunk Shot. Let's not forget, it's not Dire Claw on this Sneasler, just that Gunk Shot. And it's a move that can very much miss.
Unless Gravity is up, in which case it would be flawless accuracy there. But I really like this start for Lorenzo, not wanting to let Jamie start setting up in the same way that he did in game 1. Still using that King Gambit. Of course, notably the White Herb on the Sneasler would stop any Intimidate drops from the Weird Ear as well.
Mega Floette now is radiating that Fairy Aura, but it's not going to be able to do anything this turn. It's going to be flinch, so no super effective Gunk Shots here. Superior going for the Reflect. Pokemon that can be run supportively, but once it gets those Contrary boosts with Leaf Storm, can be very much offensive as well. Kingambit is going to be setting up as well. Both of these trainers want to get their Pokemon set up. Let's not forget this Kingambit reached +4 in the last game. Let's see if it can go even further this time.
And unlike in the last game, it feels like Lorenzo's really on the front foot here, being able to boost up faster than Jamie can neutralize the damage. I mean, Reflect you can only use once. It doesn't stack if you use it again. And Swords Dance on the King Gambit is getting more of a boost than the Reflect is stopping. So that King Gambit is still more powerful than when it started at the start of the battle. Not just that, as you said, the Sneasler, Gunk Shot down into these two Pokemon that take super effective damage from it. Difficult spot to be in.
Another difficult spot to be in is paralyzing your Sneasler. It might not be able to move. There's an 8th chance that it won't be able to move. That's another change coming into Pokemon Champions. There's Moonblast now. With the boost from Mega Evolution, no Carmines yet, brings this Gambit down to about 1/3 of its HP, and the Sneasler is fully paralyzed. So again, rolling that dice, and it's in Jamie's favor. Now, with the Swords Dance, the Kowtow Cleave, you can see how well the Floette takes that through the Reflect. There are so many modifications to bear in mind.
And it does look like this Floette wouldn't go down to a Sucker Punch. So Jamie kind of in a good position to be able to start dealing some damage and compounding the chances for that Sneasler to not be able to act on this turn. Not only is it the Gunk Shot that could miss, but also that paralysis chance. And also the fact that the speed has been dropped on that Sneasler now that the Floette, or the Floette hasn't got a boost up, but it's still going to threaten quite a lot of damage into either target, and it can go first.
Yeah, and Serperior with the Citrus Berry, so healing up that damage. The Serperior only has access to Leaf Storm as a damaging move, which, look, it's pretty pitiful damage there and into both of the Pokemon over on Lorenzo's side of the field, but this is the thing. With the contrary ability, you get a boost to your special attack rather than a double drop. Oh, the Kingambit takes the Dazzling Gleam with just 5 HP. It's less powerful than the Moonblast, but the Gunk Shot lands. That Floette is down. Both of these trainers are hoping for a bit of luck, and so far it's kind of going in both of their directions.
You've got to give it to Lorenzo as well. It's like, it's really tough in that situation where the odds are stacked against you. It's like, well, have the resolve to click the button that if it goes off, gets you into a really nice position. That Floette being down is really, really big because there's still 2 Pokemon in the back, and arguably one of Jamie's strongest Pokemon has been felled already.
Oh, absolutely. Floette is the Pokemon with a target on its back coming into our early Pokemon Champions tournament. Ceruledge is going to be coming out here, though. So, yes, there are 4 Pokemon remaining for Lorenzo, but just look at those health bars, and Ceruledge will feast on this Kingambit in particular. You don't even need a bit of Blade. I was about to say bit of Blast. That sounds like a cool move as well, but Shadow Sneak enough is going to do it, even though it's resisted. Kingambit is down. So, holes punched in both of these teams. Now, this Leaf Storm is going to be hitting much harder. Look at that. It gets the KO on a Sneasler. Again, not a sentence I thought I'd say in our first Cast of Champions. But now this Serperior is +4, and Jamie Boy is going to be delighted right now to have their favorite Pokemon shiny boosted up. Could it sweep through Lorenzo's teeth?
Well, there is a Frostlass standing in the way.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Would probably be able to get the KO here. And in fact, the Basculegion coming in now, this is a strategy that a lot of players are just need to be really aware of. It's like, do I take the KO or do I not? A double KO looks really nice on paper initially, but then when it gives rise to Mega Frostlass and Basculegion at full, and you know that the Basculegion is faster than the Ceruledge because we saw that in the last game. Last Respects is boosted up to a place where it's powerful enough to knock out the Ceruledge. We saw it being able to do that to the Ceruledge last game after an Intimidate. Reflect is kind of the same sort of modifier going on there, and so this Ceruledge is really under a lot of pressure. Not only that, it has to take the Blizzard beforehand, right? So there's not even the sort of fine margins to play with there. And now where Jamie has taken a double KO, actually Lorenzo has got an advantage out of it.
3 ghosts and a snake. Snake's on a plane. Let's hope that this snake isn't on the wane, but in the face of a blizzard, it looks like it may well be. Basculegion will just be keeping itself safe. Where has Jamie targeted? Calling it, gave me a super effective Shadow Sneak onto the Frostlass, but now, next to move will be the Serperior. It's +4, it's a Leaf Storm, and it's gonna be enough to get the KO there onto the Mega Frostlass, and now the Serperior's at +6. Jamie Boy giving us a masterclass into how to win with your favorites.
Well, okay, that is absolutely down to the training of the Serperior versus the training of the Floette. Mega Frostlass, because the Mega Frostlass is naturally faster than the Serperior, but clearly Lorenzo has trained it to be a little bit more defensive, maybe a little bit more offensive in its special attack.
Yeah.
But at the...
Jamie did have a Pokemon unrevealed in the back there as well that could still have swung the match in their favor. Absolutely fascinating. You love to see it. We're going to a Game 3 between Jamie Boy and Lorenzo Antonioni. If you're just tuning in, what are you doing? You need to have set an alarm trainer to get here for our first EU Pokemon Champions regional level event. And yes, All of those icons on Jamie Boy's team, you're seeing them correctly. It is such a fast and funky and fun one. And at one-on-one, it could be Jamie Boy claiming the victory here. But Lorenzo could use his potentially a little bit more tried and tested team, but with some fun techs there as well, in order to claim the victory. It couldn't be a better way to kick off our Turin Special Championships.
Do you reckon that the Scovillain could be the bring?
Oh, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. I mean, it's obviously a fantastic play into the Serperior that looked so dominant for Jamie Boy in that previous game. It's tough, though, with Scovillain, because it's what we were talking about eggs in baskets before. It's one of those Pokemon that you kind of feel like you're putting quite a lot of eggs in that basket. It's there to be a punching bag almost, to redirect and soak up those hits. And sure, dish out some spicy sprays, but could be risky.
But this one is one that has Overheat and Giga Drain. So
true.
A few other... there it is. There it is. Called it out here.
Nice.
It's the Milotic and the Weirdeer. So Jamie coming back to the Weirdeer after leaving it in the back in game one, kind of trying to condition Lorenzo to maybe not bring King Gambit in the lead. Got that right. But equally, this Scovillain, I think, looks like it's in a really strong position to start putting on some pressure. Unlike the Shadow Balls in game one that were hailing down onto Milotic, Giga Drain is super effective. And even though Scovillain typically is using Spicy Spray, redirecting attacks into it, it's easy to forget that it's actually got a really, really high base attack and special attack stat.
Scovillain is going to be getting all the more peppery, and there is that Mega. Spicy Spray is one of the best new abilities we have access to, and Lorenzo wants to give us a showcase as to why. Fake Out means that Weirdeer is not going to be acting at this turn, meaning it's just the Giga Drain from the Scovillain. Milotic will be able to take that at least 2 more times, which is really useful for Jamie to know. Having said that, we could have a higher roll on a successive turn, but the Hypnosis without any coils will just be connecting now. So all of the eggs in the Scovillain basket, and Lorenzo's looking like, oh dear, I didn't bet on the sleepy Spicy Spray.
I mean, there's one thing hitting a lot of sleep powders in a row. Hypnosis is less accurate than that, but Jamie committing to it. I mean, it's part of his core strategy, right? It's trying to maybe call out that the Fake Out wasn't going down into either of the Pokemon on Jamie's side and saying, well, I either get Gravity or I get a Hypnosis, or I just attempt to go for a Hypnosis. But nice seeing the stat alignment there for Milotic coming out. Is Sassy being boosted in its special defense, one of its highest natural stats to be able to play with. And so Milotic actually shrugging off that big Giga Drain very, very well. Now Lorenzo, I think, has to go back to the drawing board a little bit, unless he thinks that the Sneasel's close combat might be able to finish the job on this Milotic. Cannot protect itself.
Rolling that dice, but no, the Milotic is going to be brought down very low, but it's going to be hanging on. And now this Weirdeer is in such a fantastic position. Side Shield Bash easily enough to get the one-hit KO onto Sneasler. Sound effects provided by the one and only Ben Kiriakou, and a defense boost to boot onto this Weirdeer. Again, another reason to run this very, very niche Pokemon in this format. So good into Sneasler. Double super effective damage against poison and fighting and life dew. Wonderful to have access to that, and it's going to stack with Milotic's leftovers here. Ben, I can hear you chuckling.
It's one of Jamie's favorite moves. He really, really loves setting up these board positions, boosting up, maybe trading some health for it, and then going for a life dew and just recovering all of that back. Now it's the turn for Basque Legion to come in a little bit earlier than it did before. Let's not forget, it's only got 1 boost to its last respects, and it's going to be able to put some pressure onto Milotic and the Weirdeer. I think that the biggest question is when this Scovillain is going to be waking up, and I think that's what Lorenzo really needs to bank on in this spot.
Basque Legion's putting on some pressure, but let's not forget this Weirdeer does have a defense boost as well, and obviously Last Respects isn't doing anything, so even a Wave Crash wouldn't be doing as much damage as Lorenzo would have liked.
And you think it's like, whether or not Lorenzo's got King Gambit in the back as well is a big, big deal in this board state. Here's Last Respects, getting the KO onto the Milotic, and I wonder if Lorenzo's overall strategy is try to knock out every Pokemon that is not Weirdeer so that the King Gambit can clean up in the back. That's going to be very difficult to do when Jamie is just landing Hypnosis after Hypnosis. No Gravity on the field either.
I don't think we've seen a Hypnosis miss yet over the course of this 3-game set. It's unbelievable. These Pokemon love their trainers, and we love to see it. Komo, the first time this Pokemon has been brought for Jamie, begging the question as to what is the Pokemon in the back. One would expect the Mega Evolution-capable Floette, but Komo is a Pokemon that can get boosted up with its Clangorous Soul and then sweep through with Clanging Scale. scales, and that's exactly the opportunity that's been afforded to Jamie Boyd here with a couple of snoozing targets over on Lorenzo's side. But this Scovillain, I believe, is guaranteed to wake up this turn.
It is.
And that's exactly what happens. The overheat targeted into this physically defensive Weird Ear, but it can still shrug that off. And now let's not forget that Scovillain is easing up a double drop to its special attack. Basculegion staying asleep, meaning that the Weird Ear can now make its hypnoses all the more accurate as if Jamie needed it.
As like, now Jamie's like, no, honest, gravity was in play the whole time.
Yeah,
Honest,
exactly.
honest, yeah. It was definitely, you just weren't looking properly there. And now the Komodo, this is the thing about having all of these hypnoses, and it's like back in Regulation Set C in Scarlet and Violet, where players were using Tinglu and Fisher. You like, you click the button enough times, it's going to land. And okay, Jamie landed it early in all of those button pressing fiascos that he's doing, but actually, like, he's got so many options to use hypnosis turn after turn after turn. All he needs is for one or two of them to hit over the course of a set, and then it opens the door for Pokemon like Komodo, like the Ceruledge, to come in and boost themselves up, and then take the advantage that way.
Okay, Scovillain's going to be switching out, and it will be Kingambit coming in, so well called here, Ben. So Lorenzo wants to get this Weird Ear isolated, so the Dark-type move is going to be all the more powerful. The Clanging Scales, they take it pretty well, and this Basculegion will be healing up as well with its Citrus, of course, Kingambit resisting that Dragon-type damage. Basculegion is staying asleep, much to Lorenzo's frustration. The Side Shield Bash whittling away, and one more Clanging Scales, and that Basculegion should be down.
The downside of the Komodo here is that in order to do all of that lovely spread-type damage that it does, it has to drop its defense, and there's two physical Pokemon on the other side of the field. The Basculegion has taken its mandatory turn of sleep and now could have its chance of waking up. And so I'm wondering if a Black Glass's Sucker Punch, even resisted, plus an Aqua Jet with the adaptability boost that Basculegion has, is enough. Worth noting again, if the Weird Ear is the last Pokemon remaining and Kingambit is still on Lorenzo's side of the field, there is nothing that Jamie can do.
Yeah.
As many hypnoses as you like, Side Shield Bash is never going to do any damage to it.
I guess you could whittle away all your PP and then go for Struggle on the Kingambit, but that's still going to be quite the struggle to try and get the KO. It's the Wake Up. It's just the Protect, actually, on the Basculegion here, so no damage heading that way. At least it's not snoozing anymore. The Drain Punch, though, double super effective, of course, into the Kingambit. And now this combo is healing back all the way up to full. Jamie is giving us a masterclass as to how to run these setup teams, and teams that, of course, can recover HP as well. Jamie loves them, and we love to see it. Sideshield Bash, of course, going into the Protect Shield now. And now, the forfeit just going to be locked in. It's going to be Lorenzo forfeiting there, and Jamie Boyd claiming our first ever Pokemon Champions match here in EU.
Yeah, well played from Jamie there. It's like, you can
that Arash is piloting, because we've seen the success of it. It is being popularized by Sejan in a lot of ways, and Arash kind of maybe making some slight adjustments here or there, but we can take an overlook at it. Again, we've got that Mega Delphox, we've got the Mega Floette as the two big centerpieces on the team, and then the supporting cast. We've got the Incineroar, the Fake Out, the Intimidate. It's going to be great to just quell those physical attackers on the opposite side of the field. The Mousehold, you've talked about the Friend Guard there, giving an extra layer of protection. I love the Feint. It can get around any protecting on your opponents. If they're trying to stall turns out or reposition, then you've got the Sinistcha. We've seen how useful that has been in previous games. The Hospitality to top up any lost HP. The Life Dew as well, the Rage Powder, the most important thing to redirect those threatening attacks. And the Vivian, your star of the show here, Charlie. The Scarf on that, the Choice Scarf item, being able to put it at a speed advantage of most other things. Sleep Powder, so disruptive.
Yeah, especially given its 98% accurate stacking with that Compound Eyes ability. Really fantastic team from Arash. And when you're running two Mega Pokemon, it's such a different approach on the other side of the table versus if you're just running one. Because all of a sudden, you don't just have the one linchpin that you have to form your game plan around. It's two. You've got to prepare for both eventualities. So let's see how Rowie is going to be able to do that. Of course, Rowie is also running a couple of Mega Pokemon themselves with Mega Charizard Y and the Aerodactyl. The Fist Bump exchanged. The Pikachu looking delighted about it. And now we'll be able to take a deeper dive into Rowie's team. And I'm so glad that also, as I mentioned, we get to feature this Aegislash.
Yes, we do. And alongside that, the Mega Pokemon on this team, the Charizard and the Aerodactyl there, they're both going to be very good against the Vivian in particular, and the Mega Floette, the Charizard has no trouble sitting in front of that and firing off those big fire type attacks, whilst able to squelch up those fairy type attacks pretty easy. But the Aegislash, a big player here, has got Shadow Sneak, so if you can hit that Vivian, you've got a way to maybe chip off any remaining damage if you miss the knockout. The King Gambit, interestingly, no Protect here, has that Focus Sash, going with Iron Head or Low Kick. Normally you have to kind of choose between those two, but saying, okay, with the Focus Sash, I've got that layer of security, I'm going to go with both of these very useful moves in different scenarios.
True.
And then the Sylveon there, pretty standard, that Hyper Voice, Hyper Beam combination, taking advantage of the Pixelate ability. You've got that one big attack in the Hyper Beam, you do take a recharge turn, but it hits so hard, it's normally picking up knockouts, and great to take advantage of the Fairy Aura that's on the opposite side of the field. And then the Garchomp, what's more to say about Garchomp? Just a solid pick in this format. I think, though, when you're going up against the Vivian, if you're really worried about that, if you're Roy here, I think you've got to split the decision of your opponent, where you say, okay, I'm going to lead 2 Pokemon that are going to be very effective into the Vivian, and you kind of sacrifice one of them to potentially get put to sleep there. Maybe I'm looking at the team here, I think something like the Aerodactyl Charizard feels like a pretty good lead into this team, where you've got the offensive options of the fire type attacks on the Charizard, they're going to threaten the Vivian. Then you've got the Rock Slide as well from the Aerodactyl, so you've got that spread option. There's no Wide Guard on Arash's side of the field. Yes, you've got Intimidate that could cause the Aerodactyl a few issues, and the Intimidate support there, but then you're leading Incineroar and Vivian, and it's not a really effective offensive threat. So I think that is a way of approaching it, but it's really reactive. Roy's got to be into this team because of the disruption that Arash has access to.
Let's get into it, trainers. Our second ever streamed Pokemon Champions game from the EU region, and it's Incineroar and Floette in the lead for Arash, so no Vivian to speak of, as well as the Garchomp and Charizard. And let's not forget, you chose this matchup.
Yeah, really great choice from our audience at home, but we've got the fake out here from the Incineroar. It's at least going to give the Floette a little bit of room this turn. I mean, it's not too worried about probably what the Garchomp's got access to here, so do you go for the fake out into the Charizard here just to prevent any big potential weather balls that could come into your Floette early and do damage that you kind of prefer to avoid here. If you do that, you do leave the Garchomp open to get in maybe a Rock Slide. If it does outspeed the Floette, depends on how it's been trained, there is a potential of a course of a flinch from a Rock Slide.
Charizard is going to be switching, and coming out in its place will be Aegislash and the shiny as well. What a fantastic shiny it is. Mega Floette is hitting the field. It might be from Generation 6. We've got the Generation 1 battle theme playing in the background. Lovely throwback back to 30-odd years ago. Now it's Fairy Aura activated, and all of its Fairy moves are hitting all the harder as well. Floette is just going for the Carmine here, actually. It's sort of had a very free damage into the Garchomp, but it will be boosting up. Playing the longer game, wanting to deal with Rory's Pokemon lurking in the back. Going for the Rock Slide, it will be dodging on the Incineroar, which would have been super effective. Again, it's mitigated by the Intimidate, and Floette can take that for days. Not super effective there at all. Incineroar, meanwhile, goes for that parting shot onto the Aegislash, not hitting quite as hard.
Yeah, really nice parting shot. Nice turn 1 from Arash here, and some interesting information here that we get. The Floette is outspeeding the Garchomp on Roy's side. So this next turn, after that Carmine boost, the special attack there is increased. It is going to be threatening the Garchomp pretty heavily. The Aegislash as well is not going to appreciate that -1 attack drop either, because now it relies on the Poltergeist to hit for super effective damage. It's not going to be hitting as hard, probably not going to be able to pick up a knockout, and you've also got a really nice pivot into the Sinistcha now that is going to be taking super effective damage, but it has the Rage Powder just to give that Floette a little bit of extra protection if needed.
And Aegislash doesn't have access to a damaging steel-type move here, so the Floette is a little bit safer. Sinistcha switching out in order to provide more matchup hospitality in a future turn. Incineroar coming back in for yet another Intimidate drop onto this Garchomp and dropping the attack further of the Aegislash. Floette setting up a Carmine. This is classic from our EU players, just cycling in these Intimidates and parting shots from the Incineroar, making this Floette unremovable from the field. Aegislash is attacking here, going for its stance change, getting a big old boost to its physical attack, and now it's using its Mega Stone against it. The Floetite into the Floette, but it can take that so well.
Yeah, it's going to be able to Draining Kiss, heal off any of that damage. You can see how pivotal the Intimidate drop is, and also that parting shot. Now, the Aegislash is going to be susceptible to getting hit now in this stance form, where if Flebits comes into it, it will knock it out, of course. So it probably has to revert or switch off the field to undo these drops that it's taking. Garchomp in a vulnerable spot, so this is why we're seeing it switch out, reset those drops that it's taken, and Kingambit come back onto the field.
Double steal and double sword on the field right now. Kingambit and Aegis Slash. It's not going to be very effective, the Draining Kiss, but look at that. It heals so much damage. The Aegis Slash takes so much thanks to the double calm mind boost. Okay, but the parting shot into the Kingambit here. It's got this Define ability. So now it's at +1 in its physical attack, and this Kingambit, unlike in our first game, does have access to Iron Head.
Yeah, and that is the thing that was missing on that Aegis Slash there. You were hoping it comes onto the field. It's really positioned well, but not offering that steel-type threat. But now you've got the Kingambit. Has taken that Defiant boost and really putting a lot of pressure on. It did dodge the Draining Kiss that turn as well, so it is pretty fresh coming in. And Poltergeist here, you can see again, just not anywhere near impactful, especially when you've got that Friend God coming onto the field from the Mousehold. So really great pivot again from Arash.
The Kingambit now actually is +3, right, after the parting shot there, dropping the special attack as well. It's very boosted up either way, and so it's very threatening with access to low kick and Iron Head as well as the double dark moves.
+1 at the minute, because it took the Intimidate drop, and then it gets the +2 boost from the parting shot. So at the minute, so it's still very threatening, and in a position where it can threaten, you know, with the Iron Head into the floet. If you don't follow me here with the Mousehold, it will pick up the knockout. Of course, is Kingambit trained enough to take the double up here, because you've got the feint potential, which we're not going to see here, and then the Draining Kiss into it to break that Focus Sash that is giving it that little bit of protection going into this turn.
And this is why Sinister is more prevalent now in Pokemon Champions than it's ever been. Hospitality just topping up that Floette all the more. Meanwhile, the King's Shield coming out from Aegis Slash. Keep yourself safe, as the Sucker Punch is a lot, but it's not going to be enough to claim the knockout onto the Floette here. A Moonblast, though, is neutral damage into this Kingambit, and up +2 in your special attack. The Kingambit hangs on with that Focus Sash, of course. Not an item we see too commonly on that Pokemon. Would have been enough for the KO, but Roe is going to want to do all they can to keep those boosts intact.
Yeah, you can see how valuable that Focus Sash is here, just to allow the Kingambit to stick around on the field. Now, it is going to be picked off by this Floette this next turn. It does have the option to go for another Sucker Punch, but the problem now is you've got that Rage Powder on the Sinistcha that's going to be able to just detract that and keep that Floette nice and healthy for another Draining Kiss to be able to fire it out. The problem is everything on the field now on Roy's side, it's pretty low health, so you're not going to be getting that much health back each and every turn as we get more and deeper into the battle.
So Charizard has made an appearance once more. Sinistcha now the center of attention, is not going to want to take any Dark-type moves, but of course the Floette can neutralize that threat before the Kingambit can come into play. The Floette's looking a whole lot less healthy now, but it's been able to claim some good ground for Arash here. Charizard coming in, it loves to stare down. Yes, low health Floette. Of course, the Sinistcha's already on the field, so it can't provide an immediate Hospitality top-up of HP. It could, perchance, get a Life Dew off, though, but this Aegis Slash will have something to say about it.
Yeah, this is a much better position for Roy now, where you've got the Charizard onto the field. It's not really worrying about this Fairy-type attacks from the Floette, and can hit back with a big offensive Heat Wave here. Even after the Calm Mind, you would say a boosted Heat Wave in the Sun, probably enough to get the remaining health on the Floette and the Sinistcha here, but a really nice switch in response to that into the Incineroar. Gonna once again drop an all-important Intimidate onto the Aegis Slash, which is also leaving the field post-haste.
Immediately switching, both of these trainers playing this revolving door, just trying to claw the advantage. And here comes Mega Charizard Y. Oh yes, it's got those big wings beating fast, and could it be beating its path through to a victory here in Swiss round 3? There's that drought activated. Floette doesn't like the look of that sunlight bathing, it's basking down in as the Charizard goes for this Heat Wave. The Incineroar, of course, will be resisting it nicely. Oh, okay, Incineroar is actually going to be dodging here, but it still would have been really nice chip for Rowie to claim.
Yeah, the problem now is Arash has positioned themselves so well where they've got the Fake Out. It's easy into the Charizard, prevent that from moving this turn. And we know the speed interaction between the Floette and the Garchomp. It is going to outspeed. It is going to be able to land a Draining Kiss into that Pokemon this turn. And off the back of it, why we're seeing it switch into the Aegis Slash. It's taken so much damage already, though. Is it going to be able to take a Draining Kiss this turn?
We've seen just how much damage Draining Kiss has done to the Aegis Slash in the past. And yeah, exactly that. That's going to be it down. Its shield and its sword put to one side. And now this Floette is able to get back to around half HP. It's still not going to want to be taking a Heat Wave from the Charizard, but having burned the Fake Out turn, now Rowie can just go on the offensive and click Heat Wave after Heat Wave, but Arash has so many tools at their disposal.
You've probably got one opportunity here if you are Rowie, where you want to protect the Garchomp this turn and try and pick up the knockout onto the Floette. Hope that the Weather Ball is enough. But of course, you've got Arash in the position where they can potentially just protect the Floette, parting shot into the Charizard. It's whether or not Roy kind of sees through that, because if you expect to protect on the Floette, it means it opens the door for the Garchomp to at least attack this turn, but it's very risky because if that doesn't play out, you lose your Garchomp to that Floette.
Arash is backing this Floette that has a double boost to its special defense, let's not forget, thanks to those Calm Minds. Of course, the Sinistcha is taking one for the team here, potentially by switching in. Floette is actually going to be protecting itself anyway, as the Earthquake comes out, resisted by the Sinistcha, but of course, this Charizard Y is threatening that massive Heat Wave damage. Let's see just how much this Earthquake does for Sinistcha. It's all useful calculations to bring in to future games. And now the Charizard is going to be opting for that Heat Wave. Is the Sinistcha going to dodge just like the Incineroar before it? No, not this time around. And in that sun, that Sinistcha has drunk its last matcha.
Yeah, I don't think you mind this too much of your Arash, because the Sinistcha kind of doing its job there, coming onto the field, activating the hospitality, giving that extra, a little bit of additional health to the Floette. And not only that, now you can bring the Incineroar back into the field. You get another Intimidate onto the Garchomp, taking it down to -1. And you've got that active Fake Out, so you've got that position again where you're almost forcing the Garchomp to protect here. And if it doesn't, it's going to go down to a Draining Kiss, and you're also topping up that Floette. It feels very difficult, and we've not got many turns of Sun left. You can see there's 2 left. So Charizard hasn't got many opportunities to try and get that all-important Weather Ball that it's going to need to get off to get that big damage into the Floette and try and remove it. Once that piece is removed, though, if you can remove it, Garchomp has a much easier time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that mouse hold in the back, and it's not known for its offense. It's certainly a supportive piece. Charizard is going to be protecting this turn as well, so stalling out his own Sun is a really tough position for Roy here, recognizing that Arash is in just such a strong place, and of course, protecting against that Fake Out. All eyes on this Charizard heading onto this next turn, if they're going to be able to benefit from this Sun that is a dwindling.
Yeah, we're going to see a double protect, I think, from Mori on the Garchomp here. If you can get the double protect here and then maybe try and get that big, powerful attack off with the Charizard, it's still going to be questionable whether or not the Fire-type attack will be enough into the Floette. It depends how it's been trained, of course. But yeah, Roy not in the best of spots here. Especially after protecting the previous turn with the Garchomp, it feels almost pinned at this stage.
Mousehole coming back in, providing that all-important Friend Guard boost to the Floette. This Floette just sat on the field for the entire game, just preserving those boosts and trying to get in the best position possible. The Draining Kiss into the Protect from the Garchomp. Here comes the Weather Ball. How much damage is it going to do? This is the crucial one. This is Arash's damage dealer, and look at that. It shrugs it off thanks to that Friend Guard. I wouldn't be surprised if Arash in most games brings this for of Floette, Sinistcha, Mousehold, and Incineroar, because they support each other just so well. So well, in fact, that it's going to force Rory to lock in the forfeit. And Arash is 1 game up.
Yeah, what a well-dictated game from Arash with these 4 Pokemon. And yeah, you saw the value of that Friend Guard there.
Unbelievable.
The Weather Ball was quite a whimper there, where you were thinking it's the one last chance you've got to remove the Floette. But you can see the power of that Calm Mind special defense boost. And then on top of that with the Friend Guard, what a great switch as well. Kind of suspecting, well, the play could be the Garchomp not attacking here. Just to get around that, I'm just gonna switch in my Mousehole, get the Friend Guard, and then I've also got that Fake Out Intimidate that I can cycle back in a future turn if need be. But yeah, it's a really hard wall for Roy to break down. And just the way that the Intimidate cycling was there, I think Roy needs to take a bit more advantage of the King Gambit to kind of prevent the Intimidate cycling so much. Maybe something like King Gambit, Aegis Slash feels better against those 4 immediately, but it's a lot easier said than done, of course. The Floette, anytime it does attack, it is doing a lot of damage, of course.
But hopefully, if you can just neutralize it before it can get any of those boosts up, then that's certainly a way through. Of course, the thing is, Rory also has to contend with the fact that Arash could just lead Vivian, and anything could be put to sleep immediately, and then all of a sudden Arash once more is in the driver's seat. It's such a fascinatingly well-composed team from Arash, and I cannot wait to see how they pilot it in Game 2. Is it going to be a different playstyle? It's going to be the Sylveon in the lead, exactly that, just that massive burst damage into the Floette. Fairy doesn't resist Fairy, but with that Friend Guard provided by the Mousehold, could be in for a tall order, and that King Gambit threatening down an Iron Head too.
Yeah, I really like this lead from Roy, saying, I'm going to go back on the offensive. Not going to lead with that Charizard. We'll maybe keep that for a little bit later on, but the Sylveon here is a Pokemon. If that Floette does Mega Evolve here, get that Fairy Orb activated, it is going to be able to take advantage of that, and those Hyper Voices, and in particular the Hyper Beam, if it can land, is going to be doing devastating damage. Nice that the King Gambit here kind of puts shuts off that switch to the Incineroar because you don't really want to be giving it those very defiant boosts that we've seen it be able to be so effective with. Now the Floette, especially in the front of an Ironhead Kingambit, is pretty threatened, but probably making a quick, decisive switch here into the Aegislash from that Kingambit.
Yes, foretelling this Protect coming out from the Floette on Arash's side of the field. Meanwhile, this Mousehold is left free to go for a Super Fang, but it was targeted into the Kingambit, and that Aegislash is a Ghost type, taking no damage from normal type moves. That would have halved the HP bar there. It will be on the receiving end of a big Fairy Feather, Pixelate, boosted Hyper Voice, and a critical hit to boost. And that Mousehold, whereas it could pivot in quite happily in the previous game, unintimidated, undaunted, this game around, it doesn't have as much HP to work with to provide the frame guard for Floette.
No, a great switch there from Roy to just kind of quell what the Mousehold was attempting to do. Break the Focus Sash on the Kingambit, and now you've got that preserved in the back for later on, which will be very useful against this Floette. The Hyper Voice there, taking advantage of the opportunity just to get that damage off onto the Mousehold, and now it's in a position, is it going to be... It's going to be very close. The quick attack's probably not going to be enough to pick up the knockout, but you can quite reliably here just click the Hyper Voice button, hoping that the Floette Mega Evolves. You can see it is forced off the field here as Incineroar makes its way on to the field.
That's the first time Floette has left the field across both of these games so far. The Super Fang is going to connect into Sylveon. Really nice way, just deal guaranteed half damage into that threatening offensive Pokemon. Aegislash on the offensive now as well. Pasha Berry working against the Incineroar, but of course it's resisting this Poltergeist being a native Dark type, and look at that. It takes it oh so well here. Now you have an active Fake Out on the next turn, but Mousehold will, of course, go down to this Hyper Voice. Sylveon is screaming away, and that Mousehold, those big ears, just means it's hearing it all the more loudly.
Yeah, one of those defensive pivots, though, being lost for Arash. It was so decisive in that game. One now not going to be able to be leaned into to help that Floette in its game plan to overcome Rohi. So in a much better position, the Aegislash here is -1 attack, so its Poltergeists aren't going to be hitting as hard going into this turn. We already know the Floette takes about 50% from those, and it is threatened from the Incineroar this next turn. The Sylveon as well probably wants to get out of the way here and make way for the Charizard. It's an easy switch into this Pokemon here. It's not really going to be affected by any of the offensive threats on Arash's side right now.
Going for not terrestrialization, the Mega Evolution onto this Floette. Still getting my head out of Scarlet and Violet, very much into Champions now, as Fairy Aura is activating as well, boosting the power of those Fairy moves. The Fake Out into the freshly switched in Charizard, of course you can't Fake Out an Aegislash. The Carmine coming out from Floette, and the boost that it should see to its special events already through going for his Mega Evolution, just capitalized on by the Carmines here. The Poltergeist, of course, using the Mega Stone to deal damage to this Floette. It got a special defense boost, not a physical defense boost, and look at that. That Floette is brought down oh so low. I would not be surprised if it's Sinister in the back, so you can at least switch that in for Hospitality boost, but now it's threatened all the more by the Charizard that could just go for its Mega and then go for the Heat Wave.
Yeah, it's a really nice spot that you're in if you are Roy. I mean, you do have to be a bit careful with the Aegislash. It is full health, but of course the Floette has boosted its special attack, so it can Draining Kiss into you, and especially in that stance form, you will be taking more damage than you would like. But you've got the play where you can Heat Wave here and then go for a Sacred Sword into that Incineroar. Even if the Incineroar switches out to the Sinister here, you're going to get good effective damage off onto it. Or do you just go for the Poltergeist here to say, okay, well, I'm just going to go after this Floette? The problem is doing that. Maybe it protects, but is that better than it actually attacking and gaining any health back with that Draining Kiss in this spot?
Mega Charizard Y is here, trainers, and it's Pokemon we're likely to see a whole lot this weekend. But how much is it able to achieve here? Of course, Incineroar is going to be resisting these Heat Waves so nicely. Floette is just going for its Protect here. This is something Arash did a lot in Game 1 as well, keeping it as safe as possible, because really putting all the eggs in the Floette basket. It is that Heat Wave. Incineroar was able to shrug it off in previous games, and the Incineroar, you know, every bit of chip damage is going to add up there, and that would be an active Fake Out off the field, the more damage that Incineroar takes too. Speaking of getting off the field, that's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to hurl that parting shot Charizard's direction, so at least the Heat Wave isn't hitting as strongly now. Now forced to reveal that fourth and final Pokemon, and it's unsurprising that it is indeed Sinister.
Yeah, now out of the way of those Fire-type attacks, getting that Hospitality HP onto the Floette going to be really useful, and the Sacred Sword there going after the Incineroar, nice. And a really great switch. Arash catching that perfectly. Now the Sinister in that spot where it is going to want to probably switch out here into the Incineroar, but that's not a bad thing, right? You get another Intimidate onto the Aegislash, weaken that even further, and you're also not really too worried about the potential Heat Waves. While you've got the opportunity now to lock in, you need to go for a Draining Kiss into something on Roy's side to try try and gain some of that lost health back and put Floette in a better, more commanding position than it is right now.
Yeah, and we saw how badly an Aegislash took a boosted Draining Kiss in the previous game. It's Pokemon that has a very low HP stat, so it's something that Arash can use to their advantage. Here it is, that Draining Kiss into the Aegislash, nearly doing 50% there, and it's going to be healing up this Floette all the more. And look at that, just 1 HP shy of being at full health. Heat Wave now. How much will it do to Floette? Oh my goodness, it can take it oh so well, even in the sun, thanks to that parting shot on the previous turn from the Incineroar and an active fake out coming into boot. Arash giving us a masterclass as to how to pilot this team, but the Poltergeist did so much damage on a previous turn. Floette is still sticking around. It's such a thorn in Rowy's side, and what a treat to be able to feature such high-level play in just Swiss round 3 of the Turin Special Championships.
Yeah, and Roy doing so well here. You can see the resources on Arash's side really dwindling. You've got active fake out now, so you can prevent this Charizard from going for one of those Heat Waves or Weather Balls this next turn. And we don't have many turns of the sun left. You know, we've got 3 left for this Charizard to take advantage of it. It's in a healthy position. Aegislash here is going to be open to potentially get another attack off. It's going to be touch and go whether another Draining Kiss, though, is going to be enough to take that down. If you miss the knockout and it gets another Poltergeist onto that Floette, there's a good chance it could pick up the knockout, and it could potentially even go for a Sacred Sword if that Incineroar is tied up this turn, faking out the Charizard and its attention diverted.
Exactly that, Lee. The Charizard isn't going to be acting. That's where the fake out is headed. Draining Kiss, Charizard brought down to around 50%. And again, just going to be able to heal up this Floette all the more. Another Poltergeist, though, should seal the deal on this Floette. It's a move that can miss, though. It looks like it's going to be hitting this time around the Floette. And this one should be the finishing blow for the Floette, for Arash. Oh my goodness, it's not! It's 7 HP! Rowy saying, why are you not fainted yet? I'm putting so much energy into removing you from the field, but this Eternal Flower is called Eternal for a reason.
Yeah, and it is sticking around a little bit longer. The threat now is the Shadow Sneak that the Aegislash has, so it can try and pick it off, but you've got this play where the Incineroar can come out. The Hospitality might just put it out of reach from a Shadow Sneak with those Intimidate drops that it's had and put it in a position where it can Draining Kiss the Charizard again and get that health back that it's just lost.
Oh no, it's going to be protecting this turn. It's going for its King's Shield here. No damage headed in that direction, so let's see where Arash was targeting. The Moonblast, it was just going into the Charizard, just going for the KO here. Doesn't want to be healing up any HP. The Draining Kiss probably wouldn't have got the KO, but a Moonblast certainly will, and that is the Mega Pokemon down for Rowy. It's fascinating because heading into this game too, Rowy had so many more tools and showing us how to counter potentially Arash's team, but again, Arash just a master of playing this composition, showing how it's done as King Gambit now joins the fray.
Yeah, and King Gambit in a place. It's still got that Focus Sash intact, so it is going to be able to take at least one attack from this Floette, and it's got a great partner next to it, the Floette, in the ability with the Sinistcha to pull away those potential Iron Heads, those Sucker Punches that could come out, and you're going to have to sacrifice your Sinistcha, but I think it's worth it. You need to really prioritize taking this King Gambit down as quickly as possible, and you can't as freely switch in that Incineroar anymore, because if you do, you're activating that Defiant ability, which you want to try and avoid at this stage with the Floette being so low health.
But it is the Pokemon that Arash is relying on for the damage, and it's stuck around for so long already, and with the Rage Powder now, it's meaning that the Floette is all the safer to get off a big old Draining Kiss into that Kingambit. The downside of running the Focus Sash is you're probably not as invested in your defenses, and that's something Arash can use to their advantage, healing up all the more with Draining Kiss. The Iron Head redirected now into the Sinistcha. Aegislash, I don't blame you, my friend, is going the offensive as well, but just what can it do against the Sinistcha? The Cassid Berry weakening the damage from this Poltergeist that is super effective Ghost-type damage. Is it going to be enough to take it? Oh, for days, my friend. That matcha is all the more topped up.
Yeah, and as close as this is right at the end here, we see the sun fading finally. I feel like Arash has got it in the bag. I think one of the things that you would say is, oh, the Incineroar comes in and it activates that Defiant ability, but the one problem that this King Gambit has, it doesn't have Protect to get around it, so the turn that the Incineroar does come onto the field, you've got that combination, Fake Out, Draining Kiss into it, and that Floette in a really healthy position now where it can just go for that Draining Kiss pretty freely into the King Gambit, knowing there's no Protect there. Rage Powder again just to keep your Floette healthy, and then you've got the Floette Incineroar against that remaining Aegislash, so it feels a lot to do for Rohe, but never say never. We might see a comeback, but it feels very slim right now. Of course, they do have the Sylveon in the back.
Have the Sylveon in the back, and it's Hyper is the name of the game here. Hyper Voice, Hyper Beam, and it's dealing hyper offensive damage. But again, Sinister can redirect for days because going for the Sucker Punch as well, now it's just a sitting target for even more HP recovery. The Moonblast targeted into the King Gambit, easily enough to secure the KO here. I mean, your Floette's basically at full health at this point. You may as well just go for all the damage you can with the Moonblast. I'd love to see this Sylveon have a hurrah here, get a big old damage, get a whole load of KOs as well. But with this Floette, which, let's not forget, has one Calm Mind boost up as well, it should be able to take those attacks all the better. Just 2 Pokemon remaining for Rowie.
Yeah, now the Aegislash comes onto the field, it does free up the Incineroar to kind of pivot back onto the field if you want. Any damage that it does take, it's so low at the minute, it probably will go down, but then you activate that Hospitality boost once again once the Sinister does enter the field. It is probably threatened now by the Shadow Sneak on the Aegislash, so you could probably remove it quite easily, but if you suspect a switch there, do you go for a Sacred Sword? It's a real 50-50 call here, but you've got nothing to really lose.
Yeah.
Do you go Hyper Beam as well into that Floette to try and get that Fairy boosted, Pixelate boosted attack off into the Floette? And under threat from that, we just see the Protect on the Floette this turn.
And the Fairy Feather as well, as Sinister gets that Protect off as well. So Arash just stalling out here. Aegislash is now in its attacking form. That stance change, but of course not doing anything here. Exactly as you said, Lee, calling Sacred Sword, predicting an Incineroar switch in here. Now Arash can use that information to their advantage. Wow, incredible play from Arash, and this is the quintessential protect the president style of play that we have seen so much in Indianapolis and this weekend.
Yeah, and this Floette just feels like in such a dominant spot right now. It will take a lot from that Hyper Beam, but I think because of that Calm Mind that we saw set up earlier, probably going to be able to just about take that attack. And then in response the next turn, you're going to be able to Draining Kiss off that damage, of course, and then you've got the recharge turn to deal with. So it's a real risky play for Rohe to click that and hope that it is enough to get it. Moonblast into the Sylveon.
How much damage is it going to do? Easily enough to secure the KO there. I love the Incineroar switch in as well, because Poltergeist is the move that is the most threatening to Floette here. But of course, with the Intimidate, it means that it's not going to be hitting quite as hard. There could be a critical hit to speak of, though. Let's see. But no, that Floette, I feel like whenever it's been in the orange, it's mainly been on around 43 HP. It must be a number that Rory hates to see coming now. And this Aegislash hates to see coming the inevitable here, because it looks like our 2013 world champion is going to be champion of Swiss round 3.
Yeah, you've got to expect this next Draining Kiss or just a Moonblast here is going to be enough. And a Shadow Sneak now -1, not going to be nowhere near enough. And if you go for that, then you've got the Incineroar to deal with. The Sinister could switch in as well once again. Activate that Hospitality once again. But what a masterclass by Arash Amati to show how well this team can perform in this current meta.
Yeah, there it is. Now at 50% HP, the Shadow Sneak, even that isn't enough to KO the Sinister, and it already had a Acid Berry consumed. A Moonblast now, it's resisted damage, but Aegislash is not the bulkiest of Pokemon, and it's a boosted Floette, and we are boosting all the way through to Arash Amati claiming Swiss round 3 here at the Turin Special Championships.
Wow, what a way to do it. So early on this tournament.
And that's essentially what we're going to be seeing right now, as we do have the reveal of the team set. Flavio rocking a Venusaur with that Mega Stone accompanied by itself. It's got the classic Sludge Bomb Earth Power coverage, but Leech Seed in order for it to be able to have a bit of a battle of attrition when you've got the certain matchup that comes up, and it pairs so nicely into that Sableye.
Yeah, it really does with that screen support. You know, Mega Venusaur known for its defensive capabilities already, able to just soak hits up with that thick fat ability, halving the damage of fire and ice type attacks once it has Mega Evolved. And then you add on the rain and then those screens that Sableye can provide on top of it. You've got the Encore there as an option on the Sableye, so you have to be careful in front of it if you're the opposing trainer, not to try and set up in front of the face of that Sableye, because you could also well be locked into that last move that you used. It's nice to see the rain dance not only on the Sableye but on that Lopunny as well, that once it does Mega Evolve, it can support that Archaludon. That is another important piece to the team and can take advantage of the rain. And not only that, the Basket Legion as well. Choice Scarf there is going to outspeed a lot of the things on the opposing side of the field without any necessarily speed control set up and hit from huge damage. You've got that play where you can go for the Prankster, Rain Dance, Sableye. Nothing can fake you out, and then a huge Wave Crash which is boosted by the sun, and that can be the difference early on in a game of taking down a key piece, which can make it so difficult for an opponent to get back into a game. So lots for Julio to consider going into this, and a lot of variety in different leads as well.
Yeah, and it does have the stat alignment of Jolly in order to be able to maximize its speed with that Choice Scarf item behind the rain support. Now,
Julio, on the other hand, has got the Mega Floette. It's going to be the classic modest stat alignment, and it just goes for the damage. It just needs to make sure it's got the right pieces supporting it on its side. You got the Incineroar with the Pasho Berry, which might actually pair up quite nicely into this matchup with the Rain Focus core that Flavio has got. And then, of course, the Sinistcha, he's got the Redirection. It is, I'd say, arguably the best grass type of the format.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with you there. I think Julio's going to have a really hard time dealing with this Venusaur if that is what Flavio kind of leans into, because the Floette hasn't really got any damaging attacks that would be able to hit it for super effective damage. If the Rain's up, the Incineroar is going to struggle. The King Gambit, yes, it can. It hasn't got Protect, though. You will notice that it's got a Chople Berry, but no Protect, opting for the Iron Head and the Low Kick there. So that is going to be vulnerable in those situations where it might feel pinned. Sinistcha, again, is a great Pokemon to help top up that HP, but is it offering much offensively against the Venusaur? Not really.
No.
And both trainers have a lot to do. So it's almost like Julio needs to really take advantage of that Aerodactyl, protect it at all costs, but it is going to be susceptible to things like the Basculegion. Yes, you can intimidate it, but is that intimidate going to be enough to get away around the rain-boosted Wave Crash, even at -1 attack?
Yeah, it may actually force Julio's hand to potentially lead with a Sneasler in order to be able to directly threaten a potential Archalid on the other side of the field, but we've got the reveals, and it seems to be the Venusaur and Basculegion over on Flavio's side, and Julio's brought the Incineroar and Mega Floette to start things off.
Yeah, so Julio has the Fake Out, which can be used to at least stop this Venusaur acting this next turn. But and overall, it is going to be threatened from this Basculegion. At least it has got that Pasho Berry we've talked about. It is going to reduce the super effective damage from the attacks coming out from this Basculegion this next turn. It can't be faked out, so it has a pretty free target into the Floette. Floette might feel pretty threatened here, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Julio maybe just switch it out or either go for a Protect here to get around the damage that could be outcoming. You could also take the opportunity to take advantage of your Fake Out and just try and get a Calm Mind up early on and fake out that Venusaur.
It may actually be the case because you just want to be able to not only get the offensive prowess going, but also the special defensive one, especially when this Mega Venusaur is staring you down with that oh-so-scary Sludge Bomb option. Also opting to go for the Mega Evolution. Shiny Venusaur is looking ever so glorious. Now, Fake Out seems to be the typical turn, I would say, initially. However, doesn't seem to be the case. Flip turn into Incineroar. Pasho Berry is activated, dealing negligible damage onto the Incineroar, who is most likely going to try to get that parting shot action going.
Yeah, and that's a nice play to get it off the field, because get it into a preferable position without the Intimidate later in the game with maybe that Rain set up as well. Now, the Venusaur hasn't been faked out yet, so it has the option to go for that Sludge Bomb you talked about, or it could start laying down those Leech Seeds to have that relentless recovery each and every turn, as that Floette, as you quite rightly said, takes the opportunity to go for that all-important Calm Mind.
Yeah, and it does outspeed the Mega Venusaur as well. Both of them have the modest stat alignment, and because of the special defense boost, it's actually not going to be able to get dealt half or barely the amount of damage. Parting Shot now in effect means, in combination with the special attack drop on the Venusaur, it's not going to be able to pick up a KO onto the Mega Floette, especially because Sinistcha has quite eloquently switched in right now. Gets that Hospitality HP recovery online.
Yeah, very well played there from Julio, taking advantage of the tools that they have at their disposal and the opening that was there to get that all-important Calm Mind. Now the Parting Shot has weakened that Venusaur even further, and you're in a prime position to start putting damage onto the field in front of that Sableye now that can go for that screen support, give that Venusaur a little bit of extra buff here. Now, does Flavio decide, I'm going to keep the Venusaur on the field and go for the Leech Seed into the Floette, or do I switch it out here, reset those stat drops so I can get it back in a more preferable situation where I can hit a little bit harder later on as we see that light screen set up? That
may very well be the case because it's trying to go ahead and get as much defensive buff as possible, especially against this +1 Mega Floette. Roselli Berry proccing, Sableye being able to handle that quite nicely because of the additional buffer of the light screen. Though, we've got the Leech Seed confirmed. This is a great way, like you were talking about, Lee, being able to start slowing down its progress. However, the problem is, Julio having Life Dew right next door is going to be able to counter that, essentially, when it's able to get that move going.
Yeah, and you've got to be quite careful here because there is the opportunity now where your two Pokemon on Flavio's side are quite passive in the fact that they're not really going to be offering that much damage, right? The Venusaur's -1 and the Floette's +1. So if it goes for another Calm Mind, that Sludge Bomb's going to be doing less damage again. There is always a threat of getting a poison there, which you would not want to see. But at the moment, the Sableye not really offering too much. It is pretty much going to go down to another Draining Kiss this next turn. So do you want to... What do you value here? Do you value keeping that Sableye around to maybe bring back in later, utilize those screens once again, because it feels like it's going to be a long, drawn-out battle, this. And both players going to take their time. So Sableye might switch out. Is there an opening there? Or does the Sableye stay in? Love seeing.
Oh, here we go. Rage Powder is now active, which means the Sableye is not going to be able to encore lock the Mega Floette. However, it's going to be able to do that directly onto the Rage Powder. Calm Mind, second one now set up. It is going to be a battle of attrition in order to make sure you can out-damage your opponent's Pokemon recovery, essentially. At the end of the turn is what I would say, but we see an audacious critical hit. One shot onto the Mega Floette. Julio is shaking his head in dismay.
Yeah, if there's one way to go about getting rid of that big threat, it is a critical hit. Really unfortunate for Julio, but Flavio taking full advantage of the opportunity there to get that Sludge Bomb off. And fortunately for them, that one big threat has been removed.
Yeah, and I could even argue right now that may be game deciding, because even though you got Aerodactyl online, it doesn't have access to the Mega Evolution anymore. It's not going to be able to directly threaten that Venusaur as much as it once could, especially because the Sableye also has Reflect support.
Yeah, and with that Prankster ability, the Reflect going up, you're not really worrying so much about those dual wing beaks as you would be normally. And yeah, you've got the option here where you've got 4 Pokemon still. You can just switch around to your heart's content and get into that preferable board state. You've got weather control now, so if something like the Archaladons and the Basculegion comes in, we know it's going to be able to just start picking bits of the team off that Julio's got remaining.
Yeah, and this is just essentially setup and resource management from Flavio's side because you don't have much to lose. Pelipper is such a good bring here as it's so physically bulky, it's crazy, especially when hidden behind a Reflect.
Yeah, and it doesn't really have to worry so much about the rock slides as well. It does have access to Wide Guard, so you can block those out, maybe switch Sableye out if you want now into that Basculegion, so it really isn't threatened. There is obviously the threat of the Machigotcha when that Encore does end, but for the moment, you're in a position where you can Wide Guard, get Basculegion in pretty seamlessly, and then start putting a huge amount of pressure onto that Aerodactyl or even the Sinistcha this next turn.
Yeah, and it's quite tough because we don't know the final Pokemon in Julio's back. It may well be the Kingambit or Sneasler, depending on how much respect wants to be given to the Archaladon. But we've got Basculegion now on the field. Sableye has gone, but feeling more confident being able to bring the Basculegion, and due to the Reflect that's been set up, Pelipper on 61 hit points, it's gonna be able to ignore the potential of a flinch. Goes for the Weather Ball there, perhaps anticipating the Incineroar switch in, wanting to be able to cover that rather than going for the Hurricane.
Yeah, and it makes sense there, the Incineroar coming in to drop the Intimidate onto potentially the Basculegion that was coming onto the field, but not seeing it there, just going to stick around and allow this Aerodactyl just to fire off attacks in a valuable Rock Slide there. Pelipper isn't in the greatest spot this next turn, so maybe it does now go for that Wide Guard while you can last respect with your own Basculegion into the Sinistcha, and that probably will remove it. But there's always the threat of a Wave Crash there, expecting maybe an Incineroar switch in, so it's not so easy.
Yeah, because it no longer has the Pasho Berry and has actually been dealt a bit of chip damage as well, maybe about 10%-ish to 20. But the Sinistcha does switch out. Sableye also switched in for Flavio's side, and there it is, the Incineroar wanting to be able to get as much damage, nerfing dealt as possible onto the Basculegion. Wave Crash, it's not enough to survive even at -1. The Aerodactyl is down. Julio has got 2 final Pokemon remaining. That critical hit, Lee, is feeling oh so crucial right now from earlier on.
Yeah, and we've said it before, with these Floette teams, once that centerpiece falls, the rest of the team really struggles to get that momentum swing that you're looking for as a player, because that is the piece that allows you, enables the rest of the team to function so well. And now that going down to the unfortunate critical hit on the sludge bomb there makes everything else also more difficult. And now the Basque Legion in a spot where you can say Wave Crash going to be enough to get the Incineroar in the rain. It doesn't have to worry about the Pasha Berry, doesn't worry about the fake out. It does have to worry about potentially a Rage Powder here that could be pulled in and give the Incineroar a little bit of room, and maybe that's why we're seeing it switching out, so you can deal with the Sinistcha and then bring that Basque Legion in to finish off the Incineroar.
Yeah, you just need to make sure you're playing correctly, I'd say, to the point where you're not leaving any openings for Julia to find a way to get back into this. But we've got Darkest Lariat onto the Venusaur, dealing so little damage. It's bonkers, as Sinistcha does set up Trick Room. Wanting to go down the route of at least having speed advantage, maybe even scouting out certain speed interactions too.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult to deal with this Venusaur, though, because once that Leech Seed is laid onto the Incineroar, you've got that constant line of recovery, and then you can slowly start to chip away at the Sinistcha with the Sludge Bombs. And as you can see now, you've got a way to get around the Trick Room with the Encore. You just Encore it into the Trick Room, and it's going to undo that speed advantage that you've got for this one turn only. Yeah,
it's unfortunate because the Sinistcha doesn't even have Protect, so it's not going to be able to essentially defer itself away from that locked potential. Incineroar now has been seeded, and it's going to be giving away a bit of its HP to Venusaur, sapping it away. But Trick Room now, all of a sudden, just locked in, essentially. The Sinistcha's not going to be able to do much at all. There could have been a chance of Julia going for Rage Powder, which would have had higher priority bracket in order to get locked into that, but Julio wanting the Sinistcha available to be able to threaten the Basque Legion and Pelipper in the back. Under Trick Room, maybe, but it's tough. You're not going to be able to essentially outbolt or defeat the Mega Venusaur, which your Matcha Gotchas quad resisted to, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an impossible task, really, that stage, I think, what the numbers game. And yeah, it's a very tough matchup for Julia, I think, in a lot of regards, especially when you lose a key piece with the Floette like Julia did early on, because you could see what they were doing. They were doing everything right early on in that game. I think without the critical hit, it would have been a completely different game. Not saying the outcome would have been different, but I think the turns following that would have been very different, because you've got that Floette that can then start putting damage onto the opposite side of the field. And eventually, even though it had been Leech Seeded, it is going to get to the point where those Calm Minds that it was able to go for, stack them up. It will be able to do considerable damage to that Venusaur, even though it is resisted because of the Fairy Aura boost that it has access to.
So, going into Game 2 then, Julio's side, what are we thinking? Do we try to change that up in any way, or do we feel like his plan was working, he had an idea, it just unfortunately fell to the victim of being variance in that case, of getting the unlucky RNG?
Yeah, I really don't see anything wrong with the game plan. Julia approached that match, I think, as they probably should, with the options that they've got going into this particular matchup. I think, yeah, you've got... Because they had that bold position with the Floette, with this Sinistcha, it was locked into Rage Powder. So you had a pretty seamless way to just stack those Calm Minds for the next turn or two and not worry about getting Encore locked yourself, because the Venusaur was in no stage threatening that knockout onto the Sinistcha, so it was pretty free to protect the Floette in the scenarios and allow it to get set up. So Julia probably could go along a similar sort of line there, and just hope that they don't fall victim to the mercy of RNG like they did in that first game.
Yeah, because in the end of the day, you want to be able to outstack as much as you can, both special defensively and special offensively. But there was a Leech Seed onto the Floette that obviously the Sinistcha couldn't be able to redirect due to powder moves not being, because it's grass typing actually, not of Venusaur not being able to essentially fall victim to that redirection. But there is a change-up, actually. Sneasler, King, Gambit from Julio's side. You got Fake Out available, you got Coaching available, and this King Gambit has no Protect available. It is for attack.
The other Pokemon that doesn't have any Protect available is the Basque Legion, so it is going to be susceptible outside of Aqua Jet to a Sucker Punch, which is really great adjustment here. And that King Gambit being on the field deters the impact that Incineroar is going to be able to have, and freedom that Flavia is able to kind of pivot it onto the field, which would otherwise be quite useful in this scenario. The Venusaur is going to be susceptible to a Fake Out here, so has to be slowed down maybe by that Sneasler. But yeah, are you really worried about an Aqua Jet from the Basque Legion when you're in a position with your King Gambit to do some big damage and potentially take down a key piece of Flavio's team.
Yeah, it's just going to have to come down to which target the Basket Legion's going for and if it does respect the Sucker Punch, because this is Adamant King Gambit, which could pack a very strong punch. Doesn't seem to be the case. Flip Turn will be breaking the Focus Sash on that Sneasler and essentially giving itself that free pivot.
Yeah, no fake out there, so maybe the double up is into the Venusaur here. Maybe a Dire Claw and then a Kowtow Cleave into the Venusaur to try and remove that threat early on. But no, it is a coaching. Another route taken by Julio.
Yeah, and wanting to be able to stack up as much as you can. Earth Power is going to be powerful, but it's not going to be enough to be dealing with the King Gambit. Wait for it. We've got drama ensuing on the battlefield. This is a +3 Kowtow Cleave into the Mega Venusaur. It's able to survive on 28 hit points.
Wow, it shows how bulky this Venusaur is. Really unfortunate there that Flavio got that special defense drop, but great for Julio now after combining that with the coaching +3. He's hitting so hard. Now in a position where the Sneeze are going to be able to pick up that Venusaur. The Sableye doesn't have fake out to disrupt anything on the opposite side of the field, and the Kowtow Cleave's still going to be hitting that Sableye for good damage. Do you go for, well, what do you go for if you're the Sableye? Do you prioritize the screens? Maybe a Reflect here could be really beneficial, but that Venusaur on a spot, any attack into it is going to take it down. So maybe protect that or switch it out into something that could come in a little bit favorable. What do you have in the back that can come in on a Kowtow Cleave?
And this is awkward as well for Flavio because you don't have a redirector available on your side of the field with the 6 that you've got. So just going to be able to have to manage expectations and what Julio's going to try to go for as a read. And we've got the Sucker Punch failing. Seems to be Leech Seed as an option. Encore trying to lock in the Sneasler with the coaching, but is met with a Sinister, and the Leech Seed does connect. It's going to be able to begin sapping all of the hit points away from the King Gambit and avoid getting KO'd. And you got a scenario where you can play around now with the Mega Venusaur bit with Protects.
Yeah, Protect is the one option this next turn where you can say, okay, get a little bit more health back, but it's not really helping you out against the immediate threat of the King Gambit right now. You're going to need to switch that Sableye out and get something back onto the field because the Sinister has great protection to that King Gambit that is threatened by those Earth Powers, but the Rage Powder isn't going to be effective here. So it is still a sitting target right now from the Venusaur where it can target into it, but if you... The Earth Power is going to be enough. So the King Gambit in a position where it is going to go down the next turn. So that Leech Seed was a nice way to get around it. But you've got the threat of the Sucker Punch, like you've talked about. There's no redirection there to give the alleviation from the Venusaur. So you need to get something in to help that Venusaur out, and why we're seeing the Sableye switch out this time.
Oh, here we go. Is there going to be any sort of switch out from Julio's side? He's going to commit with the Sucker Punch. Oh, we're about to find out. Pelipper's on the field. Protect is on the line for the Mega Venusaur, not wanting to mess about there. Get a bit of recovery. Sucker Punch is the move of choice from Julio. He's actually opted to go for the Trick Room, and this is such a beautiful play.
Yeah, especially now that the Sableye's off the field, there's no access to that Encore to lock that Sinister in like we saw in the previous game to reverse the dimensions back to normal. Now the King Gambit in that spot where it can just go Kowtow Cleave, doesn't need to go for the Sucker Punch into the Venusaur slot. It could even go after the Pelipper because how many boosts it's got under its belt, it's going to be close with Kowtow Cleave to picking up that one. But the Venusaur protected last turn. It can't consistently protect again this next turn. It is a sitting target, and does Flavio have anything in the back that they could switch in to comfortably take that? I would say no, with a Basket Legion and a Sableye active in the back.
This is such a good pin from Julio's side. Obviously, there was luck in that special defensive drop that proc the +2 Defiant from the King Gambit, but this is such a good situation for him. He's got redirection available if he's scared of the Pelipper, but he picks up a KO if he focuses down into the Mega Venusaur slot, which is now a Sableye.
Yeah, and that Rage Powder there, very, very useful there. Going to just protect the King Gambit from a potential weather ball as that Kowtow Cleave comes in, picks up a clean knockout, and this is exactly what Julio wants. He's taking advantage of these Trick Room turns while they are active.
Yeah, and the Hurricane is not quite enough to pick up the KO because the Sinisters are built very special defensively in order to be able to get away and forego any disruption from Pelipper's in particular, actually. But now, still Trick Room online. There is a Pelipper that can, rather than go on the offensive, maybe opt to go for like a wide guard if it's anticipating a read of a read with a matcha gotcha going into that slot. But the Mega Venusaur's back on the field, and it's still being threatened, Lee.
Yeah, and does Julio make the play here? I think if you suspect the protect on the Venusaur, could you then double up into the Pelipper? You know that the Sinistcha, the Kingambit are going to underspeed the Pelipper, so Matcha Gotcha and the Kowtow will guarantee the knockout there. But it is risky. If you go for that, then the Venusaur has the opportunity to not protect, expecting that play and get that all-important Earth Power into the Kingambit, and then things become a lot more difficult for Julio. Do you take that risk, or do you just go for maybe that Rage Powder and then Kowtow into it? But no.
Here we go. Kowtow cleave, enough to pick up a Pelipper. Like we said, folks, Pelippers are very physically defensively bulky, but not in front of a +3 Kingambit. Matcha Gotcha dealing thereabouts 11 hit points, but the most crucial thing here is Venusaur. What are you opting for? You're going for the Earth Power into the Kingambit, finally being able to get rid of it, but is it too late at this point? We got the Basculegion with 2 turns of Trick Room remaining locked into a Choice Scarf, and the Matcha Gotcha being able to directly threaten it.
Yeah, it's not a great scenario to be in if you are Basculegion right now. Yes, you've got the rain up, but you're in front of a Sinistcha and then an Incineroar with that Pasho Berry as well. It is going to be able to deal with those water-type threats a lot easier than it would be without it. So it's going to be able to drop an all-important Intimidate. So even the Basculegion outside of Trick Room, if it can get through these 2 turns, not going to be hitting as hard. And this Venusaur in a position now where, yes, it could get a Leech Seed off into the Incineroar, but it is going to be susceptible to a fake out this turn, and then an easy Matcha Gotcha from the Sinistcha into the Basculegion. And not only that, the double up potential from the Incineroar with that Darkest Lariat, the Matcha Gotcha, is going to be enough into that free slot that is Basculegion on the field.
Fake out into the Venusaur slot. 50 hit points remaining. Matcha Gotcha double connects, deals so much damage onto the Basculegion, guaranteeing a 2-shot, whilst, more importantly, being able to heal up very much, not from the first hit, but insanely from the second.
Yeah, really, really useful as the Venusaur does flinch there, and now that last respect is chosen. It is going to be enough to take down this Sinistcha here. So now that is the move of choice. It is locked into that. It's not going to be very effective into that Incineroar, but it is going to be effective into this Sneasler that is remaining in the back for Julio. So will be enough to take that Pokemon down. It has got the fake out once again, but remember, there is 1 turn of Trick Room left.
Yep.
This Incineroar in prime position to just deal with this Basculegion quite effectively, while the Sneasler can go for a fake out and slow down that Venusaur 1 more turn.
Yeah, it does feel very perfectly timed with the right pieces being on the board at the right moment for Julio. There's not much actually that could go wrong in this scenario. Darkest Lariat from the, I'd say, around 40 to 45% HP range on the Basculegion surely should be enough, because we know that the Incineroar, it doesn't have actually a stat alignment giving it the 10% boost on its attack. It is impish. The fake out going into the Venusaur only met with the protect. Darkest Lariat, can you pick up the KO? Can you give this lifeline to Julio? And it seems to be the case. Trick Room now undone at the end of the turn. Julio gonna be able to outspeed, get the Dire Claws going. He'll have the Incineroar. There's no double target potential from Venusaur's side. This looks wrapped up, and it looks like we're going straight into a Game 3, Lee.
Yeah, really well played here, and the adjustments that Julio made, in particular with that Kingambit, paid dividends for them there to pull this game back from the ether to the edge of where they could be going and claiming victory.
Yeah, and you know what? We saw RNG having influence in Game 1, but then we saw it get returned in Game 2 for Julio's favor. That Earth Power special defense drop is so crucial because you're able to essentially guarantee one-shots. Maybe there could be some Pokemon that could resist, you know, like getting knocked out with a Reflect setup, but the Sableye never had that momentum available for itself to get it essentially used.
Yeah, and the key turn, I think, for Julio was identifying the time when they could set the Trick Room up with that
Yes.
signature. And once that was enabled, it took away the reliance on the Sucker Punch from the King Gambit and made things so much more difficult where Flavio had to react in those scenarios. And that's when Julio really piled the pressure on, got that momentum swing, started picking off those Pokemon one by one.
Yep.
And, you know, even when the King Gambit went down to that Earth Power in the end, it had done its job by then, and it was just too far gone with the remaining Trick Room turns left. This is something that Flavio is going to have to really think about a lot going into this next game. You can't give the King Gambit as much room as what you did in the last game, and you're going to have better answers for that Sinister that you just seem to lack in that game.
Do you think there's any world that Archaludon makes it through as a choice for Flavio?
Potentially, I think you've got good ways to kind of deal with the Sneasler and keep it in check, right? So that's the one thing that you would say really threatens that Archaludon more than anything else. The Floette you can keep in check with the Mega Venusaur. We've seen that and how effective that can be. You've got the Sableye as well with the disruption there that it can provide and the support with the screens. And then you've got the Rain Dance as well that can help just enable the Archaludon to get those special attack boosts with the Electro Shot, and then things like Dragon Pulse and Flash Cannon can be really effective.
Oh, well, we're going to find out. Game 3 is upon us. We've got Venusaur Basculegion from Flavio's side versus Julio's Mega Floette and Incineroar making a debut once again.
Yeah, the Intimidate, we've said it before, really useful onto the Basculegion, especially because you've got that Pasha Berry, so Incineroar doesn't really have to worry about anything. The big fish is going to throw out this turn, and you've got the ability to stop that Venusaur in its tracks. A simple fake out into that Pokemon, and then a Calm Mind on your Floette starts the ball rolling, and we saw this in Game 1. No fake out in that Game 1 version, but maybe we see it this time around, just to stop the Venusaur from laying down any damage and getting away around those Leech Seeds that can be over time are really detrimental to your game plan.
All right, well, we're going to have to see how the run back is going to ensue, although the Venusaur actually switching out directly now. Turn 1 for the Pelipper, going for the damage. This feels like a focus into the Mega Floette in hopes of being able to deal enough damage that it essentially either goes down or it's too little of a resource remaining for it and it'll just go down from any hit.
Yeah, that's it. We see the fake out. It comes and lands into that Pelipper as it wave crash into the Floette. It looks like it boosted by the rain. Adaptability. Is it going to be enough? No!
42 hit point survival, but it's going to have to force Sinister to come back in and get that HP recovery going. May even actually open up the board for Flavio to focus down on the Incineroar slot with both of his Pokemon.
Yeah, but this is an incredible play from Flavio, putting him a pin on the board now. The wave crash going to pick up the knockout onto the Floette. Like you say, if you want to get the Sinister onto the field, yeah, you can do that to get some Hospitality boost. That Hospitality boost isn't going to be enough to put the Floette out of range from the Wave Crash, but if Flavio goes for the Hurricane into the Incineroar slot, then that will get some detrimental damage. The next turn, really locking down the ability for Julio to get any sort of functionality out of their team this game. So really well done by Flavio and really putting the pin on this time around.
Yeah, hyper aggressive when it counts, and this seems to be the moment. Flavio actually switching the Basculegion out, bringing Venusaur, the shiny Peckish, back onto the field, but Incineroar swapping out. Sort of what we're saying right now has to be the Sinister. Will we see Pelipper going for the Hurricane, or maybe even the Weather Ball, anticipating Julio not to go for the Protect onto the Floette, but doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, I think with how important the Floette is, you have to protect it in that scenario, but not going for any attacking options, going for the Tailwind, but a really nice timing here for Julio to get the Sinister onto the field where it can really threaten with the Trick Room the next turn. Now the Venusaur's back in on the field, and it is in a position where it can start putting out damage with the Sludge Bombs. Leech Seed into the Floette, it doesn't have to worry about the Rage Powder, but you don't really want to see a Trick Room go up just after you've set a Tailwind, so you double into the Sinister here to try and remove it, but doing that, you're taking all attention away from that Floette, and it's already got a Calm Mind set up. It's going to be able to hit very hard with those Draining Kisses and restore some of that health lost.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Sludge Bomb from Mega Venusaur minus +1 special defense Mega Floette is actually enough from that range to pick up the KO, because obviously it could ignore the Rage Powder due to its grass typing, and Julio's already protected with Mega Floette the previous turn, so may have to either opt to go for a double protect, or they're confident they're gonna survive.
It's a big question. It's going to go answered very soon here as we do see the Mega Evolution appear and that Rage Powder procced from that Sinistra.
Here we go. Sludge Bomb onto Mega Floette. It's enough! Flavio is able to get rid of such an important piece. You could see Julio's dismay there, hoping that it was going to be able to survive because of its Calm Mind boost. Not today, not in this round and game, my friend. 44 hit points. Sinistra is too much damage, especially when you've lost your pivotal Mega Evolution sweeper.
Yeah, and you can see how good Venusaur in particular is against these Floette teams that are so centered around it, where you've got these pieces like Sinistra, the reliance on Rage Powder is so heavy, where the Mega Venusaur is just like, I don't really have to worry about that at all, because I can just constantly target into what I want to hit, and I'm going to land those attacks. And time after time, we see there. And the Sludge Bomb's so powerful, even on +1 special defense.
Modest.
Just enough to get it. And now King Gambit on the field, yeah, great. It hasn't got Protect. It is not protected by that Rage Powder. The Sinistra so threatened now from another Hurricane from that Pelipad is switching out off the field. But it's an easy target for the Venusaur to go just Earth Power into that King Gambit right now.
And that's exactly what it's going to do. There may well actually be a double up there of the Weather Ball to take advantage of the rain and pick up a KO, but it's just going to be the safe Hurricane, wanting to ensure that there's no future Hospitalities left on the field. We got a confusion of the Incineroar, so there's going to be a small chance that it's not able to get the fake out going for itself. But King Gambit, even at not essentially getting a boost off of Defiant, deals so much damage onto Pelipper.
Yeah, but just not quite enough. And the Pelipper trained so well from Flavio here, proccing that Citrus Berry, getting the health back, and now going to be in a position where it is going to be threatened by another Earth Power. The one saving grace you've got is a turn where you can fake out that Venusaur, but not doing that puts you vulnerable to the Weather Ball from that Pelipper. So it is one of those where, do you just ignore the Venusaur here, hoping that it protects and go after that Pelipper? But no, Flavio not giving an inch here, switching that out, and the Archalodon coming in. Can it catch a fake out?
I think that may well be what it's trying to do. Sinistra switching in right now. You see Julio actually taking his headset off here. He's thinking this may actually be the end. Incineroar, oh my lord, he predicted it himself. Hits itself in confusion, not able to get any move off, but the Earth Power is not going to be able to pick up the KO onto the Sinistra. The rain has stopped, the tailwind has petered out, and the forfeit has been given in. Flavio going undefeated.
Wow.
Maybe even getting the title.
Well, maybe Bruno can give us the upset that we're looking for here. Floette, Aerodactyl, Basculegion, King Gambit, Mousehold, and Sneasler. This is a very solid composition. This is all about protecting that Mega Floette so that it can do what it does best. Get a Calm Mind up, dish out that damage onto the board. But I think, for me, my eyes are drawn to that King Gambit and the Focus Sash Basculegion in the middle. Those are going to be such big tools in this matchup to be able to put some pressure onto that Mega Gengar. Not going to want to take a Kowtow Cleave to the face by any stretch of the imagination.
I would imagine not, because it would be quite painful and something that you need to factor in when you see that black glasses set, and especially when it's got Mousehold by its side for that support with the redirection. It doesn't have Feint that other sets are currently running, but the Taunt is such a nice little tech in order to essentially slow down the momentum on the other side of the field.
And of course, it's difficult to take out with the Chopper Berry as well. So I'm sure that's something that Bruno's been leaning on. You want to be able to switch in the Mousehold to take those attacks, get the Friend Guard on board. We saw Arash Amati having a similar sort of strategy in a previous round of our broadcast. So if you didn't catch that, go back and watch Arash giving us a little bit of a masterclass there. But getting back into this match, we're going to go over and see what David is bringing, and this Trick Room... Perishong.
Thank you.
Perishong
there we go.
Mega Gengar team. Costa, the Gengar expert, takes for it.
Here we go. So, Mega Gengar, it's got the Shadow Ball. It doesn't have the Disable, something that is so crucial when you've got the lead partner being Tinkaton, where it can lock Pokemon into Encores if it doesn't go for a Fake Out, anticipating an opposing Fake Out into its slot. It's such a great utility to be able to lock things in, but it's not the only important Pokemon on this team. Politoed is the second Perish Son Tinkaton user, just in case there's any sort of weird interactions where the Mega Gengar either is anticipated to go down or it might not be the right bring, Politoed is. And then you've got the setup potential with the Como-O. So essentially what we've got is 2 perished users, we've got to set up Pokemon with the Como-O, and the remaining 3 slots are there for support.
Speaking of the Como-O, the soundproof ability is one of the things that glues this team together. It doesn't get affected by Perish Song, where most other effects in the game are affected by Perish Song. It'll go through Protect, it'll go through Substitutes, it'll go through pretty much everything except for Soundproof. That's something that David is going to be looking to take advantage of. Not only that, but look at all those defensive items on his team.
Exactly, and they're going to be so crucial because it does really come down to the wire in terms of the different interactions. And there's the lead that we were just discussing, Ben. The Tinkaton next to the Mega Gengar versus some, let's say, a lead that is very well prepped going into this. Basculegion Male and the Kingambit.
How much damage do you want to do to this Gengar turn 1? Yes. I would like to do a lot of damage to that. And I think this is a great start off for Bruno, really putting the pressure onto it. You do really want to stop this Gengar from setting up a Perish Song, and if you don't stop it from setting up a Perish Song, then you want to at least make David trade for that Perish Song going up. So that's the overarching story of this game, is going to be, can the Perish Song go up? Can David support this Gengar, keep the trap on the field? Because once it's up, once the Gengar's in a good spot, then it's very, very difficult to break.
Yeah, and the only thing that can will be the Basculegion due to its Ghost typing, if Bruno wants to do so in the subsequent turns. Fake out into the Kingambit, making sure it cannot move. Shadow Ball actually being opted in, bringing the Basculegion down to its Focus Sash, clearly being a key point in making sure the Basculegion is kept under wraps. As, sure, special defense drop doesn't matter. Question is, which target does it go for? Liquidation into the Tinkaton will be able to guarantee that 2-shot. So now the question is, where do we go from here?
This is a really nice way for Bruno to try and break down David's side of the board. You've got 2 options. You either try to break down the Gengar, but on that turn 1, it could have protected itself. So attacking down into the Pokemon that can't protect itself as easily, wants to go for the fake out into the Kingambit to stop that Kowtow cleave, means that the getting the damage on the support pieces is the route that Bruno wants to take through this game. And I think now, given that the Tinkaton is so low, it's the time to switch it out. Como-O looking very good in this spot.
It really is, as Basculegion, due to the interaction, like we said, the Ghost typing, allowing it to leave the field and not get trapped in, brings the Sneasler for the fake-out pressure. Gengar, on the other hand, opting to go for the Protect, as Bruno is going to take advantage of that, goes for the Swords Dance, which puts him in a good spot, but Como on the other side of the field doesn't feel as good.
Well, with Gengar protecting on that last turn, now the fake out and Kowtow cleave looks really, really good into the Gengar. David is really looking for those opportunities for a Kowtow cleave or a Sucker Punch to come out so that they can be disabled for next turn. David sees this coming and then wants to switch out the Gengar into Incineroar. Doesn't matter if the Kingambit gets any more boosts, it's already powerful enough.
Exactly. Now at +3 of its attack stages. Sneasler actually having the White Herb procced right now, so it's going to be able to outspeed basically everything, including the Mega Gengar in subsequent turns. But Como-O, very receptive of the situation, goes for the Protect, knowing that the Incineroar is going to be available for fake out in the following turn. Kowtow cleave, the +3, deals too much damage onto the Incineroar, but Davide has got the spot he wants. He's got fake out online, whilst Bruno does not.
And this is the pivot from Perish Song team into a team that just wants to play whatever Pokemon is in front of them. And so now we're pivoting from the Gengar setting the Perish Song into let's boost up the Como-O, put some damage down on the board. Perish Song is still a good option once you've knocked out 2 Pokemon. And certainly without a Choppleberry, this Kingambit is looking very, very scared from the Aura Sphere from this Como-O.
Yeah, and for good reason. Hence why we actually see the Floette making itself on the field. It wants to be able to threaten it in the subsequent turn, but Davide matching that momentum with the board state, having the Mega Gengar now on the field at the right time, meaning both Floette and Kingambit will be locked in. They have no way out from the Shadow Tag.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice switch in for David, and this is just textbook of being able to use that shadow tag to its full effect. This is where Mega Gengar is at its strongest. Coming in on the board state that you find favorable, maybe it's not turn 1, maybe it's turn 3 or 4 as you're seeing here. And then after that, you take too much, your opponent takes too much damage, and then you can sort of perish to finish things off. So David doing a really good job, but there is still that potential for a Sucker Punch. That Sucker Punch stops the Sludge Bomb into the Floette, and so the Floette can get the damage down onto the Komodo, and the Floette could even, in its Mega form, be faster than the Komodo to boot.
It's going to come close because the Floette is at modest stat alignment versus the Komodo modest as well. It does truly come down, like you said, Ben, to the training in speed investment. Mega Gengar has the Protect, the Dazzling Gleam, does move now first, and actually picks up the raw KO onto the Komodo. Oh, my lordy, too much damage. Davide not really liking that from an initial point of view. The fact that the King Gambit is essentially still on the field and having to see the interaction of the Mega Floette outspeeding is so crucial. And this may now force Davide's hand in order to look for a strategy via Perish, since clearly the Komodo mode is out of the window in this game.
Well, this is a challenging thing in that situation. David is really having to be on the back foot because of the Sucker Punch pressure, but then having to find a way to get the Sludge Bomb down onto the Floette that cannot switch. And Tinkaton is a really good way of doing that, because not only does it offer the fake out this turn, but also allows for the Encore Disable shenanigans to go down into the King Gambit to stop it from being such a threat, and then to be able to act from there. And Komodo may be the worthy sacrifice in that case.
And that's why this core of Duo works so well. You see the Sucker Punch failing, of course, because you got Disable and Encore on the line. I'm not going to be surprised to see the Tinkaton trying to focus down.
Oh, it is faster.
And it does confirm that the King Gambit got absolutely ignored. Floette locked in, not only with a Shadow Tag, Encore Disable on the line. It is doing zilch and taking damage for it.
Yeah, massive turn there. The Tinkaton training is so big. Floette being naturally faster than Tinkaton, but clearly Tinkaton being trained to be as fast as possible so that it can take advantage of that Floette. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the same sort of sequencing happening against this King Gambit. And once both Pokemon are neutralized, they cannot attack for a few turns on Bruno's side of the field, then David can go on the offensive. The question is whether to call that Protect or not.
Gonna have to find out. I feel like Bruno's sort of forced in a scenario where he can't help but make the obvious play. Perish Son now on the field from Gengar. Encore trying to make sure the King Gambit, like we said, does get locked in. And in this scenario, Floette, sure, the struggle can now damage a Ghost type with the normal base typing, but it's going to be taking so much damage for it. And like we said, Ben, it really feels like this two Pokemon, there's no way that Bruno can get out of this scenario with them still on the field.
And it's not like, even so, it's not like David can even go on the offensive this turn just yet. The Encore Disable has to kind of come again, just in case the Sucker Punch is locked into. There it is coming out. So it is going to be the Perish Song actually to stop the to stop any damage from the Sucker Punch, and now the Encore locks the King Gambit into the Sucker Punch. You can disable it next turn, and well, Floette's kind of doing the work for David in this spot, using Struggle, ending its Encore, and dropping down that Perish Song.
Yeah, and I think it's something to note. Perish Son being chosen there rather than Disable might be Davide wanting to try to get Disable the following turn in order to take advantage of the additional amount of turns remaining for that effect.
Definitely, and yeah, even if Bruno is able to get away from the pin, which there's very limited options to do so. This is exactly what David is wanting to set up in this board state. Even if there's not actually a lot of time to do so. Like, you can say, well, okay, we'll be here for 5 or 6 turns, but when you lose all the PP, then you can actually change moves away from the Encore Disable, and you can kind of get around that situation a little bit easier. But not only the fact that Floette is now at half HP from the recall from Struggle, but also because that Perish timer is counting down, you've only got a couple of turns. The question I've got actually is how David is going to position in the late game. What pieces in the back is he going to try to use to finish off the last two Pokemon for Bruno?
And in order to do that, you need to make a conscious decision of which Pokemon is going to go down to Perish, because there's one final turn remaining right now, and you've only got one switch in the back from Davide's side. So, are you going to sack the Mega Gengar, or is it going to be the Tinkaton? And do you think that you've got a way to get around the Sneasel and the Basculegion in the back with the remaining two?
Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Has to be Gengar switching out.
Yeah, it's got to be Gengar switching out. I think that's pretty obvious. I think like the question I've got is like whether or not Bruno's got enough. We know what two Pokemon are in the back. We know that the Incineroar is going to switch in, take a little bit of damage, but actually have Fake Out on the board. But now, after the Perish Song comes into effect, Floette and King Gambit get taken down. Is the Fake Out from Sneasler plus the Basculegion going for a last respect enough? That's a lot of damage.
Just a bit.
Wow. Fair play, Floette.
That's +4 for you at that point.
+4 King Gambit,
yeah,
of course.
That's
King Gambit. Well, there we go. These two Pokemon getting knocked out. It was almost Gengar and his Lonesome, and actually, at the point where it's Gengar and his Lonesome, actually, maybe it beats the Sneasler one-on-one, but it's getting a little bit closer to comfort than you'd like.
Yeah, especially because Diaclaw has that secondary effect of potentially picking up the status conditions.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And that's the only way that Bruno can force that. So let's not sort of joke around. That was a very important survival from that Incineroar in order to allow Davide a few more resources available to essentially dispatch of Bruno's Pokemon, because Gengar has to get rid of the Basculegion now, right?
And also there's Aqua Jet on this Basculegion, right? So that's going to knock out the Incineroar this turn, and then to be able to allow this sort of Sneasler Diaclaw versus the Gengar endgame. There's no opportunity. Actually, it would be quite nice for Bruno if there's an opportunity to get the White Herb activated, but there's no such joy. There's just a Fake Out going into the Incineroar, taking that little bit of damage. The Gengar is forced for David to fire off a Shadow Ball into the Basculegion. That's the only Pokemon that's threatening a one-hit knockout on the Gengar this turn. But now, because of that Protect, Bruno actually putting themselves in a great position to get maybe enough Aqua Jet damage to allow the Diaclaw to win the one-on-one.
Yeah, and that's what he has to target, as well as a status condition in order to make things a bit more easier. Aqua Jet bringing the Gengar down to 82. Diaclaw actually outspeeding naturally versus this Gengar. Might be quite crucial, no jokes aside, dealing thereabouts 20-ish hit points. So it's going to have to be the next 3 turns, if not 4, dependent on rolls, for it to be able to get around this.
It's only going to be 2 Shadow Balls that are going to be...
That's it.
And there's another niche interaction here going on. If the Shadow Ball drops the special defense on the Sneasler and activates the White Herb, it's going to go first instead of the Gengar.
No, I think the White Herb was actually procced earlier on in the game prior to the switch out because of the Incineroar that came into the field.
Yeah, right.
But regardless, like we said, it is going to have to come down to the Diaclaws and the interaction of it. Oh, but we saw close combat actually being the move of choice there, not wanting the special defense to be dropped. But Davide took advantage, went for the Perish Song. He is the faster Pokemon.
Yeah, it's like trying to stop the Disable from actually ruining the Diaclaw option, because if you go for the Diaclaw first and the Disable comes out, you've got no way to hit that Gengar whatsoever. But most importantly, right, if the Perish Song, if both Pokemon stay on the field until the end of Perish Song, the Sneasler is going to faint probably after the Gengar.
Exactly. That's what we saw with the interaction, right? And that's why Davide is focused down saying, you know what? Perish may be my way out here in order to avoid an awkward scenario, because even if the Unburden hasn't been procced, it just seems like the training of this Mega Gengar is that of being slower than the Sneasler. Second time confirmed there.
Yeah. So it is the...
hello. Okay.
All right.
Uh-oh.
One turn, though. This Diaclaw probably has to crit.
It does.
If it's going to have a hope and a prayer of being able to knock out this Gengar. And the fact that the Gengar is slower than the Sneasler is so crucial to how this end game operates.
Unless there's a protect with the wake up, it doesn't seem to be the case. Dire Claw, not enough. And I don't even think with that range of damage, it would have been enough, probably resulting around 10 to 11 hit points. And what a turn of events. Davide winning through the end game perish. Game 1 win. Wow.
That's a masterclass. That's a masterclass in Perish. Like, when to go for it, when not to. Really tempting when you're playing a team like that to think, Perish Song is my strategy. Therefore, I must get Perish Song up at all costs at the start of the game. But no, not at all cost. You have to pick and choose your moments. I want to call out there, actually, the fact that the Gengar, Mega Gengar is so slow in comparison to the Sneasler is also how it was taking... excuse me, so little damage from the Dire Claw coming out from the Sneasler. You must know yourself, Costa, of being an aficionado of Mega Gengar, that you can train it to be really bulky in a way that regular Gengar isn't.
No, exactly, and that's the beauty of being able to always have the accompanying, let's say, Incineroar to further bolster the pseudo bulk that this Pokemon normally isn't trained for. It's usually fast and powerful, but not when it comes to the variety of modes here. So going into Game 2, it feels like there shouldn't be a change-up, but could that be the case with Bruno on the hyper-offensive?
Oh, well, I mean, that's the thing that Bruno has to make the decision on. You think the impact of maybe even targeting into the Gengar on turn 1 instead of targeting into the Tinkaton, right?
Yes.
How that would change that end game. We'll have to see how these trainers are adapting for Game 2.
Here we go. Leads with the Incineroar and the Gengar over on Davide's side versus the Sneasler and the Kingambit. So, once again, we've got Defiant activated. +1 Kingambit dealing so much damage. White Herb also now proccing, giving Sneasler the Unburden boost. But that's a smart way of being able to at least burn it for the future turns from Davide's side.
Now, I can't count the amount of times I've watched an Italian player bring Incineroar in the lead, threaten Fake Out, and then just switch it out.
Yes. And I think there's good reason for that too.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Gengar going for a Protect here and a switch out into maybe the Tinkaton for David, just trying to reposition their Pokemon, because that Kingambit with a bit of Fake Out support is definitely going to be able to knock out the Gengar this turn. With a Protect, you open up the opportunity for Disable. There it is, Incineroar leaving the field.
In favor of the Sinistcha now. Maybe for a subsequent redirection potential in the future turns, willing to be able to essentially control the Kingambit. And there's no Tinkaton at the moment, so Protect makes sense. You want that lasting, staying power. Fake Out trying to catch out the Incineroar, but Kingambit going for Swords Dance yet again. Now at +3, clearly both of our trainers here understanding the lines, and Bruno, in all appreciation, going for the gutsy moves where he has to.
Well, you just need to make sure that your damage output is enough to break through all of these Pokemon. And given that David's Pokemon are trained so defensively, it does give rise to the need to just go for those Sword Stances on turn 1 and take advantage of those more passive turns where the Perish Song is getting set up.
Yeah, and that's why we see the Sinistcha essentially being the sacrifice in this interaction. There was a Cassie Berry, for example, but like that doesn't factor in at all with this interaction of the Dire Claw actually dealing a lot more damage than I expected, Ben. And then the Kingambit, of course, picking up the KO. This allows the free switching of either the Incineroar or potentially the Tinkaton, maybe Kommo-o being opted out in this game too.
I think it would be a wise adaptation as well, because the Floette being in the back in Game 1, even though it doesn't look that good into the matchup, it's respecting the Kommo-o. And so David probably respecting the Floette a little bit more than maybe he wanted to in Game 1. But now the Fake Out coming back onto the field, another Intimidate, drop onto the Sneasler, but this Kingambit at +4 now is definitely going to put some holes in whatever it goes for a Cowtail Cleave in. I think the key factor here, the Perish Song is up, of course, is whether or not the Sneasler can get a little bit cheeky with the Dire Claw and allow for a little bit of shenanigans on that Gengar.
Yeah, and because the Whitehead had already been essentially used up prior turn, close combat, not quite enough to pick up the KO onto the Incineroar, but let's take a note there. The Kingambit was left alone. No fake out into it. There was a Sucker Punch attempt, obviously being essentially ignored because of the disable there. Maybe trying to position a point where the Sneasler is just locked in and cannot touch the Tinkaton that comes in because close combat, no longer online. Dire Claw, it's actually not able to hit the Tinkaton due to the steel typing.
Yeah, it's like, so now the Sneasler is locked into just trying to get the status effects onto the Gengar if David allows it to happen. With the Perish counter 2, this turn is a nice, easy protect turn. If you want to go for it, there's an Encore Disable ability. There's just a straight-up Encore ability to go that you could go for into the Sneasler if you wanted to. So many options that David has, but in this case, it's just Pokemon playing defensively. And then, just like in Game 1, there's the ability for David to swap out the Gengar and form an endgame on the last turn of this Perish.
But you do need to be cautious on the timing, and that is why we see the final turn of Perish is upon us. Gengar is ever so free to switch out right now. Close combat had been disabled, so there's no way outside of Dire Claw for the Sneasler to be able to threaten a KO onto the Incineroar that has to come into the Gengar slot.
And I think this is the turn where, again, we get the option for the Kingambit and the Sneasler to just try to get some damage down onto that Incineroar that we know is likely waiting in the wings. It's already at low HP.
Yep.
So the Encore coming in here, that's going to lock the Kingambit into Sucker Punch. The Sucker Punch is going to fail because there was no offensive options opted for. Oh, the Protect, of course. It doesn't really matter what it is. Not doing any damage is the point in this situation. Now the Sneasler and the Kingambit faint. But I feel like with the Tinkaton fainting as well at the end of this turn, oh no, it was after, it came in after, didn't it? Yeah. I was going to say that Bruno feels like they're in a little bit of a better spot to come on the offensive on this turn. And actually, I still think that's true, right? Because the focus sash is still intact on the Basculegion. And as long as Bruno can maintain that, the Basculegion is going to cause Davide so many problems.
And that's why Bruno's focus has been try to get the big damage hitters on the field at the same time to threaten and break down the foundational legs of this core system. Perish Son, Fake Out, Switch Out, etc. Mega Floette going for the Mega Evolution, of course, the Eternal Floette, apologies, but now you really need to focus down on what are the correct moves to lock in. Incineroar, I could easily see it being essentially a sacrifice to bring that Mega Gengar in at the right time the subsequent turn, and that seems to be the case.
Yeah, Incineroar going down here to the Dazzling Gleam. Wouldn't be surprised to have seen a Last Respects coming out into the Tinkaton trying to take that Pokemon out. So it's only Mega Gengar that is being stared down into. And now we get to a really interesting part of the game, right? Where the Gengar comes in, there's no Perish on the board. Basculegion can't be faked out. It can be encored, but I'm not sure you want to encore that into Last Respects unless you're also disabling it on the same turn. And the question then becomes, like, can the Floette do enough damage to make that endgame a little bit more palatable, maybe in combination with an Aqua Jet?
I feel like this is quite tough because all of the spotlight is on Basculegion. Surely Bruno's going to go for the defensive protect here, acknowledging that because Floette, it's going up against two Pokemon that it needs to deal damage to that are resisting its Fairy-type moves. The Steel typing on Tinkaton and the Poison one on Mega Gengar. There's not much that it can do. It's being threatened by a Gigaton Hammer. So I'm curious to see the speed interactions of this Tinkaton versus the Floette.
Ooh.
No Protect. Shadow Ball bringing the Basculegion down to 1 HP. Focus Sash procs.
No Aqua Jet, no Encore Disable at all. And is it going to be a Gigaton Hammer that's going to follow up into the Basculegion?
It is!
Knock it out.
Lead. And there it goes, Basculegion, the last Pokemon, in order to try to force a Game 3 in Bruno's favor. Seems to have been failed. Dazzling Gleam will be doing pitiful damage, and Davide has more than lock this up right now. Too much damage. Floette on its lonesome soul, eternally now gonna have to face down its two biggest threats.
Yeah, it's like we've already seen that Tinkerton is faster than the Floette, so maybe not this turn because Kickers on Hammer can't be used 2 turns in a row, but Dazzling Gleam being disabled, Encore locking in that Floette to the Dazzling Gleam. The struggle is real in this situation, and Davide is taking our win here.
Still running, undefeated.
More opportunity to lose a game before they are out of contention. Well, a couple more actually for Phase 2. Let's take a look at Alex's team. Let's remind ourselves. So we do have this Mega Charizard X alongside the Eternal Flower Floette, Incineroar, Sneasler, Sinistcha, and Milotic.
We've seen this Milotic set before with a live duo over the recover from our resident Jamie Boyd, but this one is the Coil Hypnosis set, trying to give this Charizard or the Floette a little bit more space to set up, depending on how the matchup is. And other notable little details of this team: Poison Touch, Focus Sash, coaching on the Sneasler with a Jolly stat alignment, so trained probably to be as fast as it possibly can to make sure it's getting those fake outs first. But also, you've got Life Dew over Trick Room on the Sinistcha. Not a decision that I expected a trainer like Alex to make. Just, no Trick Room entirely, preferring the option to play defensively with the Sinistcha, keep it around where he needs it, but then also get that HP back, offset some of the recoil that you get from Flare Blitz.
Yeah, Alex Soto very much known as a Trick Room trainer, but not this time around, and Francesco is staring Charizard X down with their own Charizard Y. Both brothers, and which one is going to go down in a blaze of glory? We do have this Mega Skarmory here as well, running Rock Tomb as a nice tech move, another great way to get around. Mega Charizard Y is on the opposing side, which otherwise it would struggle to do. Basculegion, King Gambit, Whimsicott, and Garchomp.
It's an all-in-one solution to Mega Charizard Y Floette teams, isn't it? Ironhead, Rock Tomb, good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it, done. Don't need any other Pokemon on your team to help out support that Skarmory. The other notable things going on here, the Habanberry on the Garchomp,
nice,
so Dragon-type coverage, most notably the Dragon Claw from Mega Charizard X is not going to be as effective into this Garchomp to be able to knock it out. You've got the Mystic Water boosting up those Wave Crashes and Aqua Jets. Aqua Jet could actually come into play if Pokemon just take these hits and live with just a sliver of HP, but also you've got no protect going on the Choppleberry King Gambit. Not the Focus Sash one that wants to go a little bit faster because Whimsicott is taking up that slot, but still trying to keep a little bit of defensive prowess to its name while not being able to protect.
Defensive prowess is the name of the game in Pokemon Champions. Many of the items we have access to are the super effective type reducing berries like that Habanberry, reducing the power of dragon type moves. Let's dive in with this gold and silver battle theme in the background. Shout out to Johto as Skarmory and Basculegion hit the field alongside Sneasler and Charizard for Alex.
I love to see the Skarmory here, turn 1, game 1. Sneasler threatening an early fake out, and one of the other advantages of Charizard is that it loses its weakness to water when it goes for its Mega Evolution, as well as increases its defensive capabilities. So even though this Basculegion is boosted up with its Mystic Water, I wouldn't be surprised if the Charizard in its Mega form, Mega X form, would be able to take that attack from the Basculegion, get a Dragon Dance set up, crucially outspeed the Skarmory, and then to be able to put some pressure on that way.
Sneasler's going to be retreating as it is first and foremost for Alex here, and Incineroar coming in instead, dropping the physical attack of both of the physical attackers on Francesco's side of the field. Francesco is going to be switching in kind. Skarmory is roosting in its nest of thorns. Whimsicott is going to be rising like the gleeful cotton puff it is into the arena. Now, Mega Charizard X has got those blue blaze flames a-glowing, and it's ready potentially to get set up with one of those cheeky Dragon Dances, Ben. But no, just going all in on the offense, calling it into the Whimsicott, down to 1 HP. Of course, that was once a Skarmory that would have been super effective either way, so a bold switch there from Francesco, but of course with the Focus Sash, you have so much more room afforded to you to be able to do that. Yes, Flare Blitz causes that recoil damage, and now with a follow-up Wave Crash, of course, neutral into Charizard, but it takes it just 11 HP.
Definitely an Aqua Jet range there, so there's some decisions to be made. Love the switch out for Alex here, getting that Incineroar in, not falling for the Whimsicott switching in that Francesco wanted to catch maybe with the ability to Encore in this turn. Instead, Alex was like, well, I see your Encore coming in. I'm going to be one step ahead of that going into the next turn. Incineroar getting the fake out, but notably cannot fake out the Basculegion being a ghost type, and so isn't able to properly protect this Charizard on this turn. But that's probably okay for Alex in this spot, because the Charizard doesn't necessarily need to go on the offensive in this turn.
Whimsicott isn't going on the offensive either. It's going on the defensive, switching out for this Skarmory. If it's another Flare Blitz headed in that direction, then things are looking bad, and it certainly is. The Basculegion wasn't even going for the Aqua Jet, but that's going to be 1 HP on the Skarmory. There's no focus out there. Of course, it's the sturdy ability coming in, and Charizard just takes itself out from the Flare Blitz recall damage. Yes, it's Stalwart the ability once it Mega Evolves, but sturdy beforehand as Wave Crash now super effective into the Incineroar. We're down to 9 HP. These traders mean business.
I was like, just attack for all of these turns. Now Incineroar gets to munch on its Citrus Berry and get a little bit of health back. It's the Darkest Lariat. Wow, Alex just committing to all of that damage down onto Francesco's side of the field, keeping Francesco honest. And I think this is something that may come back in the later stages of this game, where Alex has just demonstrated, like, I'm not afraid. He's just like, Aqua Jet me. Go on, Aqua Jet me, and then if you don't, then my Incineroar gets a free Darkest Lariat into the Basculegion and is able to knock it out, and then you can play from there.
Yeah, bish, bash, bosh, splish, splash, splosh, and that Basculegion is back down to the depths. Sneasler is coming out in its place. There was so much damage dealt all round on that turn. Look, both 2 1 HP Pokemon over on Francesco's side, but what do we always say, Ben? 1 HP is infinitely more than 0.
Than 0, absolutely. It's like the Whimsicott coming in does pressure a little bit of Encore next turn, and notably the Skarmory and the Whimsicott are able to protect themselves from any of the fake out from the Sneasler that Alex has brought in. It's going to be quite difficult for Alex to just get a little bit of repositioning going. There's a few like cheeky ways that Alex can get some advantages here with like side parting shot to activate the White Herb, the Unburden, but this is the Focus Sash Poison Touch variant.
It's going to be Garchomp coming in as the 4th and final Pokemon for Francesco, and that's going to be Sinistcha as the 4th and final for Alex there as well. This time Whimsicott is going to be protecting itself. How much can this Garchomp achieve on this turn? Coaching into the Sinistcha. Of course, crucially, coaching will be boosting the defense of that Sinistcha there so it can take more hits. Lovely play.
Yeah, really nice. It's not often that you see Sinistcha as such an endgame piece, but when both of your opponent's Pokemon are at 1 HP, I mean, Machigotcha only has to hit those Pokemon once. Damaging moves can never do any less than 1 overall damage. And so this Garchomp is being on the physical side is going to have a real tough time knocking out this Sinistcha. You need that Mega Skarmory Brave Bird to be able to do so, but that's only at 1 HP, so you only get one opportunity to do that. And if another coaching comes out from this Sneasler before that happens, then it's going to be really tough for Francesco to break through it.
And the momentum is blowing from behind Francesco now. The Tailwind and now the Earthquake super effective into the Sneasler, but of course Sneasler is the Pokemon for Alex that is holding that Focus Sash. So it's going to be able to hang on here. Sinistcha takes it for days being a Grass-type Pokemon, and you're KOing your own Whimsicott, sure, but being on 1 HP anyway, it wasn't long for this match. Besides, and so now it's just this 1 HP Skarmory that's lurking in the back, and there's another coaching. And who'd have thunk it, Ben? Sinistcha looks like it's going to be the defensive wall that Alex needs here.
Yeah, getting a little bit of HP recovery back from the Garchomp as well. Do pretty significant damage. Okay, critical hit. That makes a little bit more sense there. The extra damage is definitely nice. Might accelerate this game by a turn or so going into the next few turns. And that's really important, actually, because this Skarmory is only going to get 1 opportunity to Brave Bird. We are in the Tailwind environment. This Sneasler doesn't have the opportunity to protect itself. So either the Incineroar comes in, it's at low HP. Yes, it's going to get some Intimidate down onto the Skarmory and the Garchomp, but it is going to go down on the switch into an Earthquake, and there's nothing stopping this Garchomp going for an Earthquake this turn.
At least you have the Intimidate with Incineroar in the back, but as it is, it's going to be Sinistcha staying in and protecting itself. This is now the linchpin for Alex. Earthquake now, again, it's going to be easily enough to secure this 1 HP onto the Sneasler. Incineroar is forced back out And, you know, it's looking kind of close here with this Garchomp, but with that crit matcha gotcha, potentially that could be what seals the deal for Alex.
And it's like Incineroar gets to come in here, get the Intimidate off, get another Fake Out going. And there's a pin here from Alex being able to just make sure that the Fake Out is always in play. Whether or not you switch the Incineroar in and the Sneasler comes back in, or you just bring the Incineroar in clean and to be able to Fake Out for this turn. With the Skarmory having just protected itself, that move is likely to fail on this turn as well.
Ooh.
But Francesco goes for it, knowing that that is their out, getting the double protect there, Fake Out going into it, trying to do that last bit of damage, but the Earthquake is going to come out from the Garchomp.
And Incineroar's just a sitting duck on the field now, but let's see if this cat has 9 lives. Here comes that Sinnoh Dragon type, and the Earthquake easily enough now to secure the KO onto the Incineroar, such low HP as it was, and now we really are putting all of our tea into the Sinistcha basket here. It's going to be able to fire off another Magic Gotcha. Of course, what it can also do is cause a burn on the Garchomp, and that would mitigate its damage output even further, but let's see if that will come through. It's going to be healing the Sinistcha right back up to full HP, but no, the Garchomp is safe.
Yeah, now we're in a situation where the Sinistcha has two boosts for its defense, and the Skarmory has been intimidated as well as the Garchomp. So this Garchomp can change tacks, go for maybe a Rock Slide in this position to stop the Sinistcha going for the Machigotcha, doing that little bit of damage. But also, maybe it's the Iron Head Rock Slide, get some damage down on the field, stop any more recovery, and then the Brave Bird later.
Oh, but it's going to be a Brave Bird now, going for the Mega Roll, 1 HP. Is it going to be enough? This goodness me, the Sinistcha, let's not forget it, +2 to its defense. Thanks to the coaching boost, this China has been fired all the more hard as the Skarmory returns to its trainer. Garchomp is left, going for a Dragon Claw, his best move here, but look at this. This Sinistcha can take that for days, and now another Machigotcha into the Garchomp, neutral damage, but it's going to be enough. The little teacup that could. Sinistcha is going to be taking Alex Soto through to a victory in this first game of Swiss Round 6.
Yeah, it's a really nice end game that Alex formed there. Was a little bit susceptible to any sort of critical hit that came through from Francesco. That's probably what he was going for there. Maybe an Iron Head Rock Slide would have, if you managed to get a couple of flinches in that situation, might have been able to give Francesco the opportunity for a win condition, but you can miss a Rock Slide. There's no guarantee that you're going to get a flinch, and so I think maybe the more likely scenario for Francesco in his own mind is like, well, I need to crit, let's just go for it.
Yeah, exactly that, yeah. And listen, sometimes it pays off. Unfortunately, though, in this case, Alex was able to use that coaching really, really well, and that Sinistcha was the one that was able to clean up. Now, really interesting that Alex ended up winning that, because early on in the game, it looked like that Charizard X, mainly what it was doing was just dealing damage to itself. Sometimes you've got to go all in and go for that risky play of taking the recoil damage in order to get the big Flare Blitz off. But, I mean, what do you think about that, Ben?
Well, I think, like, if Francesco had gone for the Aqua Jet there, not taking the damage on the Skarmory on the switch in, but then also for the Whim... It was the Whimsicott first, wasn't it? And then the Skarmory took the secondary Flare Blitz. Francesco probably thinking like, hey, I'm kind of safe here. I don't need to risk that. I can get some damage down onto the Incineroar while the Charizard protects itself, and then I can go for the Aqua Jet next turn, right? And Alex really, I said it in the match, it's like keeping Francesco honest in those situations. Now Francesco has to like second guess every offensive or defensive play that Alex may or may not make, right? And so going into game 2, I think Alex has created these mind games that Francesco has to try and navigate, and it's really hard in these situations, especially when you're on stream, when those lights are beaming down. It's hard to keep your mindset straight and just play the objective Pokemon in front of you.
Well, are they going to be able to do that? Let's find out as Basculegion and Garchomp hit the field now for Francesco. And hitting us for Alex, it's going to be the Charizard and Incineroar double fire. Once again, this Mega Charizard X in the lead as that Champions theme serenades us.
And it looking like the, again, the same combination of Fake Out plus the Dragon Dance looks really, really nice. But I think one of the reasons that Alex was not really wanting to go for a Dragon Dance in those spots in the last game was actually just because of what Francesco did in turn 1 of game 1, where switching the Whimsicott in and catching the Charizard trying to go for the boost and locking it into that so it can't get any attacks off.
I really like this lead for Francesco, because if you stay as your regular Charizard, you take super effective from Basculegion, you could Mega Evolve away from that to take neutral damage, but then, of course, you're taking super effective damage from the Garchomp. So Francesco really trying to pin this, but maybe it's a bluff, because Basculegion is switching to the back. Whimsicott is coming in its place, ready to provide a cheeky Encore on a successive turn. The Charizard will be going for his Mega Evolution here, and becoming a Fire and Dragon type Pokemon. Now, how well will it be able to take a potential Dragon Claw from the Garchomp? It's not going to be able to act because, of course, the Incineroar targets it down with the Fake Out. The Rough Skin activating, of course, a little bit of chip, but it's all going to add up. Dragon Dance, though, is the play this time for Alex. We are bopping along right with you, my friend.
Yeah, now this is the turn we were talking about, where Francesco has brought in the ability to Encore, so trying to stay a turn ahead. And now there's an opportunity here, and this is where the mind games come in, right? So Francesco can just click Encore into Charizard. If Charizard protects itself, then the Encore doesn't do anything, while Alex gets the opportunity to switch in the Sneasler that may be in the back, maybe passing shot into it. One way or the other can get a Fake Out going on the next turn, stop the Encore, and then the Charizard can go on the offensive. But Whimsicott taking the advantage of that. Francesco seeing it coming, sticking to his instincts and going on the offensive against this Incineroar.
Ooh, but you can see the dividends that the Intimidate pays. The Incineroar takes the Dragon Claw so much better. Let's not forget that Francesco's Whimsicott is holding the Focus Sash, so it wouldn't just be able to KO it with one big Flare Blitz. Parting Shot mitigating the offensive prowess of this Garchomp even more now. The Sneasler is indeed coming in, ready to provide an active Fake Out so that this Charizard cannot be locked in.
And without Covert Cloak being an option that we have access to, this Whimsicott is going to be susceptible to a Fake Out, which will allow the Charizard to get off a key Dragon Claw, most likely into the Garchomp to put some pressure on it. But this Garchomp is holding a Banberry.
Yes.
So Francesco is still in a good position to try to retaliate, do a little bit of damage back to Alex. But because of the Parting Shot, because of the Intimidate from turn one, this Garchomp is going to be doing a lot less damage than I think Francesco was want to in this situation.
Yeah, potentially would have to switch it out, but then, of course, you could be on the receiving end of some big Dragon Dance boosted damage. Looks like a disco right now in the Pokemon Champions Arena there for this Mega Charizard X. It will indeed be the Garchomp going for the switch out now. As Charizard, the once well-trained, comes in. Let's not forget, this is a Mega Charizard Y that Francesco is running. Not that it can go for its Mega Evolution right now. Whimsicott is protecting. Yes, and it was the Fake Out targeted down into that slot. Alex did not want to be encored into any Dragon Dancing or indeed protecting, but now Charizard has gone for another Dragon Dance, meaning it's susceptible to an Encore on the next turn.
Yeah, and this is the cycling going on, right? So one of the big strengths of Mega Charizard X is that it can look at a Mega Charizard Y and be like, so what? You know, you can launch those big fire type attacks into me. I'm absolutely not worried about that whatsoever. Interesting to see that Francesco has switched up the strategy in the face of a Mega Charizard X to the Charizard Y, but now Alex gets to protect, switch in another Fake Out, and we can go round the merry-go-round again.
Exactly that. Alex is staying multiple turns ahead, which you have to do if you're running one of these setup Pokemon. Francesco's having none of it. He just wants to step on the gas. And now this Charizard Y is going to get the sun beating down from the sky like a disco ball for this bopping Mega Charizard X. Sunlight is harsh. The heat waves are going to be hitting all the more harshly as well, boosting up the power of something like its Heat Wave. Charizard protecting from the Encore there. Of course, you don't want to be Encored into protect either, but that's why this Incineroar can hopefully go for a Fake Out on the next turn. A Weather Ball in the sun. The Incineroar is going to be able to take it, but every little bit of chip damage adds up here. Of course, the Whimsicott can just now protect as well. This really is the battle of Charizard X and the Whimsicott here, cycling in the protects at the right time and indeed the Fake Outs. Who is going to end up with the upper hand? Of course, Francesco has to win this to take us to a Game 3, but if Alex wins this game, they are going through undefeated and stamping their ticket into Phase 2.
Yeah, it's so difficult for Francesco to be able to break this pin as well, right? Looking at the Pokemon that he has in the back, there's a Basculegion that isn't going to be appreciating a Dragon Claw coming out from the Mega Charizard X. And after the Fake Out and into the Whimsicott and an attack into the Charizard slot coming out from this Charizard X into Charizard Y, proving once and for all what might be the better Charizard overall, at least in the mirror match. Now the Encore can come into the Mega Charizard X and lock it into doing Dragon-type moves, which means it's not going to be able to damage Whimsicott ever in the battle. Unfortunately, it's going to be able to damage everything else.
Exactly.
And so Yeah, I'm struggling to see a way that Francesco can break this pin that Alex has been able to manufacture.
And of course, we've got Incineroar and Sneasler lurking in the back that can so easily deal with his Whimsicott anyway. So it could well be that Alex is just going to target everything around the Whimsicott with this Charizard X, even if it is Encore. Alex giving us a masterclass as to how to play this team and showing us that they are very much not locked into playing Trick Room teams, my friend. Oh no, Alex has the legs.
Yeah, and maybe the wings and
Definitely the wings.
The burning fire out of the mouth as well.
And the Boogie Nights too.
Boogie Nights. So I wonder what music that Alex has picked going into this game. Maybe we'll have to ask him later on in the day. Garchomp going on the defensive, wanting to protect itself from any more damage. There is the Encore into the Mega Charizard X, locking it into Dragon Claw for at least the next few turns. Not going to be able to do any damage to the Whimsicott, but Garchomp not going to be liking that, even with her Banberry trying to defend it.
Nice, so the Whimsicott is finally down. Alex has finally got the upper hand against the Cotton Ball, and now it's been scrunched up. Just Francesco down to their final two Pokemon. It will be the Garchomp and the Basculegion, and the sun beaming down from the sky is going to be acting against the Basculegion that, of course, Francesco himself set up with that Mega Charizard Y and its Drought ability. Alex Soto playing this oh so well, and all four Pokemon to their name.
Yeah, it's like now there's some choices to be made as like how you target and how you protect. The Dragon Claw is going down onto Francesco's side of the field, so this is Francesco's opportunity to come back into this game. If you can block the Dragon Claw, or at least make Alex trade for it,
here we go.
then maybe you've got a little bit of a chance. But even with the Banberry, Garchomp is not hanging on.
I mean, that was a critical hit as well. I wouldn't be surprised if the critical hit didn't matter there. But there you go, just the odds in Alex Soto's favor. And now it's Basculegion against the world. I mean, at least this last Respects is hitting as hard as it possibly can.
Yeah.
This Charizard is very much down and out, but you do have a Dark-type Incineroar. Truth be told, the Incineroar's on pretty low HP, so it's tough. But at least the Basculegion now hitting all the less hard thanks to that parting shot. We haven't even seen the fourth and final Pokemon for Alex here.
Yeah.
So let's see if it will make an appearance.
There's a temptation there as well to go for the Darkest Lariat into the Basculegion, try to put it at low HP. But actually, I quite like that parting shot to mean that once you've got the parting shot attack drop down onto the Basculegion, you can come back in with the Incineroar. It's on low HP. It's not going to be surviving any attacks, but after two Intimidates with Last Respects at full power, there's a chance that Sneasler or whatever else is in the back may have an opportunity to survive some attacks from the Basculegion. But if it is that Sinistra, like it was in Game 1, and you kind of like to think that it is overall, this Last Respects actually could do what it needs to do against the Incineroar, Sneasler, and potentially the the Sinistra in the back, if that's what Alex has chosen.
Another critical hit and the Poison Touch. Again, very much in Alex's favor. Now, the Last Respect's easy enough for this Incineroar, but especially with the Poison, this Basculegion will surely be swimming its last. At least we get to see what Alex was thinking as the final Pokemon in the back. Is it going to be the Sinistra, or was Alex thinking along a different line? Well, they just have to switch it in, and it is indeed that Sinistra, and it will, of course, recover the HP of this Sneasler. If it had taken any damage, the Sneasler's holding the Focus Sash as well, and that means that this Basculegion really cannot deal much at all to Alex's team. So it looks like Alex Soto is progressing with an undefeated record through to Swiss round 7.
Does look that way, but it's not quite over yet. The poison does mean that the Basculegion isn't going to sleep from a Dire Claw there. But it does mean that all of that damage is going to be racking up so quickly. Basculegion going for the Last Respects. There's the Kasib Berry coming out from the Sinistra. Wow. It would have gone down if not for the Kasib Berry, and then the next turn, if the Basculegion was able to take the Dire Claw, it would have been able to maybe come back, take us to a Game 3. But as it stands, Alex Soto in Phase 2 of your Turin Special Championships.
Look at that, cool as a cucumber there, Alex Soto, just taking it in his stride. Well, I think that's what it's all about. Just going to keep that...
We achieve a World Championships for that World Championships in San Francisco later this summer.
Frostlass, Venusaur, Sneasler, Kingambit, Palafin, and Garchomp. And the Venusaur is holding the Venusaur. It can Mega Evolve. And just like last weekend with Arcelpuri's Venusaur, even though that didn't Mega Evolve, it has access to Sleep Powder rather than any damaging Grass-type move. And otherwise, Sludge Bomb and Earth Power for coverage here. You've got the Aurora Veil on the Frostlass so that Yannick's team can take hits all the better, give them a little bit more longevity. Exactly what you want if this Palafin wants to set up some bulk ups and then hit all the harder through.
Yeah, you've got a nice selection down in this bottom right-hand corner with the King Gambit, the Garchomp, and the Palafin that are all going to really enjoy the coaching there to boost that attack and the defense and become real big physical threats, especially when you combine it with maybe the Defiant ability getting activated on the King Gambit or a bulk up being chosen by that Palafin. And interesting, there's no weather control outside of just that snow that the Frostlass has. So interesting to see. Normally Palafin has rain support with it to go alongside it, and it helps that Mega Venusaur, but not active there.
Let's take a look at this incredibly innovative team from Sally Rizzulli here. Gardevoir, Serena, Weavile, Kingambit, Talonflame, and the Garchomp. There's no item on the Talonflame there, you'll have noticed, trainers, because, of course, Acrobatics deals more damage if the Pokemon isn't holding an item. Gardevoir, once it Mega Evolves with its Gardevoirite, gets the Pixelate ability, so Hyper Voice will become a Fairy-type move. I really want to call out the Psycho Cut here on Weavile as well. Really nice way to deal with those Sneaslers that otherwise really threaten the Weavile with big, super effective damage.
Yeah, I really like this team a lot. When you look at it on face value, you got that double dark combination of the Weavile, the Kingambit. That's going to put a lot of pressure onto the Frostlass, make it difficult for Yannick to bring that. And then the Venusaur has a hard time against the triple axle on the Serena as well with that Choice Scarf. And then not only that, the Talonflame as well. It's got that Acrobatics that's immediately going to threaten with that Gale Wings boost. So a lot of things to kind of deal with those big megas on that side of the field. And then you've got the Sneasler, doesn't really like the Talonflame. It has got that fake out support there. And the Palafin is going to have to be a little bit careful around taking too much residual damage and too many attacks from things like that Gardevoir that can just hit so hard if it's in the right position. And interestingly, the Gardevoir as well got that Aura Sphere attack that we don't regularly see there. You normally see something like Trick Room, but Aura Sphere as an option to hit those opposing dog types and going to be really useful in the face of opposing Kingambits in particular.
Now, the Kingambit for Yannick is holding the Choppleberry, so at least it would take mitigated damage from an Aura Sphere there, but still, it's double super effective. And it's going to add up very quickly, and very quickly we'll be getting into our Swiss Round 7 game here at the Turin Special Championships. Good luck, have fun, trainers. Let's kick things off here as we head towards the end of Phase 1. Kingambit and Weavile on the field, going up against Palafin and Frostlass for Yannick.
Yeah, a nice lead here from Sally in particular there, putting a lot of pressure like we talked about from both of these dog types into that Frostlass. You've got the knockoff that can come in, do big damage to it straight off the bat, and also the Kingambit can pressure as well with a follow-up. The knockoff isn't enough to pick up the Frostlass turn 1, and it will follow up and knock it out after that. Palafin as well in that position where it wants to get off the field to activate that Zero to Hero ability, so it gets those stat boosts and can come back onto the field and be a bit more oppressive. So at the moment, you would say that all of the momentum is with Sally. Can they capitalize on it? That's the big thing here. Can you maybe predict a switch from that Palafin out and catch something on the switch in while also keeping pressure on that Frostlass that looks like it is in a really hard spot?
You could Mega Evolve, get the snow up, and then the Aurora Veil, but it would still take a whole heap of damage, even with the defense boost from the snow and that Veil. But the double switch, in fact, Kingambit and now Sneasler joining the field for Yannick as well. This means we have the reveal of all 4 of Yannick's Pokemon. Kingambit has the Choppleberry knocked off too. So that means it's not going to be resisting any fighting type damage coming its way, and that could be a big old one-hit KO. And a Kowtow Cleave into Sneasler now, bringing it below half.
Yeah, and the Choppleberry being lost on the Kingambit from Yannick's side is pretty huge now, because if you look at Sally's Kingambit, they do have access to Low Kick, so now we'll be able to remove that pretty quickly depending on the speed tiers of both of these Pokemon. You've got the active Fake Out now, so Yannick does have a little bit of room to maneuver here to slow down the threats on Sally's side of the field, but if you stop one, then you don't stop the other, and that Weavile is something that you have to sit up, take note of, because it does have that Psycho Cut, and it is going to pressure a knockout onto the Sneasler if it isn't checked here with that Fake Out.
I wonder how many Psycho Cut Sneaslers Yannick's gone up against before. Sneasler is leaving himself vulnerable, faking out the Kingambit for Sally here. Psycho Cut is exactly the play. What a cool animation as well. Double super effective into the Poison and Fighting type Sneasler. That Sneasler down. This is why, for example, we saw Jamie Boyd with a Weird Ear earlier on today. If you haven't seen that, definitely go back and watch Swiss Round 2. Iron Head now into the Weavile. Super effective. That's going to be enough for the one-hit KO onto Sally's Weavile, but it has put in so much work already.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a trade you really mind taking there, the Weavile for the Sneasler, in all accounts, especially when you've got the value of being able to knock off that Chopper Berry already. Now we're seeing the Palafin come back on. Zero to Hero ability has been activated, so it has undergone that transformation. Going to be a lot more threatening, but what a positive response here from Sally, bringing out that Serena now that has got that drop kick. It is going to be able to hit for super effective damage, and every time it does that, the residual effect of that is dropping the attack of the Pokemon that it connects with. So Palafin not in a great spot right now, especially with the threat of the low kick from the King Gambit on Sally's side as well into the opposing King Gambit.
Serena does have the choice scarf, so any move it chooses, it's locked into until it switches out and back in. Palafin is going to keep himself safe from a potential drop kick here. Frostlass is a nice switch in as long as it's safe from this King Gambit, which is quite a tall order. Takes super effective from Dark and Steel. Here comes the Assurance, and that's just going to be the Frostlass down in one for any Mega Evolution. Goodness me, Sally is definitely with the momentum swing now.
Yeah, knockouts out Cleave there, the Assurance, a really nice option, especially when you pair it with a Pokemon like that Choice Scarf. Serena is always going to hit before the Assurance goes off, but catching the Frostlass on the switch in really, really does pin Yannick here, because now you've got the drop kick. It's going to come out onto the Palafin, and then an easy low kick from your own King Gambit into the opposing one will be enough to pick up the knockout. So everything to do here for Yannick looks in a really awkward spot where they may go down to a game-1 loss.
Sucker punch into the Palafin. Every little bit of chip adds up, of course, but this drop kick is super effective. It might have undergone a heroic transformation, but now it's KO. That Palafin is back to its Pokeball. Now it is all eyes on this King Gambit. That's all that's left. The Cataclysm into the Serena here. Really interesting, because now it's knocked into that drop kick, which is actually pretty good for King Gambit. Of course, getting a defiant boost if it gets the attack dropped. And the King Gambit for Sally, of course, does have access to the low kick, which is double super effective. And there's no Chopper Berry anymore.
Yeah, we do see the low kick there. You might have thought maybe you want to switch that out rather than activating that defiant ability there for free, but it's fine, I think, in the end, knowing that you've got your own low kick to come out and finish off the game and clean it up. And I just have to call Sally's response in regards to that Frostlass switching, because the King Gambit was on the field. So easy to go for a low kick there, but really identifying, I can capitalize, I can lock this match down if I go for the Assurance into that slot, and just catches it and really reaps the rewards there.
For trainers who aren't so familiar, Lee, can you just give us a rundown on what Assurance is, how that works?
So it is a base 60 power Dark type attack if it hits after your opponent attacks. So if you attack into a Pokemon and then you attack second, its power is doubled. So
exactly that.
120 base power.
So deciding not to run the Kowtow Cleave, the signature move on King Gambit, and going for Assurance instead. But of course, as you say, it can deal so much more damage, going up to 120 power. So Sally gets the win there. We didn't even see the Mega Gardevoir come out, unfortunately. But hopefully in a future game we will, because it's such an interesting pick, and I wouldn't be surprised to see so many more of them. What do you think, heading into Game 2, Lee, that Yannick should do to adapt?
That was I think that game was very one-sided, and it was all based on the leads there. I think Yannick was in a really tough spot going up against those two Dark types straight off the bat with the Frostlass, in a position where you really can't operate. Yeah, you want to go down the Palafin route, but of course that makes it a bit easier for your opponent to know it's going to switch in and out. I think you're going to have to really change up what you're doing. Maybe Sneasler coming out does give Sally something else to think about, where you've got to contend with a potential fake out if you don't check it. But it is very, very difficult. I think Venusaur as well is one of those Pokemon that you kind of want to bring, but you've got to be able to check that Weavile in the first place, because if you leave that on the field, it's going to threaten you with those big ice type attacks. Although you do have the ability to Mega Evolve, do commit it there, because if you do, you get Thick Fat. It does give you a little bit of alleviation, and you might have a better chance of getting around the obstacles on the opposing side of the field that way. But then there's the Psycho Cut as well. All bases are covered. The matchup feels very hard, but some adjustments have been made.
Crucially, of course, Weavile is, as you say, faster than the Sneasler as well, so it's nice, such a nice tech Pokemon to have here. Adjustments indeed, though, Lee, with the Venusaur in the lead that could go for its Mega. Alongside the Palafin, you want to get that out nice and early so you can switch it out and back in for that heroic transformation. Weavile and King Gambit for Sally.
Yeah, you've got the immediate pressure of the Sleep Powder here on the Venusaur, so you can target into something like the Weavile now, or even the King Gambit while you reposition your Palafin. You can see the King Gambit not in its most preferable position right now as the God of War attracted onto the field with those psychic type attacks that are going to be so good against this Mega Venusaur that is just landed on the field.
Absolutely. It has got that flower blooming, and let's see if it can blossom into a victory for Yannick here. Would have to win this to take us to a game 3. Otherwise, Sally is going through to Swiss round 8 with just the one loss. Palafin is going to be keeping himself safe. Both Pokemon, in fact, going for the Protect here. Just scouting out. The Palafin will still have to switch out to undergo the heroic transformation. It was Psycho Cut into the Palafin there, even though it would have been super effective into the Venusaur.
Yeah, and now you're in that really awkward position. A great switch there once again from Sally just to keep that pressure on Yannick's side of the field, where now you've not only got the Psycho Cut that might miss the knockout because it isn't same type attack boosted, you've got the God of War now that can come on and really pile on the pressure and really threaten a knockout into that Venusaur. It's just protected. It's going to have to switch out. So do you go into something like the King Gambit here? Well, you could cover that to a point by going for the Hyper Voice and then the Psycho Cut into the Venusaur as well. It's risky because if the Venusaur stays in, it's going to potentially get a Sleep Powder or a big attack off.
Here we go. It's time for Mega God of War, everybody, to hit the field, and a shiny at that. So many unique Megas we've been able to feature for you today, and indeed unique Pokemon. It's such a treat to be here in Turin. The triple axle, though, each of these hits is going to get slightly more powerful, and a crit with the second one, and it looks like that third one is going to be dodged anyway. So Venusaur just above half HP here, of course, with the thick fat ability, taking less damage from the Ice-type moves. Hyper Voice, neutral into this King Gambit. It's a very rude welcome here. Finally able to get this Sludge Bomb off. Super effective into the God of War. Not enough for the KO. Brought down to 17 HP. Wouldn't be surprised if that's a calculation that Sally knows well, but it does get the poison. This God of War is now on a timer. In fact, its timer's up already. Just that was enough to secure the KO there. So such a crucial poison for Yannick.
Yeah, really brave play there from Yannick, and one I feel like had to make to get themselves back into this game. You see the triple axle, maybe if that third one had hit, it probably would have been enough to put it in range of the Hyper Voice to take it down, but thankfully not. Got that Sludge Bomb off. He was brave, didn't switch it out when it was so threatened, and took advantage of the turn. They're now in a spot where the God of War has gone, the Mega's gone from the opposite side of the field, but you've still got to deal with this Weavile here, and is your own King Gambit going to be in a spot where it can? Normally the Chople Berry is great because you can take those offensive fighting type attacks, but because you've taken so much damage already, you feel like you're probably in range even with the Chople Berry of a low kick picking up the knockout. A Psycho Cut or a triple axle going to be enough to get the Venusaur on the back of that threat. That's why we're seeing the Protect here.
Absolutely. Venusaur has done a lot already, but you don't want to push it too far, as now the Sucker Punch into the Weavile at least is able to get a bit of chip. It's no Focus Sash, it's a Never Melt Ice, boosting up the power of the triple axle. Low kick into this King Gambit. Let's see if it's enough to get the KO even through the Chople Berry. Yes, it certainly is. And now the King has fallen. Yannick is down to 3 Pokemon, just like Sally.
Yeah, the Palafin going to be able to come back onto the field now. Is that Sucker Punch damage enough to put that the Weavile in range of a Jet Punch? That's the question, because if you can get the Weavile now with the Jet Punch, then it frees up the Venusaur to go for a Sleep Powder potentially, or an Earth Power into that King Gambit, and you can slowly start to pull yourself back into the game. But it all hinges on, I think, whether or not this Weavile can survive the turn and maybe get an attack off. I think it's going to be very close. Weavile, one of those Pokemon though, it is quite squishy. It's not able to take attacks very well, but Jet Punch, it is one of those stronger priority attacks, so it's going to be very close here, I think, to being able to take it. And Venusaur, of course, now cannot protect. It just protected that previous turn, so will be susceptible to an attack if Weavile goes in that direction.
Absolutely, and of course it's got access to the Psycho Cut as well. Completely accurate and super effective into the Venusaur. You don't have to rely on the triple axle. But actually, Weavile is going to be hibernating for a turn, as the Serena is going to come in its place again, holding the Choice Scarf. So whatever move it chooses, it's going to be locked in. The Jet Punch. Of course, Queenly Majesty from the Serena acting a little bit like the Armor Tail there. And the dodge from Sleep Powder onto the King Gambit here. The Iron Head, is this enough for KO? Yes, it certainly is. So that's both Megas down for both of our trainers here. That was a crucial miss of the Sleep Powder on King Gambit.
Yeah, really unfortunate there. One of the drawbacks with Sleep Powder is it does have that little bit worse shaky accuracy, where sometimes it isn't always landing where you want it to. Now the Sneasel coming in, so there is a little bit of support there. Has a Dire Clawed, can threaten that Serena. Super effective attacks in that direction. Can't utilize the fake out here, but again does pressure that King Gambit on the opposite side with those fighting type attacks. But you gotta remember that the King Gambit on Sally's side has a focus sash, so they've got that layer of security where you're gonna have to attack twice into it, and you've got no priority you can take advantage of as long as that Serena's on the field, and it is pressuring that Palafin at the same time with those drop kicks.
And that means no fake out from this Sneasler either. So a really well-positioned Pokemon right now. We often see Farigiraf more commonly than Serena, but Serena offers so much, especially, for example, with all the Basket Legion running around. Getting super effective damage into that is very nice indeed. Palafin wasn't able to be a hero in the last game. Let's see if it is this time around. Certainly not on this turn, just going for his Protect. The Serena drop kicking into the Sneasler, crucially dropping the attack stat there on that Pokemon, meaning it's not going to be hitting as hard, even though the hit was resisted. The White Herb, fortunately, able to restore his attack stat to its former glory. The Dire Claw now, how much into Serena? My goodness me, is just enough for the one-shot.
Yeah, a huge knockout there and a really nice pick there from Sally to go after the Sneasler in the first place, detecting the Protect there, but the double up not quite enough to get the Sneasler. But you've got to imagine now it's probably in range of a Sucker Punch here from that King Gambit, so whatever it chooses to do next, it's going to be threatened. And now you've got the Weavile to come back onto the field. You've got a turn where you can take advantage of your own fake out, stop that Palafin from acting this next turn, and then hopefully get rid of that Sneasler in time to have a 2-on-1 situation where you've got the Weavile, you've got the King Gambit to deal with this Palafin.
Can this Palafin turn it around? It is at full HP, but so is the King Gambit that has access to the Focus Sash for Sally. That means it can take at least one attack and stick around on the field. Fine margins again. Yannick has to win this one in order to take us to a Game 3. Best of 3 is how it works around here. Sally, our Turin Special Championship senior champion from 2023. The last time the event was here, looking to convert that into a Masters win. It's going to be the Palafin flinching, but the coaching now onto this Palafin, meaning it's going to be soaking up all of the physical damage that Sally's Pokemon can dish out so much better, and that could be what is needed. Sneasler takes one for the team there, getting the coaching off, putting all of the eggs in the Palafin basket, but let's see if they're going to crack in Yannick's favor. Now the leftovers there, nearly back up to full HP.
Yeah, now the Palafin becomes a big threat, because how are you dealing with it? With the Weavile, yes, you've got knockoff, but it's not going to do anywhere near as much damage. The King Gambit is still going to be a bit of a threat to deal with, but I do love that Sally didn't commit to that Sucker Punch, knowing that the coaching could be there. We are just going to see a Protect from the Palafin, though. Just wants to see what the opposing side of the field locks in with.
And a little bit more recovery, of course, at the end of the turn, thanks to the leftovers. The knockoff followed up by the Assurance, which, again, as we saw, deals double damage if it moves second. So that means this Palafin is really under the thumb here. It's a good thing it has that coaching boost. Where do you target first here? You've still got to get through a Focus Sash on the King Gambit for Sally, remember?
You might want to go Jet Punch, hope that that +1 Jet Punch is going to be enough to get the
Let's
Weavile,
see.
which it should be.
It is, yeah. The Weavile is very squishy, as you say, Lee. So that is down and out, and now it's the King Gambit versus the Palafin. What can it do in its place? The Assurance, how much doing? Oh, I can take that so well. Maybe Yannick has found the answer to stamp their ticket into Game 3.
Yeah, definitely. And I think now you could go for a bulk up here just to kind of seal up the deal. I think you're already going to be fine anyway. Removing the Weavile, not having to contend with that double damage Assurance is going to be enough for you to hopefully close things up with a Jet Punch Wave Crash combination.
Playing things safe, getting even more leftovers recovery here, just as you say, Lee, to seal the deal. Absolutely. Don't want to leave anything to chance, especially when every win makes it all the more likely that you'll be progressing to our top cut tomorrow. But these trainers still have to win this game in order to secure their spot in Phase 2. Jet Punch is really nice damage, and it's just going to be a 2-shot. Crucially, the Focus Sash broken. Now the Assurance. Yeah, Palafin's taken that so well. And whereas Palafin really didn't have a fantastic showing in our Game 1, this Dolphin is going for the win in Game 2.
Yeah, really nice to see it left to that final moment and come in front of those two physical attackers, get the crucial coaching off, and then be able to close this up. We're just seeing another Protect from Yannick, not wanting to take any risks, I think, at this stage of the game, although the Jet Punch is going to supersede the Sucker Punch that could potentially come out and get an attack off before the Palafin can move. But we know the Jet Punch, one more will do it and take this game to a tie. So we'll be going to Game 3, and then it's all on the line for our trainers to do to progress into the next stage of this tournament.
Really exciting stuff. The Sucker Punch just for glory to try and seal it. Just the Wave Crash now, just in case you had a lower damage roll on the Jet Punch, and that's going to be enough to secure the KO onto the King Gambit. And so Yannick is going to be the one reigning supreme in this Game 2. Really well adapted by Yannick there, heading into the second game. But now, of course, it all comes down to essentially a best of one. But it's a best of one where the trainers have so much more information about their opponent's team.
Yeah, the adjustment to the Mega Venusaur didn't really pay off. Well, it did pay off for Yannick, sorry. It didn't pay off for Sally. I think a really nice adjustment from that Mega Frostlass that was so pressured from all of the dark threats in that game 1. So if you go down that route again, and another scenario where that Sleep Powder hits, I think the end game would have been a lot easier to tie up, of course. I think a really nice use of the Sneasler as well from Yannick, being able to dispatch of that Serena that would have otherwise been such a thorn for that Palafin to deal with, especially with the drop kick, because just weakening it each and every turn, and we saw the initial damage doing about 50% each time. So it wouldn't have been able to last very long on the board if that Serena had stuck around any longer than it did.
The Mega God of War, unfortunately, Sally was really not able to get any mileage out of that at all, and it's certainly something heading into Game 3 that Sally would like to index more on, just trying to get more value out of the only Mega Pokemon they have access to, whereas Yannick, of course, has access to both the Mega Venusaur and the Mega Frostlass. Yeah,
and I think if you are Sally, maybe you do readjust here. Do you maybe look at the Talonflame as an option to bring in this next game, because it does give you a lot better options against things like the Sneasler, things like that Mega Venusaur, and even the King Gambit, and any additional damage that you can get into the Palafin before it eventually goes down. Not a Talonflame, it's not going to be doing massive amounts of damage, but it can get really crucial damage off in those times when you need it, where it all adds up at the end.
The Palafin, it was so good to see it rise to the top in that Game 2, but can it do it again in Game 3, or can the Serena neutralize it before it becomes a threat? Let's find out. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Palafin in the lead. It's going to be the Gardevoir in the lead this time as well, just indexing all the more on that Mega Pokemon that was under the thumb by the time it came in. So Weavile and Gardevoir over for Sally, and Palafin and Venusaur for Yannick.
Yeah, we know that the Palafin is probably likely going to protect here, or more better probably switch out in this scenario. It's threatened by Fake Out. It really doesn't want to waste a turn protecting here. You want to get off the field, so when you bring it back on, we know that ability is activated. And the Venusaur as well, really threatened, because Fake Out's likely to go into that slot, and if you get faked out there and then the Gardevoir attacks into it as well with a Psychic, then you don't want to get caught out like you did in that Game 2, where you left it unchecked and give the opportunity for the Venusaur to attack. You want to go after it here. But doing that, going after the Venusaur so heavily, could open the door for the Palafin to maybe even just not switch out. It could go for a bulk up, or just an all-important wave crash into that Weavile.
As it is, Palafin will be retreating to the depths as Sneasler is going to emerge. Both these rabbits cheekily grinning at each other from across the field. Of course, both of them different evolutions of Sneasel as the Venusaur is retreating and King Gambit is coming in its place. So, time for this Mega Gardevoir to step on the gas. It's attending the prom, and let's see who it's going to be dancing with. It's got that Pixelate ability active. Its its normal type moves now dealing fairy damage. Triple Axle soaked up so nicely by King Gambit here. Does hit 3 times this time around, and all that chip is going to add up ultimately on to this King Gambit. Now we turn our attentions over to the Hyper Voice from Gardevoir. Is that going to be enough for the KO? No, the King Gambit is hanging on. Sneasler, even though there's neutral damage, it's down to about a third of its HP.
Yeah, really good coverage there, because you go for the triple axle, hope that you hit the Venusaur, and then the Hyper Voice covering any of those switches that you know are going to come from probably the Palafin, but also that Venusaur that was so heavily threatened there. And the King Gambit now taking so much damage. That Sneasler was so effective in that Game 2, where it was able to deal with that Serena that probably is lurking in the back for Sally, is in a position now where it will go down to Psycho Cut from the Weavile or any attack from the Gardevoir, although it does have at least this turn to utilize Fake Out to stop one of these targets from attacking, and maybe freeing up the King Gambit to get an attack off if it can. But it is going to be hitting last. If the Gardevoir is left unchecked and a Hyper Voice comes out, it's not going to be in any great position.
My goodness me, that Psycho Cut and the Sneasler's down. Yannick is looking so frustrated about that. Just look at the health bars over on Sally's side of the field. Not a jot of damage done, whereas this King Gambit is now down as well. And all of a sudden, Yannick is brought down to their final 2 Pokemon. Sally is saying, okay, I see your game plan from Game 2, but I can come out one on top of that. I know how to adapt.
Yeah, we're almost back to that turn 1 again. The only difference is now the Palafin is in its transformed state, so it is going to be hitting a little bit hard. Unfortunately, the Weavile hasn't taken any chip now, so it's not going to be in that spot where it is going to be threatened to be knocked out by a Jet Punch. It's going to be able to at least get 1 attack off here, and if you target into the Palafin with that knockoff, get rid of that leftovers item, that's going to be so valuable. The Gardevoir can then follow up with a Hyper Voice here. But again, do you want to leave the Venusaur unchecked? Because I think you've been conditioned maybe from that game 2 to not leave it unchecked, because if you do, there is going to maybe be a consequence for it. And I think Yannick at this stage, you've got to say, has got nothing to lose. So do you do Mega Evolve, just go for that Sludge Bomb? Does Sally allow it to go for it this time around? Because the double up is there potentially.
The Venusaur alongside the Generation 1 battle music. You love to hear it, but it's bringing us into the future rather than going all the way back to Pokemon Red and Blue. It's become Mega Venusaur now. But Gardevoir is going to keep himself safe from any incoming Sludge Bombs here. So where did Yannick target? First of all, the Palafin is going to be protecting. If this Venusaur happened to target down the Weavile, then that's going to be great. But the knockoff into the Protect onto the Palafin. So free damage here, but yeah, it was just the Sludge Bomb going for the super effective damage into that Mega Gardevoir.
Yeah, now you've got the option where you can do the same thing again. You can double up into that Venusaur with your Weavile and your Gardevoir, but there is the potential there of a Protect on that Pokemon. But the freer option is going for the knockoff, double up into the Palafin, or just switch your Gardevoir out and keep it for a little bit later on when it's more preferable. But you've got a free knockoff into that Palafin, which is going to be useful to get rid of that leftovers. It was so vital to its longevity in that Game 1 and Game 2.
Absolutely. If there's one Pokemon that could have turned this around for Yannick, but without the leftovers, it's so much of a taller order. Venusaur wants to channel its poison energy into what was the Gardevoir, but of course the Kingambit freshly switched in, taking 0 damage. It's just dissolving off that steel.
Yeah, now the Kingambit in a great spot where it can put pressure on both of these Pokemon with its Dark-type attacks, especially when you have that combination of attacking first and then following up with an Assurance. And to try and salvage this match, we're seeing a bulk up from that Palafin, but it might be a turn too late. But the Sleep Powder this time around does connect, Charlie.
And that was crucial for Yannick in one of the earlier games where the Sleep Powder missed. It just was the nail in the end of the game. But this time the Kingambit is snoozing. Venusaur with its Sleep Powder, as long as it keeps connecting those, it could be what takes Yannick to a victory here, even after such a devastating start to this game.
Yeah, there is a lifeline here. I think now that the Weavile has to probably put all its eggs in one basket, go after that Venusaur, like you quite rightly like to say, Charlie. I think because if you get put to sleep here, it opens it up for this Palafin to stack another bulk up and get into a position where it is going to start threatening knockouts with that Jet Punch, and even the Wave Crash that now probably will do enough. Pick up a lot of damage, but it's Sucker Punch Wake Up here.
Interesting. The immediate Wake Up, but it's going to fail. The Weavile attempting another knockoff into Palafin. It's doing less damage, of course, now that it's lost its item already. Another bulk up here from the Palafin, so getting a boost to its attack and its defense. The Earth Power, though, into this Kingambit. Super effective. It's not enough for the KO. Do we have a special defense drop and a Defiant boost? Because, oh, here we go. We certainly do. And that's something that's really going to act against Yannick here. I mean, your back's against the wall. You've got to go for it.
Yeah, I think the Kingambit now with that damage is probably in Jet Punch range, so you can Jet Punch quite safely into the Kingambit. You know that there's not really a safe switch in the back either. Knowing that at least the Mega Gardevoir's in the back doesn't want to come in on a Jet Punch. And it again leaves this Weavile in a spot. Can it take a +2 Jet Punch? And go after that Venusaur? I think Sally's been hesitant because of the potential protect each and every turn that's gone past, but at some point you're going to have to go after it.
Jet Punch into the Weavile now. That's going to be enough for the big one-hit KO here. So Yannick is slowly but surely clawing something back. The Dolphin going for the win, attempting another Sludge Bomb here, but of course Kingambit takes no damage there. If that had been an Earth Power, it would have been so nice for Yannick. Venusaur is crucially hanging on though, and a sliver of HP, infinitely more than 0. So let's see if Yannick is going to be able to turn this around against Sally, with the Gardevoir coming back in.
Yeah, the Gardevoir now. Can it take a +2 Jet Punch? That is the question. You can't Sucker Punch the Palafin just because the Jet Punch superseding it. It will not be first, and then the Sucker Punch will. But you can check this Venusaur almost with your Kingambit and say, well, if you are going to lock into Sludge Bomb, I can check you with my own Sucker Punch here. The problem is, you'll not be able to get your Sucker Punch off if you get Jet Punched first, but then it does open the door for the Gardevoir to get an attack off. But maybe why we're seeing a Protect here, to see if you can sneak some damage in from this Kingambit.
Protect from the Venusaur, who's going to be moving. The Wave Crash, actually, and it was targeted into the Gardevoir. So where has this Kingambit gone? The Assurance into the Venusaur. So, okay, Yannick is just trying to claw everything that they can into what was such a terrible position on turn 1.
Yeah, and you think if that Assurance had just been into the Palafin, you seal up the game, but not how it went. So Yannick's still in this here. The Gardevoir now is pressured, of course, by that Jet Punch, and the Kingambit in that spot where it has to really go for a Sucker Punch, really, but it is risky. You have to go for it into the Venusaur.
Okay, but Kingambit is going to be switching. Could be a very free Sleep Powder, or did Yannick go for the damage? Serena is coming in instead. So Jet Punch, of course, going to be blocked here. Perfect Pokemon for Sally to have in the back. And with his Hyper Voice, it's going to be both Pokemon down and out. Sally Rizzoli, your Turin Special Championship Senior Champion, is on course to potentially become your Masters Champion as well in Pokemon Champions.
What an incredible game, right down to the wire there, and Sally taking it right at the last minute and preserving the Serena.
This is the opportunity to lock yourself into phase 2. The Feraligatr. The spotlight has been on it. All this discussion build up for good reason. It is a threat. It does have Dragon Dance and Liquidation alongside the Double Edge. But then it's not the only threat, which is the beautiful thing around this. Obviously, there's the Aerodactyl, but we've got the Kingambit, which is such good coverage in the current meta, but also the Sizzle, which has Swords Dance. It's not a Mega because you opt in with a Metal Coat for further bolstering Steel-type moves, and the Clefable. Genuinely an underrated pick, in my opinion,
100%,
this map.
100%. I mean,
honestly.
when you're pairing it with a Feraligatr and a Sizzle, it's definitely, as boosting options, it's definitely giving them a lot of flexibility, a lot of leeway to get their boosts up. And then, not only that, you've got the coaching going on the Sneasler, so neither the Sizzle, the Kingambit, Feraligatr, or the Aerodactyl necessarily need to get themselves boosted or worry necessarily about an Intimidate on the switch-in when coaching is there as an option for Jorge.
It's a great way to be able to essentially compress multi-role features within one piece, which can pay off so greatly depending on the matchup. And the thing in particular with the Clefable, obviously it's trained with a bold stat alignment in order to make sure it could sponge all of those physical hits a bit more. It's got the Unaware ability, so it's going to be able to sit in front of an opposing setup Pokemon in order to provide support for its ally.
And when that's a Clefable, sorry, not a Clefable, a Mega Floette draining Kiss with a Calm Mind, or say maybe a Moonblast, that one usually smarts, but not when you're unaware of all of the extra boosts.
Exactly. Whilst over on Marcus's side, Charizard X, trained to be adamant. It also has Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, which genuinely packs such a punch, but we do have the Floette. That is always such an amazing option to have. Another setup potential there, and what we're sort of discussing, Ben, all of the other pieces, kind of excluding Kingambit, which is more so there for the coverage, in order to checkmate opposing scenarios and Pokemon that threaten. You've got the Incineroar, Sinistra, Sneasler, sort of core that puts any Pokemon ahead that wants to set up. It's so good with its versatility.
Yeah, it's like those supportive pieces are really, really important for any kind of setup. And those two setup options, you know, you play against a Charizard team, maybe it doesn't have Mega Floette on it, maybe it has a different sort of composition. Charizard X looks really good in those sort of matchups. But then for those matchups that you want to play into the Mega Floette mode, you've definitely got the option for all of those supportive pieces. Asopuri was using notably the Charizard Y Floette team with the same sort of defensive backbone, winning the regional championships in Indianapolis last weekend. So there's an opportunity for both of these trainers to go all the way.
Right, so let's talk leads. What are we feeling both of our trainers are more confident in going with against each other?
Do you know what? I'm not sure if Jorge's going to lean into the Mega Feraligatr as much in this match, but I would like to see it coming out, getting the Dragon Dances up in the early game with the Clefable.
Yeah, but we're about to find out. Our trainers are getting into battle. This is going to be the set that defines the rest of their tournament run. Will it end or will it continue? The leads are out, and what do you know, Ben? It's actually the Mega Feraligatr, which is going to have to succumb to that Intimidate drop against the Incineroar Charizard on the other side of the field.
Yeah, it's like the Feraligatr, if it's able to get a Dragon Dance up this turn, will be in a nice spot, but most notably, Charizard is faster than Mega Feraligatr, or Charizard is faster than Feraligatr naturally, and so just both going for the Mega Evolution and going on the offensive with Dragon Claw on either side would actually, or Double Edge for the Feraligatr, either way, it doesn't. It's going to be the Charizard that comes off on the better end of that. This Sneasler doesn't have White Herb, so no Unburden activation, and it's the Intimidate from the Incineroar is going to stick around, and so it looks like Marcus, at least in this turn one, has Jorge on the back foot.
And although Sneasler is going to be the faster fake-out user, so there are a couple of mind games that go into this. Citrus Berry, the item of choice on the Sneasler, which we never see, in all honesty. Maybe a great way to be able to proc that Unburden ability if put within that HP range, as we've got double Mega Dragons now on the field. Sneasler goes first into the Charizard. Is going to be a follow-up from the Incineroar into the Mega Feraligatr. Of course it is. So a bit of a stalemate, but like you said, this is the crucial part where Marcus has the speed advantage.
Yeah, and can use that speed advantage in various different directions here, right? If Marcus thinks that Jorge is going to protect the Feraligatr, then there's an opportunity for Marcus to go for a Dragon Dance or target down into the Sneasler, but that opens the door for Jorge to maybe try to get a Dragon Dance of their own, neutralize that Intimidate from earlier, get the Feraligatr faster than the Charizard, and start going on the offensive that way. So both of these trainers are going to figure out exactly how they want to target that progresses their game state, but also doesn't open the door to a lot of risk.
Well, that's it, because you can easily let the game slip from this crucial early game when you've got setup Pokemon both on the field. Sneasler did have the choice of going for a coaching setup there, but predominantly seems to be switching out in order for Jorge to go for the Protect. You've got the Clefable now, which is going to be immune to Dragon types, and also has Unaware. Get that redirection going. Seems to be the correct play, given the fact that the Dragon Claw was attempted on the Mega Feraligatr. Now we've got pivot action going from Marcus' side.
Yeah, and if this is the Sneasler in the back, bringing in another fake-out Pokemon, the Protect switch into Clefable looks really great here, because you can redirect those Dragon attacks into the Clefable, and then the Mega Feraligatr can start going for its Dragon Dance is protected. But now the Feraligatr has just protected itself. There's another fake-out Pokemon on the board. Fake-out Dragon Claw into that Feraligatr is looking really, really devastating.
But then there is also the option of Marcus going for the Dragon Dance, hoping now that he's got fake-out easily onto the Feraligatr. The Clefable's not going to be able to do much. It does have Moonblast, sure, but that's going to be hitting neutral on the Charizard X, so this may well be a setup for the Charizard to maybe get out of hand.
Okay, fake out going down into the Clefable, so no Protects going on there. And it's just a Dragon Claw. That's great damage into the Sneasler, but that Citrus Berry is activated. And that is going to be activating the Unburden ability as well on this Sneasler, so going to be making it faster than the Charizard, and definitely faster than Marcus's Sneasler.
Yeah, and this is fascinating right now, because you got the speed advantage. You do have the option of going for Dire Claw, but the Incineroar is right. I would say would maybe be switching in right now, forcing Jorge's hand in order to be able to adapt to it.
Right, and this is the board position that Marcus really wants to maintain, right? Switching the Incineroar in, keeping the Fake Out active, but also getting the Intimidate down onto the Sneasler, which we know is going to stick. Doesn't matter how fast the Sneasler is going if it's not able to pick up those key KOs.
Yeah, and you could easily be gone just for the disruption, really. So I don't see anything going wrong too badly. And the fact that Clefable was slower than the Sneasler. Oh, wow.
What a great turn.
That is a lovely, exquisite play there. You have got double Dragon Dance on the line. Ben, if I'm not mistaken, that Feraligatr was able to now position itself with a +1 defense in order to be able to maybe dissipate the Charizard, whilst you still have the option of being able to get another switch going.
1 defense boost, but 1 attack boost on the Charizard.
Yes.
And those cancel each other out. If you ask the question, does Mega Feraligatr go down to a Mega Charizard X Dragon Claw? The answer is probably yes.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it has to be. But that forces Jorge to actually bring in the Clefable now and maybe go for the defensive. But Marcus, is he going to be able to read this? We've seen him do it before.
Dragon Claw going into the Feraligatr, but is this a parting shot? There it is, coming out. So we've got this same sequence going on time and again, but Marcus is on the front foot in every part of this play pattern, and eventually the Sneasler takes too much damage on the switch-in for Jorge's side, unless Jorge is able to find that small window in which he's able to get damage down onto either the Incineroar or the Sneasler. Doesn't matter which one, just needs to break one of those options for Marcus.
It's a beautiful sequence and dance of the dragons that we've been able to see from both of our trainers, making sure they cover for each other's sort of board state progression in such a nice way. But like you said, Marcus still on the front foot, but if he slips up that one moment, it may give Jorge too much momentum.
The other option that now the Dragon Dance is on the Charizard that Marcus has is to instead fake out the Feraligatr, try to knock out the Clefable. That's the other way to break this play pattern, is actually just knock out the supportive pieces for Jorge. But it's fake out going into the Clefable and the Dragon Claw going in. And it's going to pick up the big KO onto that Sneasler. But this does open up a little bit of a door now, right? Because there is no fresh fake out coming in from Marcus. So although Marcus has broken the pattern from Jorge, Jorge now gets a little bit of momentum to try to break Marcus's pattern.
Yeah, and that's very important because now you're just expecting both of the Mega Dragons to go for the Dragon Dance. Maybe on either side, there could be a bit of a read or maybe a focus on trying to get rid of the Clefable with a double up of a Diaclaw and a Flare Blitz, but you need to make sure you're keeping that Feraligatr in check.
Yeah, especially since the Unaware is stopping that Dragon Dance from being impactful. The Flare Blitz is not going to knock out the Clefable on its own. And so, yeah, great call out there, Costa. It's like, you have to double into the Clefable to be able to pick up the knockout here.
Ooh, but a switch out. Jorge not wanting to commit just yet. Kingambit, the chosen one, brings itself onto the field, but Charizard going on the defensive. Sneasler, it does go for the Diaclaw. It's not going to be able to pick up the KO. We're going to have to see if there's any sort of cheeky status. Not the case, but the Moonblast hoping to put the Charizard within range. And Marcus now, once again, having the advantage. Definitely in the speed department, but the Clefable does have Protect as an option if there's more mind games.
Right, and now that Kingambit's come in, it's holding the Choppleberry, so it won't go down to a close combat from the Sneasler. So now Kingambit is in range of going down to a Flare Blitz, Clefable is in range of going down to a Diaclaw, but because of the speed interactions of the Dragon Dance and the Sneasler not getting its Unburden boost, the Pokemon on Marcus' side are attacking the wrong way around, right? And so this is something that Jorge can take advantage of.
As we see, the redirection from the Clefable wants to make sure that it does best position itself right now. It will be taking one for the team, leaving Jorge down to his final 2 Pokemon. But the question is, there's Choppleberry on this Kingambit. Is it going to be able to do something substantial enough to further Jorge's positioning? Because this is really tough. It nearly actually goes down to that close combat, but what's it going to do? Who's it going to target? Surely it's going to be the Charizard Mega X. You need to be able to get rid of it, but can you from this range? No! 48 hit point survival.
But it does open up the Sucker Punch on the next turn, and I think this is the opening that Jorge needed to make. Yes, Jorge needed to take 2 Pokemon disadvantage and lots of damage on the Kingambit to manufacture this position, but this is a position that Jorge can take advantage of. There is Protect on this Kingambit. We've seen a lot today that don't have Protect. This is one that does. And if the Feraligatr gets a couple of Dragon Dances up, the reverse sweep is 100% on here. But it's a tall ask against a player as experienced as Marcus.
Yeah, it is, and we do see Jorge opting to go for the defensive Kingambit Protect, but the Dragon Claw outspeed and raw KO from the Charizard ensures there is no path for Jorge to be able to come back from in this game 1. We've got Marcus in the advantage. He has got that win. Jorge is trying to give a couple of moments to himself in order to be able to try to figure out a game plan going into this game 2, because he has absolutely had too much pressure on his side of the field purely from the speed interactions.
Sucker Punch going into the Charizard is enough to take the KO there, but the Sneasler is going to be able to act next. Close combat, knocking out this Kingambit, and Marcus taking this game 1 in a pretty commanding fashion. Just feels like Marcus was going through the motions there, just having the speed advantage on the Dragon-type Mega Pokemon of choice, and then always being in a position where there was fake-out support until the Sneasler went down on Jorge's side of the field, and it's one domino knocks over all the rest.
And that's essentially what happens when you've got all of these disruptive or momentum-gaining pieces on either side. Clefable is amazing, it's great, but the fact that Marcus has the speed advantage when it comes to the Sneasler, the fake-out disruptions is so crucial in order to be able to dictate the momentum and forcing Jorge to go on the defensive. So, game 2, Benny, sorry. What are you thinking right now if you're Jorge? How can you bring this back?
Mega Charizard X is kind of difficult to take down for Jorge unless you get the Dragon Dance advantage in this matchup. I just don't think that's very easy to come by. But I do think the Aerodactyl is a really nice adaptation coming in, not necessarily Mega, just a plain Aerodactyl getting the Tailwind up onto the field would allow the Feraligatr to get the speed advantage onto the Charizard on Marcus's side and maybe start attacking down into it. The risk with putting all of the eggs in the Feraligatr basket is that if Marcus switches up and goes for the Mega Floette mode of his team, rather than the Mega Charizard X mode, which I've seen Marcus switching up before, it's definitely possible, then Jorge could be in trouble.
Here we go. I feel like there might be an Aerodactyl as well. It would change things up. But like you said, it seems like Marcus is trying to call out. Jorge goes for the Mega Floette mode as well. Spot on analysis there, Benny boy. And we do have an all of a sudden different board state on our hands. Game 2. Fake out online for Marcus. You have got the advantage of it. But the Aerodactyl, it does have Tailwind, does have potential of picking up a KO with Tough Claws Mega, but it doesn't have Protect.
Yeah, that is the biggest part of this position that's really hard for Jorge. And I suppose the big question Jorge's got to answer here is whether or not he's okay with the Aerodactyl going down this turn to allow the chance for a Tailwind and the King Gambit to go on the offensive, because even just getting the Iron Head off this turn while Fake Out and Moonblast goes into the Aerodactyl and it goes down does maybe provide some openings, thinking that the Charizard is not in the game, and maybe there's the I was going to say maybe the Mega Feraligator's in the back, but that's a Mega Aerodactyl. It's probably not.
That is indeed. It would be quite wild if we did see a solo non-Mega Dragon Dance Feraligatr going for shenanigans, but not right now, at least visible to us. We've got the double commit of the Mega Evolution 1 on either side of our trainers' side of the field. Fake out into the King Gambit. Make sure that it cannot threaten a potential one-shot onto that Mega Floette with the Iron Head. Tailwind now activated. And the Marcus's Floette is going to have to get a lot of traction right now if it wants to be able to essentially compete against this Tailwind shift, because we've got Aerodactyl in command in terms of threatening that one-shot onto the Sneasler, which, to be fair, does have Protect.
Yeah, it's like, this is, I think, a pretty nice trade overall for Jorge. Yes, you take some damage. Yes, it doesn't look great from a turn 1 perspective, but actually you set yourself up to actually do something that you never managed to get to do in game 1. And that is just be on the front foot. Now, the King Gambit is likely to outspeed this Floette in the Tailwind environment. Of course, there's dual Wing Beat on the Aerodactyl, Mega Aerodactyl, in fact, that would easily be enough to pick up the KO on the Sneasler. So now, Jorge is forcing Marcus to react.
Yeah, and bringing the Incineroar in to be able to avoid that KO is quite crucial, but it's at the cost of the King Gambit now having its attack bolstered via the Defiant ability, having +1 of its attack. Although the Tailwind is still available, Iron Head, it's going to be hitting resisted onto the Incineroar, but it deals so much damage. Very respectable. Proccing the Incineroar leftovers, which, by the way, I don't know why we haven't discussed that, because that is a very cool choice.
Yeah, we never saw it proc in game 1.
No.
So, yeah, really interesting item there. The Incineroar coming in, coming out quite a lot, and maybe if you've got your Citrus Berry somewhere else, that's the best recovery item that you have available to you for Marcus. But now, this is what he was doing in game 1, right? Marcus was bringing a fake-out Pokemon in every turn, making sure that the Floette is kept safe for a little bit later, trying to put pressure on the Aerodactyl so there can't be a Tailwind later.
Okay.
And Jorge recognizing that, bringing it out.
Very respectable whilst going for the Protect with the King Gambit. Obviously being threatened by that Sneasler Fake Out, trying to get ahead and disrupt the Aerodactyl. Close combat, trying to double commit there. Obviously, we know that there's no protect on the Mega Aerodactyl, so it's pretty free in order to be able to essentially guarantee some sort of damage onto that slot whilst being able to predict the obvious protect from the King Gambit.
Right, and now the Clefable's coming in, the King Gambit's a lot more safe to go on the offensive here. Maybe it can't knock out the Incineroar, but it's doing a good amount of damage to it. I think Marcus is doing a great job here of trying to stall out that Tailwind environment, but two slow Pokemon in Tailwind means that the Sneasler is going to be able to go first, but not able to pick up the knockout this turn.
Yeah, Moonblast focus into it will be dealing about 50% of damage. Ironhead following up at +1 is enough to finally get rid of it. However, it allows the Incineroar an opening. It can go for the Flare Blitz. It will pick up the KO onto the King Gambit, and Tailwind turns are approaching the end of their duration. However, we've now got Aerodactyl available for free switch-in. Sneasler is no longer available, and there's an Incineroar that currently is locked in on the other side of the field and has to switch out forcefully.
And then be able to be switched back in to get the Intimidate going. And so, yeah, I think this is something that's really important. Bringing the Aerodactyl in a moment where Incineroar is a quite nice place for the Aerodactyl to be, because you want the Rock Slide to be at maximum power. You want the ability to uncontested go for another Tailwind to keep the advantage up. For the presumably Sneasler that's in the back for Jorge.
I just had a thought, Ben. Given the Pokemon that Jorge has brought, there's a good chance that we may be seeing a Scizor in the back, the currently fourth unrevealed Pokemon, in order to be able to checkmate that Floette, anticipating the Floette actually making its way into Game 2, as we do have Aerodactyl now back online on the field and no Tailwind set up.
King Gambit going down there is a really big deal, but I mean, if you're going to risk your King Gambit going on, it does telegraph that maybe Scizor is the last Pokemon in the back. But even if it's Scizor, if it's Sneasler, there is still something to be able to hit that super effective damage. But here's some damage that the Floette's going to be getting ready to go for with its helping hand from Incineroar.
All right, Rock Slide, not quite enough to pick up the KO onto the Incineroar, but it needs to flinch the Floette in order to be able to survive. No flinch, helping hand, Dazzling Gleam, more than enough damage to pick up a raw double KO, leaving Jorge down to their final Pokemon versus Marcus's 3. This is insane. The way that Marcus has been able to manipulate the board is so telling. Sneasler on the other side of the field, remaining, trying to be able to hold on with Jorge's chances to progress to Phase 2. But, Ben, I don't think it's going to be enough.
I don't think so either. There's so many Pokemon left on Marcus's side of the field. Sneasler can only attack one Pokemon at a time. That said, this is a Citrus Berry Sneasler.
True.
This is a Citrus, so it's bulkier than other. Okay, the Sinistras come back in.
Cool.
Yeah, this is. Okay, look. It looked like it could have been doing something, but Sneasler is a Pokemon unless Diaclaw does Diaclaw things.
I guess
Sneasler is unlikely to be able to break.
They need a sleep.
There's the Diaclaw on the switch, but no status condition coming out from there. So it's looking like an uphill battle against this redirecting Sinistcha and a Floette.
Yeah, this is just exquisite resource management from Marcus's side. The Sinistcha brain is so crucial here. Mega Charizard obviously being left in favor of the Floette. Even if the Diaclaw does get a sleep, it does get a paralysis. Okay. The Mega Floette is just open to go for the damage, at least guaranteeing, most likely, depending on where the Citrus Berry will proc, a 2-shot, and it seems to be the case. Citrus Berry recovering, but it dealt too much damage. And at this point, if there's a Rage Battle allowed, it's game over.
I was going to say, like, the way that Jorge takes this game is that Sinistcha never moves for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Which is possible, by the way. It's unlikely.
But Marcus is going to cover for it.
It is possible. Marcus is going to do everything he can to reduce the risk of that happening. There's the Sinistcha going out. The Intimidate from the Incineroar coming in, stopping the Floette going down to a Diaclaw, and that's a critical hit.
It can. Oh, there was no protect from the Floette, so this may well actually be up for grabs, but it's not the case. Dazzling Gleam picks up the KO and grants Marcus his Phase 2 progression here at Turin.
Congratulations, Marcus, stamping your ticket into Phase 2 of the Turin Special Championship.
Both his best of 3 capabilities, but also the best of 1.
Yeah, exactly that, and that's just showcased how good a trainer they are. But let's have a closer look, Giuseppe's team here. As we've got the Charizard, it is going to be the Mega Charizard Y, the Incineroar, choosing the Chople Berry there, Parting Shot and Throat Chop as the options. Then the Choice Scarf Basket Legion, which we are seeing as an adamant nature. They're not a jolly nature, so we'll kind of be able to see the speed on that Pokemon. We've got the King Gambit. It has got Protect, opting for Low Kick in that 3rd slot alongside the Sucker Punch, Counter Cleave, Black Glasses supporting those Dark type attacks, and then kind of a standard Focus Sash Whimsicott, got that blanket of security there. The Tailwind, the Encore, going to be helpful, supporting Disruptive. And then the Garchomp there, Citrus Berry, probably going to be one of those more bulkier Garchomps that we've seen kind of rise to the floor in MA format with that very standard Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Rock Slide combination.
So something to note, and I think we've already given a slight mention about it. Giuseppe has only been running a 1 Mega Evolution team versus Federico, who has also got the Mega Floette, and the slot that's different, essentially, is the Incineroar inclusion on Giuseppe's side versus that Mega Floette over on Federico's.
Yeah, and it can open the door a lot because you've got that Fake Out support. The Intimidate support so valuable to just prolonging the longevity of your Charizard in front of those physical threats that it commonly comes up against. And it really is going to be a game changer in changing calculations for what players are expecting. And when you put things like that in the hands of a top trainer like Giuseppe, you're going to really be able to get the most out of it. Squeeze as much out of the orange to get the juicy there, and then get those victories.
So eloquently put, my friend, and that is exactly what both of our trainers are clearly thinking right now. I do want to call out on Federico's side that Mega Floette, which we're about to preview very shortly. It has a stat alignment of the timid option, which means it's going to be very fast. And opposed to the average being modest that enhances a special attack, it may well put Federico in spots where it's able to capitalize off the beat without having to dedicate slots to a Tailwind or a setup.
Yeah, that's a really good catch, I think. Well, it'll give us an idea of how that Floette is being run. Way more offensively. It's not like those Calm Mind setup ones are a bit more slow, a bit more methodical, that rely on that support. This one is going to be out of the gates, hitting hard. Light of Ruin, we know that is an incredibly strong attack and will be picking up near knockouts, if not a knockout. But the interesting thing alongside the stat alignment here is that the Garchomp, as well as Giuseppe's, I said Giuseppe's might be a bulkier Garchomp. I don't know if they are going to be, because they have the stat alignment of a speed boosting nature.
Yes,
where they are going to be jolly and they are going to be faster, taking advantage of that high speed stat as well.
Yeah, and that's sort of what we're expecting when you're paired up against the Charizard Y, as well as the Whimsicott, which, sure, okay, it does resist, it does break its Focus Sash, but it's a great way to be able to counteract that speed control and not take a lot of damage on its side of the field. We have got the leads. Giuseppe on the left-hand side with that Incineroar and Mega, or should I say Charizard for now, opening versus the opposing Charizard and that Garchomp.
Yeah, we've got the Incineroar here for Giuseppe, really useful in being able to drop and Intimidate onto the Garchomp. It's also got a valuable Fake Out here that it can go to. Do you go into the Garchomp here, you take a little bit of rough skin damage, but you prevent that Rock Slide from coming out, and then do you take advantage of that, or do you just try and reposition, keep your Charizard for later, and try and just keep on continuously weakening the opposing Garchomp? Because Incineroar not really too worried about what this Mega Charizard Y from Francesco's side is going to throw out. The weather balls will add up, but you can take a few of them while you get yourself sorted.
And that's why Federico wants to go directly on the offensive, sets that Sun up, but most importantly, trying to go for the Rock Slide, directly threatening the what was previous Charizard, to put it within range, where perhaps the Charizard on Federico's side is going to be able to capitalize off of it. But we've got a sort of situation where the switch-ups may have to come out from Federico's side right now in anticipation of that Garchomp on the field for Giuseppe.
Yeah, it's a really nice switch from Giuseppe here because they've got their Garchomp on the field. They aren't -1. They're pressuring the opposing Garchomp with the Dragon Claw, and not only that, they're pressuring the opposing Charizard now with their own Rock Slide, which hasn't been checked, and that's exactly what's coming out.
Oh, 16 hit point survival. Will it be able to get a move off, which could be quite crucial in terms of the targeting? Solar Beam is absorbing all of the precious light, and it's going to be tackling the Garchomp, dealing so much damage. About, okay, I was going to say that had to be a crit. It's about 70 to 75% worth of damage. Proccing the Citrus Berry, getting the parting shot now onto the Whimsicott. That could have been a double up there onto the Charizard, but clearly Incineroar wanted to prioritize the board state.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it was a really smart play here to go for that Rock Slide and take the opportunity when it presented itself. I think Federico probably felt quite comfortable knowing that it's Charizard is trained defensively, going to be able to take an opposing Rock Slide at least one time, but one time alone. You've got the perfect partner next to it now. You've got the Whimsicott, you can set the Tailwind up, and then potentially, is that Garchomp in range of another Solar Beam? I don't know. It's going to be very, very close. And do you commit to that? Because even if you do, the Garchomp could quite easily switch out here into the Incineroar, and the Charizard could just get a big attack off. Heat Wave maybe, get rid of that Whimsicott, and because the Charizard on Federico's side is taking so much damage, it's going to be in range of any little wisp of a flame from the Heat Wave taking it down.
I think Federico's in a bit of a disadvantage, obviously because of how the board state's been playing out, but the fact that there's a lack of Incineroar to be able to lower the damage output from Giuseppe's side is quite crucial, because you're probably going to go down to an attack right now unless you pick up a KO. Weather Ball into the Charizard from Giuseppe's side, barely scratching that 50% mark. As we've got the Garchomp going for the Dragon Claw, making sure it can guarantee any damage into that slot, even if another Pokemon's coming back onto the field. And Charizard connects with the Heat Wave, picks up the KO. And even though Tailwind's been set up from Federico's side, to what cost? 2 of their Pokemon.
Yeah, in a really nice, consistent way to get rid of the Charizard there. Saying, okay, well, the Charizard could switch out for the Garchomp if it suspects a Rock Slide, so let's cover that and let's get a Dragon Claw just to cover bases there. Now, interestingly, Federico has brought their Floette as well, which is a great Pokemon to have in this scenario, in the Tailwind, to pressure that Garchomp that is and has been such a threat to Federico so far in this match.
Yeah, and surely the Incineroar has to come in from Giuseppe's side, right, Lee? The question is, can Federico catch it and go for the KO threaten?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Incineroar coming in, I think if it gets hit with a Light Rune, it's probably going to be leaving the field pretty quickly. But I think the main important thing here is that you get that all-important Intimidate onto the opposing Garchomp. You can see that Giuseppe does value their Garchomp, doesn't want to lose it so freely, and just protects it here from any threat as the Rock Slide from Federico's Garchomp does come out.
Yeah, and the awkward thing is that there's no Mega Evolution option on the Floette from Federico's side, because he already committed with the Charizard, so it's not going to have the Fairy Aura to further bolster the Fairy-type moves. And look at that. That's pitiful damage coming from a Floette. Sure, it's Dazzling Gleam. Sure, it's not modest at alignment, but yeah, it just goes to show how important that Mega Evolution form for it is.
Yeah, you've got the nice option now with the Incineroar to slow that Floette down a turn. You can fake out into that slot if you want. It will protect your Garchomp for at least one more turn, but the Garchomp in front of Federico's, even though it is -1, have you taken enough damage now where are you able to take that Dragon Claw -1? That's going to be the big question, but no, Dragon Claw locked into just another Rock Slide, maybe predicting a switch from Giuseppe, thinking that the Charizard might re-enter the field.
May well be the case. Rock Slide does connect onto Incineroar. Gonna have to find out if there's gonna be any sort of flinch potential. Not for the moment. Dragon Claw not enough to pick up the KO onto that bulky Garchomp on Federico's side. Does have the proccing of the Citrus Berry as Sunlight has now faded, but still the advantage is surely in Giuseppe's side. You've just got so much more resource available.
You do. Yeah, I mean, you've got you need to get through this last turn of Trick Room. I think try and preserve your Garchomp, but you've got to remember as well, do you try and value the Intimidate? We know that Giuseppe still has one Pokemon to reveal here, so they could switch out that Incineroar to whatever they got in the back, and then keep that Intimidate to drop down on the opposing Garchomp one more time, and then it allows your Charizard a little bit more freedom to come in and take advantage of the sun in front of it without having to worry so much about those big physical attacks.
Yeah, defensive protect from Giuseppe there. Rock Slide will be connecting, picking up the KO onto Incineroar, but this sort of falls into the plan from Giuseppe's side. He wants to be able to bring in a Pokemon fresh, and it probably is going to be that Mega Charizard Y, which is surely going to be able to outspeed that Floette. But now that Tailwind has expired, the question is, Garchomp is surely going to be able to outspeed, but can it connect?
I was wondering if it
or
would be
not.
maybe the Basque Legion to come in here that
Okay.
Giuseppe had been keeping, but this is just as good because now you're going to be able to get your own tailwind set, the Whimsicott, and you're also going to be able to allow your Garchomp to attack before Federico. So you put a lot of pressure onto that opposing Garchomp instantly with a Dragon Claw. You can go for that. And if you remove that opposing Garchomp, then you can, your Charizard just comes in and cleans up the Floette.
Okay, so we see both of our trainers trying to get the most crucial piece defended right there. Dragon Claw will only be met with the Protect. Very good play, but Federico not able to capitalize off of it. Get rid of the Garchomp. Unfortunately, didn't get the read, and we see the forfeit. Giuseppe has got that game won.
Yeah, it could have went either way in that end game, but you see, as soon as that Garchomp locks into the Protect and the Whimsicott locking into Protect as well, you know from that point that the Garchomp is rendered useless that next turn because the on-call lock will come in there. And then you can just bring in your own Charizard from that point on if you are Giuseppe, and then clean up the non-evolved Floette and the Garchomp with the remaining health that it had. So very well managed by Giuseppe in the end game there. Not overextending themselves at all in that match and really preserving the Whimsicott for the perfect opportunity when the opposing tailwind that Federico had set up had expired.
Something that you don't commonly see, but Giuseppe clearly seeing the value from it mid to end game to be able to wrap things up. So, Lee, something that we noticed, Federico brought both of his Mega options. He only could commit with one. The Floette was essentially just a neutered down scenario form of what it could very well be with the Mega Evolution. Is that a misplay? Do you feel like that might be a good consideration going into Game 2, opting just for one rather than both?
Maybe. I think the Mega Floette, it's hard to bring it and Mega Evolve it in front of a Mega Charizard Y.
Yeah.
But it is a more offensive variant, and it does have the option to cause a lot more disruption to Giuseppe's team than maybe the Charizard has, because as soon as that Garchomp comes onto the field for Federico, then the Charizard on Giuseppe's side, yes, you can intimidate it, but it is instantly threatening. You almost feel like you've got to react. You can't keep it on the field. You've got to bring something else in, and that opens up opportunities, whereas with the Floette, you can just have that constant damage cycling on and in and out, so.
Oh, and we do have a switch up. Game 2 has brought the King Gambit and Garchomp this time round from Federico's side, able to capitalize off of the Incineroar Brain, now having +1 in its attack.
Yeah, and that's a really nice catch there, but the one drawback of that is you're sitting in front of two fire types. One can bring the sun and the other can just attack into you. Now, the Charizard is threatened here by that Garchomp, but it is -1, so you would probably say it can take at least one Rock Slide. The one thing you need to watch out for, and I'm sure Giuseppe is aware, is that it is a combination of that Sucker Punch Rock Slide, but you do have Fake Out to get around that for at least one turn if that is what's chosen.
Yeah, and there is a consideration that Federico has to be able to be aware of, and that is the potential of locking the Garchomp into a potential Protect, hence why we saw it try to go on the offensive. It does deal a bit of rough skin damage, but it's willing to be able to do it to make sure that the Whimsicott doesn't switch in, get that lock going already, and then allow Charizard to just go for max damage.
Yeah, that Heat Wave, even though it's resisted, still doing so much damage. Why Charizard Y is one of the best Megas in this format and so hard to kind of keep a handle on here. And Giuseppe not taking any risks here, catching the Protect on the Kingambit because it is threatened from that Fake Out and that follow-up with the Heat Wave. So catching the Garchomp, getting some very valuable damage on. Now it'll be the Charizard's turn to Protect, as we probably see a parting shot from the Incineroar onto that Garchomp, or maybe even an attack into the Kingambit here just to try and remove it.
Yeah, I was going to say there would have been, if the low kick was an option on Federico's side, the option of going for the Incineroar, but it's got Iron Head, Kowtow Cleave, and the Sucker Punch, so it's not going to be able to finally get rid of that or have the option to do so, as Incineroar, though, does flinch. Cheeky little Rock Slide there.
Yeah, and we're not going to find out what was locked into from Giuseppe, so puts him a little bit further back now. The Charizard's still in that same threat, where a combination of Sucker Punch, Rock Slide probably will be enough, especially when it is Defiant boosted. Incineroar now in that spot where it probably wants to go after the Kingambit again, but does Federico kind of follow up with the same sort of play? Do they maybe protect the Kingambit here, and they could go for an Earthquake just to get more damage onto the board? If you suspect the Charizard's going to switch out from Giuseppe, it is dangerous though, because you could leave it to go for an attack, but I think because it's so threatened right now, you're probably quite safe to go and lock in for something like that.
Okay, but we have the Floette being brought onto the field, revealed in this game too, whilst the Charizard switches out. So clearly both of our trainers trying to be one step ahead in terms of the subsequent board state available after this turn. Kingambit has protected itself. Parting Shot goes into the Floette slot. There was no real reason for Giuseppe not to do it, aside from being fearful of a potential flinch yet again. But this gives a lot of momentum with that pivot action going.
Yeah, it's a really nice play here from Giuseppe, not to commit to that King Gambit there and just go for the Parting Shot. Like you say, why not go for it? Because if you catch the Garchomp with it, then you lower that attack even further. But like we're saying, what a great switch from Federico to have something on the field now that threatens the Garchomp that you were suspecting maybe coming in. You weaken that, which gives you a much easier time dealing with that Pokemon. Now you've got your Charizard back on the field, and it probably is in a position where it can put a lot of pressure on both the Floette and that King Gambit this next turn.
This is still an awkward spot for Federico because both of his Pokemon most likely are not going to be able to take advantage of speed. But then again, let's not forget, the Floette is actually timid. So depending on the training of this Garchomp, there may be a chance to be able to outspeed it.
Yeah, the combination of Light of Ruin and a Sucker Punch into the Charizard, I'm really curious. I think that might be very close to picking up this Charizard. So that could be a combination that we do see.
Fairy Aura now activated. Sucker Punch into the Charizard. 38 hit points. That is so huge. Earthquake will be able to deal damage onto both of Federico's Pokemon. Not quite enough to beat up the KO, but like you said, Lee, are we going to see
the Light of Ruin?
No, really didn't. And at least you're not going to be taking that much recoil damage in return because of how low Charizard's HP is. You have gotten rid of the raid boss from Giuseppe's side. Although you need to respect, now Giuseppe has a free switch in. It could very well be that Whimsicott, but there's a lot of firepower lost in order to deal with the King Gambit.
Yeah, and that's it. I think the King Gambit here is a big threat, and we see it's probably going to be able to take another Earthquake here. And now the Garchomp really threatened by a Light of Ruin because you can't allow that Garchomp to take that. It's not going to be able to survive that or a Moonblast. But you do have the Whimsicott here to set up that Tailwind to potentially put a little bit of a disruption with the Encore that it's got access to on that Floette, and why we're maybe seeing it switch off the field now.
I was going to say, we did see the Garchomp actually outspeed that Floette as well. Another reason for Federico to be able to take that into consideration. Garchomp's berry has been procced, gets a bit of recovery. Sucker Punch dealing so much damage. Moonblast will be breaking the Focus Sash on this Whimsicott and dealing so much respectable damage. Not even Pixie Plate boosted. The Earthquake is enough to pick up the KO because of the Rough Skin interaction onto the King Gambit.
Yeah, that's a huge play there. You break your own Focus Sash, but it's well worth the trade-off here. Now you've got your own Whimsicott onto the field, and you've done so much damage with that initial Moonblast on the switch, and where that Whimsicott on Federico's side will likely go down to another Earthquake from Garchomp, and because you've got the jump speed-wise with your Tailwind, you could just lock in with a Tailwind, go for an Earthquake, and it's likely enough to get that Floette as well at the same time because of that speed interaction we've already seen.
Could there be a mind game of Encore Speed Tide to be able to stop the Tailwind coming out from Giuseppe's side?
That definitely could be. The Encore, it could be an option here, but I think if you're Giuseppe, I think you just click Tailwind, just click Earthquake,
have to,
and then just see how things play out, because you're in such a dominant position here. But if you're Federico, you've got a lot to do. You've got to kind of hope that you can, maybe catch something with the Encore if possible, but I don't know. You're going to be able to at that stage, because then you're still going to be outspeeding it. But there is the Tailwind. Okay.
Yeah, you're going to have to hope that Giuseppe does not select the exact same move. But wait, he doesn't. There's a Dazzling Gleam! Double KO onto the Garchomp and the Whimsicott. My lordy, what an interaction. And Federico may have just put himself back into the game.
Yeah, Giuseppe there, that's huge. Not going for the Tailwind of their own, and then really getting punished for that decision, where the Floette now taking full advantage of that speed control, and the Incineroar now on its lonesome isn't going to have enough to be able to deal with this combination. You would say, no, it looks like Federico is going to tie this up, and we're going to get a game 3.
Wow. I think it's very fair to say we were not expecting that, given the momentum that was in Giuseppe's favor. Lee, let's dissect that. The Tailwind, why wasn't it opted in from Giuseppe's side?
I think you talked about it a little bit going into that turn where there's a potential of an encore there, a lock. And maybe Giuseppe's thinking, okay, well, you know the speed interaction between the Garchomp, my Garchomp, and the Floette. If we just match Tailwinds, I'm wasting a Tailwind essentially because the Garchomp's going to get the jump on everything, going to get Earthquake, and it's probably going to knock everything out. So is that what Federico's going to go for? And maybe thinking it's probably going to go down there, probably going to go down a different route, and why we didn't see the Tailwind there. But then Federico saying, if you're not going to do that, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to punish you, and I'm going to tie this game up. So maybe that's why we saw things play out like it did.
Okay, game 3. Where are both of our trainers at? Same sort of compositions? Because clearly Federico did a great job with the adaptation in game 2.
Yeah, really great adjustment. Like you mentioned heading into that game, was it worth concentrating on one Mega rather than the duel? And I think the decision to do that with the Mega Floette was really, really great. I love the lead of the King Gambit as well. It now makes Giuseppe think twice about leading the Incineroar. So really right, because you can't have an easy time. But if you don't lead the Incineroar, then you don't have that Intimidate support and you don't have the Fake Out support. There is a trade-off there. So it makes things a bit more difficult. Federico making all the right decisions to not give an easy time to Giuseppe to take this game.
All right, here we go. This is the final game of our first day here in Turin for the Special Championships. Giuseppe and Federico both undefeated, trying to remain that way going into tomorrow. Floette, Garchomp versus the Charizard and the Incin.
Yeah, I think Giuseppe happy not to see the King Gambit here, and it really paying off, staying with that combination, and now has access to the Fake Out. You can go for that into the Garchomp, prevent any Rock Slide threat coming into your Charizard, Mega Evolve, and potentially get a big Heat Wave into both of these targets and get that valuable damage. You don't need to worry so much about what this Floette is going to throw out, although there is the threat of the Light of Rune, as always, will be present.
And we're going to have to see if the training from Giuseppe's side may allow the Incineroar to survive, because it is a careful stat alignment promoting the special defensive prowess of this Incineroar rather than the defensive. So, Fake Out, where does it go? It goes into the Garchomp, Rough Skin activated. That may actually put it within range of a Light of Ruin that we do not see. Moonblast instead for the Charizard, putting it just above 50%. Is there any drop of special attack? Not this time. Charizard goes for the Heat Wave, and it misses on the Garchomp. It does connect with the Floette, though, dealing so much damage, Lee.
Oh, and the burn as well, that residual damage there. Yeah, the miss onto the Garchomp's pretty huge. We saw how much damage it did in that game too, and it was really consequential going into the latter stages of that game. Really nice pick there for the Moonblast into the Charizard. It's not very effective, but what it's essentially done is put it in range of a Rock Slide. Now, the Garchomp is on -1, so this is why we're seeing the Protect here, because a Rock Slide coming out, it would connect, it would pick up that Charizard, and now taking advantage of the free slot, the Incineroar can't Protect, Light of Ruin into it, and this combination is going to be more than enough to pick up that Incineroar.
There's no way it could be more careful than that. Does go down, but at the cost of its own stead. Floette is now down. Federico has lost his Mega option for this game 3. He's going to have to, make a way through with his remaining 3 Pokemon. Probably going to be a Whimsicott potential. I'm not sure if maybe the Basculegion can be brought.
If Basculegion to the back, it could be an option, but I mean, in front of a Whimsicott, it's not really going to help you out too much, right? But you've got the advantage now of setting your Tailwind and Rock Sliding this next turn, because even if Giuseppe goes for a Tailwind, the Charizard's going to be slower than the Garchomp. It's going to be susceptible to a Rock Slide. It's going to go down to that. So what you do, you switch the Charizard out. It's just protected. It's very vulnerable at this stage. And what do you want to do as well? Do you want to maybe try and just attack into the Garchomp and switch your Charizard out? Maybe go for a Moonblast into the Garchomp and start whittling it down. And that's why that Heat Wave miss was so pivotal from that turn 1, because it would have put it in range of probably a Moonblast taking the Garchomp out.
And there's going to be a lot of mind games. Incineroar is no longer an option to be able to slow down the offensive pressure from Federico's side. Talking about that, Moonblast goes into the Garchomp. That switched in, covering so nicely that slot. Probably going to be the double up here. If it's a Dragon Claw, this would be an insane play. Moonblast from Giuseppe's Whimsicott, now going into the opposing one. Actually dropping its special attack, dealing so much damage, but it's going to be the Rock Slide. Didn't want to commit with the Dragon Dragon Claw in order to break the focus sash from Giuseppe's Whimsicott, but what a showdown!
Yeah, really nice just to cover bases there from Federico saying, well, if your Charizard doesn't stay in, I'm going to catch the Garchomp that I suspect in the back, and exactly what happens. Big Moonblast. Now that Garchomp on Giuseppe's side is not having as free a time. Now, what do you do here? Do you set the Tailwind up and try and get the jump on the opposing Garchomp, hoping that the opposing Whimsicott doesn't Moonblast you and you can get the Dragon Claw off before the opposing Garchomp can? There's a lot of mind games and 50-50s coming into play here, and the Charizard doesn't feel like a great option to bring in right now for Giuseppe.
I was going to say, there's the on-call mind games that you need to be able to respect too. It does seem to be the Basculegion as the final Pokemon of choice from Federico's side, followed by a Protect from the Garchomp on Giuseppe's. Moonblast does target it down, deals about 35% damage, is going to be able to maybe put it within a range, but Federico willing to take the risk, go for the Dragon Claw if there's any sort of speed tie interactions going, because both the Garchomps are jolly and both the Whimsicotts are timid.
Yeah, now the Garchomp, in a similar situation to what it was before, it's still going to be susceptible to a Moonblast from the opposing Whimsicott and the Garchomp there. The Basculegion coming onto the field now does offer a little bit more offensive threat, but it takes away some of that distraction as well, taking a Moonblast from that Whimsicott.
Who wins the speed tie? It's going to be the Garchomp from Giuseppe's side. Moonblast and the Dragon Claw, enough to pick up the KO onto the Basculegion. Dragon Claw on Federico's side. Maybe a bit too late. However, it's not over just yet. Whimsicott is still available on Federico's side. It's going to be a battle between both of these little cotton balls.
Yeah, and it comes down to Garchomp really versus the Charizard, and that's the thing. I think Federico's Garchomp still in a very strong spot where depending on how it is trained, is it going to be able to take a Moonblast? You would suggest probably it is. So all you do if you're Federico is click that Tailwind button, hope that you don't get encored into your previous move, which is a Moonblast, and allows you then to get that Rock Slide off.
Oh, this is going to be close. Are our trainers willing to risk a speed tie interaction between the Whimsicott from either side? It's going to be really telling, and it's going to allow them to continue their undefeated streak. But will they commit?
And there's always the risk as well, I think, of the Charizard on Giuseppe's side going for a Protect, but it's very risky. And going for the Moonblast into the Garchomp, hoping that's enough to pick it up. But if you do that, then you become susceptible to the Encore. But here is an Encore.
It encores the Garchomp. It's locked into Dragon Claw. It is not allowed to go for the Rock Slide. We see the Whimsicott interaction. They're trying to go for the Encore of its own. Federico has dropped his headset. Heat Wave has connected on both Pokemon. Garchomp is left on its own. 94. It cannot touch the Whimsicott on Giuseppe. This looks locked up.
Yeah, that is one way to do it. Winning the speed tie was huge there to lock that Garchomp into the move that it wasn't able to take advantage of. And Giuseppe Whimsicott is going to be your winner here in Swiss round 9.